Hi guys. I made a paid service in Telegram where you will find a great collection of fanfiction audiobooks organized and regularly updated. What you get? An unlimited access to the full audiobook library. New fanfiction audiobooks added regularly. You can play audios directly from Telegram anytime. Joining our service is available through a monthly subscription of $5. You can pay using PayPal or Ko-fi. So what are you waiting for? Send me a message on Telegram or Discord. I will provide the payment details. After the payment is confirmed, you will receive access to the private Telegram channel containing all audiobooks. If you enjoy fanfiction and prefer listening instead of reading, this library is made for you. Message me anytime to join.
Page 1. One Piece meme, starting with 8 extraordinary skills. Author, it's no exaggeration. Summary. One Piece plus meme plus Invincible. The protagonist is a Marine plus Pirate plus Revolutionary Army member, and possesses various elemental skills such as fire, lightning, darkness, and ice. Yang Ming transmigrates to the One Piece world and obtains a meme-creating lottery system. If he shouts out classic lines from characters in movies, TV series, novels, anime, or games, he can randomly obtain an ability/item, and even summon characters to appear. Work less and get more, get something for nothing, that's my ideal. Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from under one person, and you have obtained one of the 8 extraordinary skills, Saint Thief. Would you like to dance too? Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Naruto and gaining the Sharingan. I will not let the sky obscure my vision, nor will I let the earth bury my heart. Congratulations, host, you have obtained the golden cudgel. Creating memes is fun, and creating memes continuously is even more fun. As long as I create memes fast enough, no one can surpass me. Chapter 1, Doing Less, Getting More Earning Without Effort. That's my ideal. The year 1510 of the Haiyuan calendar was sunny. East Blue, Goa Kingdom, the final destination of the uncertain. A crow swooped down from the sky and landed on a pile of garbage, preparing to snatch a rotten apple to eat. Suddenly, a hand emerged from the pile of garbage, startling the crow so much that it flapped its wings, and a black feather fell down and landed on a young face. Ba ba ba. Yang Ming finally managed to climb out of the garbage heap, his whole body aching from exhaustion. He lay sprawled on top of the garbage, panting heavily. As a modern person, Yang Ming would never have imagined that he would be transported to another world the next day simply for staying up all night to do his homework, and in such a bizarre way. A flood of memories from his past life surged through Yang Ming's mind, making him realize his current predicament. This is the Kingdom of Goa, hailed as the most beautiful country in the East Sea. Ironically, this country regards them as filthy beings and abandons them all at an uncertain final destination. These filthy things include not only everyday garbage and waste, but also the people who are marginalized. Unfortunately, Yang Ming's previous life was that of an orphan and a beggar. He could only beg for food every day and was abandoned at an uncertain destination to fend for himself. He could only survive by picking up food that city dwellers disliked. No one knows what the original body ate, but it died instantly, which is why Yang Ming was able to transmigrate and possess this body. Since his predecessor had no name, Yang Ming naturally used his own name instead. Before Yang Ming could sort out the memories in his mind, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from afar, along with a slightly childish voice. Ace, Sabo, look, that guy is so weird. He's sleeping on the garbage dump without any clothes on. Yang Ming's ears twitched slightly, and he struggled to prop himself up, looking in the direction from which the sound came. 3 mischievous children came chasing and playing around. The person in front wore a red sleeveless vest, his black hair was somewhat messy in the sea breeze, he always held a steel pipe tightly in his hand, and his sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, always paying attention to the situation nearby. The boy following closely behind was dressed in a blue aristocratic suit, with a black top hat on his head, and a spirit of yearning for freedom between his brows. The youngest boy, hanging at the very back, had a straw hat much larger than his head hanging on his back. He was pointing a finger in Yang Ming's direction with an exaggerated expression. As a One Piece fan, Yang Ming recognized the 3 men in front of him at a glance as the famous 3 brothers in later generations, Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Yang Ming knew that Luffy's aesthetic sense was always on the weird side, but he couldn't help but curiously look down at himself. He was short and thin, about the size of a 6 or 7-year-old child. He had no extra clothes on him, and having been buried in the garbage dump for some time, his body was covered in filth and emitted a foul odor. When Luffy and his 2 companions arrived in front of Yang Ming, a muffled gurgling sound came from Yang Ming's stomach. Yang Ming's face fell, and he felt a wave of bad luck wash over him. His predecessor spent his days scavenging for garbage in the garbage dump, and whether he could get enough to eat was a problem. Now, Yang Ming is so hungry that he is dizzy and unable to exert any strength. Ace, who had been wary and scrutinizing Yang Ming from head to toe, gradually softened his expression after hearing the rumbling of hunger coming from Yang Ming's stomach. They ventured into an uncertain destination, offending many people in the process. This area is often frequented by scavengers, thieves, bandits, and even child traffickers. Previously, Ace had suspected that Yang Ming was bait used by those people to lure them in. However, it seems that he was overthinking things. Yawning is contagious, and so is hunger. Gilya. A moment later, Luffy, clutching his shrunken stomach, said, "I'm so hungry. When are we going to eat?" "Let's go to the beach and get something to eat," Sabo said. Seeing that the three were about to leave, Yang Ming knew that he was all alone and could not survive in this dog-eat-dog world. Only by clinging to these three powerful figures could he survive. So he dragged his tired body and followed behind. "My name is Yang Ming. Can I join you?" Before Ace and Sabo could even speak, Luffy immediately broke into a hearty laugh. "Great. With a new friend joining, I'm no longer at the bottom." Sabo had no objections. Ace was precocious and was unwilling to admit someone whose background he didn't know into their circle. However, Ace also knew that although Luffy seemed silly, he wouldn't invite someone with malicious intentions. With Ace and Sabo's tacit approval, Yang Ming successfully infiltrated their inner circle. To accommodate Yang Ming, the group didn't walk too fast, stopping and starting along the way, eventually leaving the garbage-strewn area and arriving at the beach. Beneath the azure sky lies the boundless sea, where seagulls occasionally swoop down from the heavens, lightly touch the water, and bend down to snatch a fish. The four divided the work. Ace and Sabo were responsible for fishing, Luffy was responsible for finding flammable materials nearby, such as branches and scraps of paper, and Yang Ming, being weak, stayed behind, picking up seashells and conchs nearby while building a simple campfire with the firewood Luffy had found. Yang Ming had previously gone to summer camp with his classmates and played in the woods in the suburbs, so he had some experience and the process of building a campfire went smoothly. When Ace and Sabo returned, each carrying a large salmon on their shoulders, the campfire was already lit. Sabo pulled a switchblade from his pocket and expertly scraped the scales off the salmon. During this time, Ace and Yang Ming chatted casually, and Ace also inquired about Yang Ming's background. When Ace learned that Yang Ming was a homeless beggar orphan, he understood somewhat. Beings like Yang Ming's predecessor are not uncommon in the Goa kingdom. The kingdom of Goa was very backward, and the gap between the rich and the poor was extremely large. Technological advancements from the Grand Line only circulated among the nobility of the Goa kingdom, not among the lower classes. Ordinary people still earn meager income by cultivating land and planting cash crops such as cotton and rubber, using their cheap labor to sell the raw materials to merchants at low prices. If an unforeseen event occurs, ordinary people will be unable to obtain enough resources to survive. They will either risk going out to sea to become pirates or take the risk of becoming robbers, which requires no initial investment. Generally speaking, ordinary people who do such things usually end up in prison or die without a proper burial. Very few people can become famous pirates. Most people, probably not long after making the idea of becoming a pirate, would be reported by their neighbors, arrested by the city guards, and thrown into jail. "Yang Ming, do you have a dream?" Before Yang Ming could answer, Luffy patted his chest and shouted with soaring ambition. "My dream is to become the Pirate King and obtain the legendary One Piece." Ace and Sabo both covered their faces. Having such a Chiyonobu, delusional, younger brother really leaves them speechless. A dream. Yang Ming looked up at the blue sky and white clouds at a 45-degree angle, his thoughts seemingly returning to his past life. As a student, Yang Ming's motivation is to study hard, get into a prestigious university after the college entrance examination, and then work hard to pass the postgraduate entrance examination and the civil service examination to become a civil servant. In this way, he will no longer have to worry about making a living and will have a secure retirement. Yes, this is Yang Ming's ordinary dream. Yang Ming regained his composure, shrugged, and said, "To do less and earn more, to reap without sowing, that's my ideal." As soon as Yang Ming finished speaking, a voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding! Host has been detected as meeting the system binding requirements. Now officially binding to the me-making lottery system. Once the host utters a classic line from a movie, anime, or novel, they will receive a chance to win a prize. Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from under one person. You now have one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? System? A glint of light flashed in Yang Ming's eyes. Every time traveler has a system. Yang Ming originally thought he was an exception, but he didn't expect to get a system too. Moreover, it seems that this system is quite amazing. As long as you keep saying various lines, you can keep getting chances to win prizes. Once you win a powerful prize, wouldn't you be able to take off on the spot? Despite his excitement, Yang Ming remained outwardly calm and continued chatting with Ace and the other two to build rapport, while secretly using up his lottery chances. In Yang Ming's line of sight, a roulette wheel that was invisible to others appeared. The prize wheel is divided into several large squares, each corresponding to a different prize. Summoned characters: Zhang Chulan, Feng Baobao, Zhao Fangxiu, Fang Zizai, Zhang Huiai, Wijinchen. The 8 extraordinary skills: Qi Body Source Flow, Feng Ho Qi Men, Divine Mechanism 100 Refinements, Spirit Binding and General Command, 6 Treasuries Immortal Thief, Great Luo Cave Observation, Heavenly Record, and Dual-Handed Techniques. Cultivation Techniques: 5 Thunder Orthodox Method, Complete True Internal Alchemy Technique, object manipulation, Wohaukumen. It can even summon characters. Looking at the prizes on the lottery wheel, Yang Ming really wanted to complain. Only children make choices, adults want it all. However, Yang Ming also knew that the system was the boss and did not change according to his will. Under the curious gazes of Ace and the others, Yang Ming ran to the beach, washed his dirty hands with seawater, then clasped his hands together in front of his chest and sincerely recited in his heart. Page 2. Amitabha, Holy Mary, Sasuke, Infinite Heavenly Venerable, you must draw the prize I want. Seemingly deeply moved, the pointer of the lottery wheel slowly came to a stop. Chapter 2. The Six Treasuries Thief. The Sage Thief. Under Yang Ming's tense gaze, the pointer of the lottery wheel slowly stopped at the 8 extraordinary skills column. 6 treasures. Immortal Thief, the ultimate body forging method, which trains the large intestine, small intestine, stomach, triple burner, gallbladder and bladder to create a body that is immune to all poisons. Furthermore, because it can perfectly absorb the energy of food, it can slowly increase physical fitness. When it reaches the mastery, it can even quickly repair physical injuries. The 6 treasuries. Immortal Thief, also known as the Sage Thief. As long as the saint does not die, thieves will not stop. From its inception, the 6 treasures. Immortal thieves aim to seize the life force of heaven and earth for their own use. After the lottery ended, a large amount of information about the 6 treasures. Immortal Thief flooded into Yang Ming's mind. As if born with the ability, Yang Ming's body automatically activated the 6 treasures. Immortal Thief technique. With each breath, his abdomen expanded and contracted, and he felt the turbid air in his body being exhaled, while the pure air between heaven and earth was inhaled into his body, giving him a refreshing feeling. However, after just one round trip, Yang Ming felt even hungrier. Those who cultivate the 6 treasures. Immortal Thief can all be described as gluttons. Yang Ming immediately returned to the campfire, took the switchblade handed to him by Sabo, and without caring that the fish was only half cooked, he immediately scraped off a piece of meat from the fish and swallowed it in one gulp. Hot, hot, hot. The still hot fish meat, upon entering Yang Ming's mouth, not only brought him a scalding sensation but also a fresh and tender taste. A mouthful of fish slid down the throat into the stomach, and the entire digestive system began to move, quickly digesting the fish and extracting its essence. Wisps of qi began to flow through the limbs and meridians. Yang Ming felt a warm current rising from his abdomen, and his energy and spirit were invigorated. The 2 large salmon that Ace and Sabo caught weighed over 10 kilograms each and were propped up on the campfire with over a dozen wooden forks. As Yang Ming wolfed down his food, it immediately whetted the appetites of the other 3, who, disregarding everything else, joined the fray, scrambling for the remaining fish. In Yang Ming's previous life, a large salmon weighing over 10 kilograms was enough to feed an adult for several days. However, it is obvious that the physical constitution of humans in the One Piece world is much stronger than that of humans in the previous world. Not to mention that Luffy, Ace, and Sabo are all extraordinary chosen ones who could even swallow an entire cow if they opened their stomachs. The 4 of them devoured the 2 large salmon in a whirlwind, leaving only the stark white bones burning in the campfire. The 4 men sat in 4 different locations, each lying on the sand, their bellies visibly bulging into mounds of earth. Each had a fishbone in their mouth to pick their teeth, and they looked extremely timid. Friendships between men can sometimes be very simple. We fought together, climbed over walls together, and had girlfriends together. Luffy, Ace, and Sabo are still young. Although Ace and Sabo are older and seem much more mature than ordinary children, they are also unusually simple in this regard. As long as they have drunk together and had a big meal, they are considered good friends. Unbeknownst to him, Yang Ming had integrated into this small group in this way. Of course, at this moment, Yang Ming did not notice this, but was wholeheartedly feeling the changes in his body. After consuming a large amount of food, Yang Ming's hunger crisis was not only resolved, but also, nourished by the qi within his body, the damaged organs in his previously frail body, which had been suffering from hunger for many years, began to slowly repair themselves. Long-term hunger will first damage the stomach, then the internal organs, and finally the flesh and bones. The qi nourished silently, like a massage to these damaged areas, and Yang Ming could feel a tingling sensation arise spontaneously. Moreover, the predecessor accidentally ate food while picking up garbage, resulting in food poisoning, and the toxins that had accumulated in its body were successfully expelled. During this process, Yang Ming went to the toilet twice, taking care of his personal matters behind a nearby shady reef. Yang Ming even noticed that a crab was attracted to the pit he dug, and after coming into contact with the excrement, it immediately foamed at the mouth and fainted. It is conceivable that if these toxins were allowed to accumulate in his body, Yang Ming would probably not live more than 7 days. After the toxins in his body were cleared, Yang Ming felt a great weight lifted off his shoulders, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Blue sky, white clouds, and gentle sea breeze. Feeling the gentle, ocean-scented breeze blowing in his face, Yang Ming felt better than ever before. I know the plot in detail, and I have a system. As long as things go well, I will definitely have a place in the new world in the future. Looking at the boundless blue sea, Yang Ming felt a surge of excitement. Whose youth is without dreams? Who doesn't yearn for freedom? However, due to the helplessness and constraints of reality, for the sake of their studies, their future, and their families, they often have no choice but to temporarily give up those unattainable dreams, bow to reality, and strive for a stable government job instead. Of course, before that, Yang Ming also needed to think carefully about what lines he should come up with. As a miserable senior in high school, I spend every day either studying or on my way to exams, with virtually no time for entertainment. Besides, most TV dramas these days are just about romance. The actors have no expressions and no effort, making viewers cringe so much they could dig a whole room out of the floor with their toes. Yang Ming had only talked about well-known games and anime with a few close friends in his spare time, and he hadn't really made a point of memorizing the lines. Now that he had to slowly recall them, it wasn't an easy task. Just as Yang Ming was deep in thought, the sound of footsteps approaching from afar interrupted his train of thought. Before anyone arrives, the sound comes first. Ha ha ha, I've finally found you brats. If I can capture you and bring you back, the captain will reward me handsomely. Upon hearing this, Luffy and his two companions used their abdominal muscles to spring up from the sand. Yang Ming reacted a beat too slowly and looked in the direction from which the sound came. 3 disheveled pirates walked over with grins. Pirates spend most of their time at sea or working by the sea, exposed to the scorching sun year after year. Their skin becomes dark and rough, their messy hair is stained with oil and dust, and their clothes are dirty and smelly from a distance. These 3 pirates were robust and strong. Although they didn't have very thick muscles, their muscles were very firm. In addition to a roguish air, there was also a fierce aura between their brows, indicating that they had been through a lot of fighting. Yang Ming's eyes narrowed. He recognized the leader of the pirates as Borshimi, a member of the Bursum Pirates. The Bursum Pirates were just an unknown small pirate crew. Captain Bursum's bounty did not exceed 10 million berries, and most of his crew members were minor characters with bounties between 10,000 and 100,000 berries. That's true, but it also depends on who's facing these vicious pirates. For ordinary people, especially an ordinary child, these 3 pirates were a menace, enough to pin Yang Ming to the ground and rub him hundreds of times. As Borshimi drew ever closer, Ace and his 2 companions lined up in a triangular formation, their muscles tense, ready for battle. As for escaping, with their speed, it was simply wishful thinking to think they could escape 3 pirates who had spent years on the high seas. Not to mention, these 3 pirates also had flintlock pistols tucked into their waistbands, and turning their backs to the enemy's gun barrels was the most foolish thing to do. Ace, with his back to Yang Ming, said in a deep voice. Yang Ming, they're all looking for us. This has nothing to do with you. You'd better run. Run as far as you can. A flicker of struggle crossed Yang Ming's eyes. Honestly, he had only just acquired the 6 treasures Immortal Thief, and because his predecessor hadn't exercised or eaten enough for many years, his physical condition was inferior to that of an average child, let alone comparable to Ace and the other 2. If he stayed here, he would only become a burden and risk being killed by the enemy. If Yang Ming had chosen to play it safe at this point, hiding far away to develop his strength discreetly, he could have eventually become a renowned powerhouse through the system. But is this the result Yang Ming wanted? Yang Ming recalled his previous interactions with Ace and the other 2. If it weren't for their acceptance, he probably wouldn't have been able to live alone. In that dog-eat-dog world of uncertain destinations, you might even become the lowest of the food chains, starving to death on the road at any moment. Yang Ming's consistent philosophy is to treat others with the utmost respect, and in return, to treat them with even greater respect. Ace and the other 2 gave Yang Ming a chance to live. Now, he can't abandon his friends and escape alone. Besides, Yang Ming knew perfectly well that Ace and the other 2 were not ordinary children. Each of them had an extraordinary background and had undergone brutal training since childhood. There was no way that 3 mere extras-level pirates could kill them. These thoughts flashed through Yang Ming's mind, and he straightened his expression, firmly refusing Ace's kind offer. Ace, Sabo, Luffy, I will never abandon my friends and live on alone. After saying that, Yang Ming stood with the 3 of them. Ace's lips curled up slightly, and when he turned to look at Yang Ming, his eyes held a hint of approval. Clearly, Ace's words just now, besides genuinely wanting Yang Ming to leave, also served as a test for Yang Ming. If Yang Ming leaves, Ace can understand, but their relationship will remain just that of ordinary friends. But Yang Ming chose to step forward and fight alongside them, which shows he deserves to be a brother. Seeing that the 4 of them were still chatting as if no one else was around, Borshami's face turned ugly, feeling that he was being ignored. He immediately stopped, drew his flintlock pistol from his waist, released the safety, pointed the muzzle at Yang Ming, and revealed a ferocious smile. Start by killing the weakest ones. Die, you brat. Chapter 3 Death is like the wind, always with me. Question: what is it like to be shot in the head in front of someone? Yang Ming really didn't know. From the moment the pirate Borshami drew his gun and fired, Yang Ming's dynamic vision couldn't keep up with the speed of the bullet, making it impossible for him to detect the bullet's trajectory, let alone react in time to dodge. As the bullet drew ever closer to Yang Ming's forehead, Borshami's smile widened. He could already foresee the bullet piercing the brat's head the next moment. Don't even think about hurting him. Just then, a small, thin figure suddenly darted out from the side. Luffy took a deep breath, letting the air fill his rubbery body. His entire body expanded rapidly like an inflating balloon, and with his bulging, wide abdomen, he completely concealed Yang Ming's figure behind him. Boom! The bullet landed on Luffy's soft belly, only causing it to dent, but it couldn't penetrate it. Page 3. On the contrary, as the bullet's momentum diminished, Luffy's belly, with its strong elasticity, quickly forced the bullet out of his body and bounced it back at an even faster speed. Fuck! Borshimi was terrified and only had time to dodge to the side. Unfortunately, the ricocheting bullet was traveling at high speed, and he was only able to dodge to a vital spot, but was hit in the thigh by the bullet. Fortunately, it wasn't hit by a bullet, so the impact wasn't that great. Although the force of the bullet couldn't penetrate Borshimi's thigh, it still embedded itself deeply into his thigh muscles. A wave of pain surged through his leg, causing Borshimi to gasp. His expression hardened, and he barked at his two companions, saying, "What are you all standing there for? Shoot." The boss said that when dealing with these brats, we'll make sure they're either alive or dead. The two companions snapped out of their daze and quickly drew their guns from their waists. Taking advantage of the moment when Luffy was protecting Yang Ming, Ace and Sabo, with perfect teamwork, charged forward from the left and right. Ordinary pirates have terrible marksmanship. They can hit 4 out of 10 shots when facing stationary targets, but their accuracy drops by at least half when facing moving targets. Moreover, Ace and Sabo had undergone brutal training since childhood, which involved not running in a straight line, but running in an irregular S-shape to constantly dodge oncoming bullets. The flintlock pistols carried by ordinary pirates are outdated models. After firing a bullet, there is a 3-second interval before firing again. This is to allow the heated barrel to cool down, otherwise the flintlock pistol could easily explode. 3 seconds is neither a long nor a short time. It's enough for Ace and Sabo to get close enough to the two ordinary pirates. Ace, who had fought with thugs and petty criminals for years, knew that he was at a disadvantage in terms of strength compared to ordinary pirates. Therefore, he did not intend to confront his enemies head-on. Instead, he used a burst of speed to slide over. The soft sand became the perfect spot for a sliding tackle, allowing Ace to kick an ordinary pirate in the shin, causing the pirate to lose his balance and fall to the side. Before the other party could react, a little boy in a blue aristocratic suit rushed over from the side. Sabo pulled 2 iron pipes from his waist and joined them together to form a long steel rod. He swung the rod around in a circle, then suddenly leaped up and struck the back of an ordinary pirate's head with it. The back of the head is a vulnerable part of the human body and is closely connected to the nerves of the brain. The moment he was hit on the head, the ordinary pirate's eyes rolled back and he fainted instantly. This is the body's stress response, designed to protect the brain from damage caused by short-term stimulation. With Sabo's strength, he could only stun the enemy for a short time, and the enemy would soon wake up again. Hake, hake. Sableye stood firm, his chest heaving violently as he exhaled deeply. Don't be fooled by how easy his movement seemed just now. After all, he was facing ordinary pirates who could shoot at any moment. One wrong move and he would be shot by the enemy. He was constantly dancing on the edge of a knife, which put a lot of psychological pressure on him. Sabo sighed, put one hand on his hip, and grinned at Borshimi and another ordinary pirate, saying something rather irritating in a provocative tone. You guys are so bad. If you're so tough, why don't you shoot me? Come on, he he he. As he spoke, Sabo stuck his tongue out at the pirates, doing everything he could to insult them. Borshimi and his companions felt their dignity as adults being repeatedly trampled on by a little kid. They were instantly enraged, their blood boiling, and without thinking, they immediately opened fire on Sabo. Bang, bang. The moment the two men raised their guns, Sabo reacted in advance, performing a tactical roll to the side, letting the pirates behind him become his human punching bag. With Sabo no longer in his way, the 2 bullets predictably struck the poor pirate. Seriously, that was a huge blow to my teammate. Stabbed in the back by his comrade, the unfortunate fellow let out a pig-like scream as he awoke from his dazed state, only to find himself inexplicably shot twice in the back. Who shot me? Borshimi and his companions guiltily averted their gazes, not daring to utter a sound. I don't know whether to say that these pirates' firearms are outdated or that the people in the One Piece world are incredibly fit. The ordinary pirate who had been shot staggered to his feet on the sand and seemed capable of fighting. Seeing the amazing teamwork between Ace and Sabo, Yang Ming was secretly amazed. It must be said that those who are destined to become influential figures in the future will show signs of it from a young age. The two acted decisively and cooperated extremely well. Their movements were skillful and fluid, and it was clear that they had done this more than once and had developed their own style. It's just a pity that children's strength is ultimately too small. If an adult had struck a regular pirate on the back of the head with a stick, the pirate would have been stunned for much longer than just a short time. Having learned their lesson, Borshimi and his companions hastily tore a strip of cloth from their clothes, haphazardly bandaged the wound, and then tried to tighten their encirclement, trapping Ace and Sabo in a small area and reducing their room to maneuver. If they succeed, Ace and Sabo will be in danger. Seeing the critical situation, Yang Ming immediately whispered something to Luffy, and the two grabbed a handful of sand from the ground and rushed to their friend's aid. This run alone is enough to show the difference in their physical abilities. Luffy didn't exert much effort, yet he quickly left Yang Ming far behind, and soon attracted the attention of the three pirates. Yang Ming, on the other hand, was slow and looked like a weakling, so he didn't attract much attention from the three pirates. When Yang Ming finally got close to the battlefield, the two sides were locked in a fierce battle. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy were all experienced fighters and took full advantage of their small stature, circling around the three pirates. Because they were very close to each other, and having learned their lesson from shooting their teammates earlier, Borshami and the other two knew they weren't sharpshooters, so they all stopped firing to avoid causing further accidental injuries to their teammates. After abandoning their shooting, the three pirates immediately revealed their ferocious side, launching a barrage of attacks whenever they had the chance. Just now, Ace was caught off guard and Borshami grabbed him by the back of the neck, giving him a series of powerful knee kicks that made his stomach churn and almost caused him to vomit up all the fish and meat he had eaten for lunch. Fortunately, Luffy arrived in time and, following Yang Ming's advice, threw out a handful of sand. Ba ba ba. Borshami suffered temporary blindness after getting sand in his eyes. Luffy suddenly jumped up and bit Borshami's wrist hard, causing Borshami to release Ace in pain and allowing Ace to escape. Just as Borshami finally managed to rub the sand out of his eyes, Yang Ming arrived by sheer coincidence and gave him another handful of fresh, hot sand, causing him to briefly go blind once again. During the brief moment when his vision was restored, Borshami saw Yang Ming's blurry figure, and his chest was instantly filled with endless rage. If I can't handle Ace and the other two, I can certainly handle you. You brat, once I catch you, I'll make sure you're torn to pieces. With a roar, Borshami lunged toward the location Yang Ming was in, attempting to use his height and weight to tackle Yang Ming to the ground. Fortunately, Yang Ming has a strong learning ability. After observing the cooperation between Ace and Sabo, he understood something. The moment Borshami raised his arms, he sensed something was wrong and rolled on the ground in a rather awkward way to avoid the enemy's attack. Yang Ming stood up again and looked in the direction of Borshami. Perhaps because the opponent's movements were too large, the flintlock pistol clipped to his tactical belt flew off and landed not far from Yang Ming. A glint flashed in Yang Ming's eyes, and he immediately mustered his strength and rushed forward, picking up the old-style flintlock pistol from the ground. Just then, Borshami got up from the ground, wiped the sand from his eyes to restore his vision, and saw that the brat he had previously disregarded was now giving him a half-smile. None of this matters. The important thing is that this brat is standing right in front of him, raising his flintlock pistol with both hands and aiming it at his lower body at close range. Yang Ming knew very well that if he fell into the hands of these vicious pirates, the least he would suffer would be being sold to human traffickers. So without hesitation, he immediately shot at the man's penis. Chickens flew and eggs were smashed, blood and flesh flew everywhere. Yang Ming blew a breath, dispersing the smoke from the gun barrel, and said coldly, "Death is like the wind, always by my side." Chapter 4 Flash and Garp. When is a woman experiencing the most pain? Caesarean section. When is a man experiencing the most pain? Castrated. Borshami was honored to become the first pirate in the One Piece world to be castrated. He felt blood gushing from his wound, and waves of intense pain surged into his brain. His face was contorted in pain, he covered his wound with both hands, and knelt on the ground. A large amount of cold sweat broke out on his forehead and slid down his temples, quickly blurring his vision. He could only make out the outline of a flintlock rifle right in front of him, its dark muzzle pointed at his forehead. No, do not want. Borshami's weak pleas for mercy did not quell the murderous intent in the eyes of the short boy in front of him. Boom! As the boy pulled the trigger, a bright yellow bullet shot out, piercing straight through the pirate's head. The corpse collapsed to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Yang Ming's hands, gripping the butt of the gun, trembled slightly, partly due to the strong recoil of the flintlock rifle and partly due to the aftereffects of his first killing. I killed someone. The air was thick with the lingering smell of gunpowder, mixed with the fresh stench of blood, which made Yang Ming's stomach churn. But Yang Ming knew that the world of One Piece was an extremely cruel world, where the weak had no control over their own destiny. If they wanted to become stronger, they would have to embark on this path sooner or later, and their hands would be stained with blood. With immense willpower, Yang Ming forcibly suppressed his body's instinctive discomfort and gasped for breath. During the break, Yang Ming glanced at it out of the corner of his eye. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy are working together seamlessly, having already outmaneuvered the other two ordinary pirates. It's estimated that they will be able to defeat the enemy soon. During this time, Yang Ming checked the system notification he had just received. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from League of Legends. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? Yes. Page 4. In Yang Ming's line of sight, a lottery wheel that was invisible to others gradually appeared, divided into 4 sections: normal skills, hero skills, equipment and items, and hero skins. Common skills: barrier, cleanse, insight, ignite, weakness, blink, ghost step, heal, clarity, guardian, crossbow, retribution, mark, teleport. Hero abilities: shattering flame, lava shield, alpha strike, meditation, Ouija style, Void Blade, Energy Pulse, Void Sphere. Equipment and items, Hextech Belt, Righteous Glory, Twin Shadows, Trinity Force, Boots of Speed. Hero Skins, Future Warrior, Steel Wings, Lubu, Fengxian, Champion's Blade. The prizes on the lucky draw wheel were dazzling and overwhelming. There are even so-called hero skins. Yang Ming wasn't sure if he would become a League of Legends hero if he obtained a hero skin. Of course, it's too early to talk about these things now. Let's focus on the prizes and awards. When the lottery pointer stopped on the ordinary skills section, Yang Ming's eyes lit up. Flash allows you to instantly teleport a short distance to a designated location, with a maximum distance of 100 meters. The skill has a 5-minute cooldown. Flash is a highly strategic skill that combines escaping, dodging, and chasing. If used well, it can make you incredibly skilled. After resting, Yang Ming checked the ammunition in his flintlock pistol. There was exactly 1 bullet left. He looked up at the remaining 2 ordinary pirates, his gaze settling on the pirate who had been badly beaten by his comrade. Flash. The next instant, Yang Ming's figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he landed behind the pirate like a ghost, gripping the flintlock pistol with both hands, and without hesitation aimed at the back of the man's head and pulled the trigger. Boom! The pirate was dealing with Ace when someone suddenly appeared behind him. By the time he heard a gunshot from behind and tried to dodge, it was too late. The pirate was shot and died. Ace looked at the boy blowing smoke into the gun barrel, a look of surprise on his face. Ace, with his keen eyes and ears, had been keeping a close eye on the battle and was well aware that Yang Ming had instantly appeared behind the enemy, an ability that was simply unbelievable. Could it be that Yang Ming is a devil fruit user? Ace didn't press the issue, not only because it wasn't the right time, but also because it was Yang Ming's secret, and if Yang Ming didn't want to tell him, it would only cause unpleasantness between them. Only one ordinary pirate remained on the field, who was no match for the 4 of them. With a blood-curdling scream, the pirate's life came to an end. Good job. Ace gave the 3 of them a thumbs up, then frowned slightly and said, "These 3 are all members of the Bursum Pirates. If they don't return for a long time, it will definitely attract Bursum's attention. We must leave this area as soon as possible, otherwise if we are ambushed by the Bursum Pirates on the way, we won't be able to escape." Ace's suggestion was sound, and none of Yang Ming and the other 2 objected. With nowhere else to go, Yang Ming naturally clung to powerful figures. Before leaving, Yang Ming searched the 3 corpses, seizing 2 flintlock pistols and 20,000 berries, before returning to Dodden's house with Ace and the others. The island where the Kingdom of Goa is located is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, called Mount Golpo, which blocks the cold and humid air currents from the north, making the climate here pleasant and habitable. Dodden's house is located in the dense forest of Mount Gorbo, in the southeast corner of the Kingdom of Goa, which, according to the map, is very close to the Uncertainty Terminal Station, probably no more than 5 kilometers away. The mountainous terrain is steep and difficult to traverse, with dense shrubs and grasses. As the sun sets, the last rays of sunlight filter through the gaps in the leaves, casting dappled patterns of light. The sounds of insects chirping and birds singing rose and fell in the woods, with the cicadas chirping incessantly. Following a narrow path, Yang Ming pushed aside the bushes blocking his view and saw a wooden house with 2 courtyards in front and behind. A woman who looked fierce was chopping firewood with an axe in the front yard. When she heard the noise coming from the woods, the woman suddenly turned her head to look. The woman looked precocious at 30, she should have been in the prime of her life, but she had the face of a 50-year-old woman. Her orange curly hair was tied back, making her look somewhat unkempt. Even a white shirt couldn't hide her muscular, bear-like figure. She wore dark green plaid trousers with brown boots, gold earrings, and a red beaded necklace. This didn't reveal any femininity at all, on the contrary, paired with that fierce face, it was somewhat frightening. The moment Dodden saw Ace and his group, she threw down her axe. Though overjoyed, she maintained a stern expression, hands on her hips, and angrily rebuked them. "Ace, Sabo, Luffy, why are you 3 so late? Don't you know it's dangerous to be out at night?" Having been subjected to Dodden's loving fists for years, Ace and his 2 companions were immediately terrified and bowed repeatedly. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." X3. Seeing that the 3 of them were remorseful and their attitude was good, Dodden's expression softened considerably. He crossed his arms and said gently, "Come on in, we have guests tonight, and I've prepared a sumptuous feast for you." Dodden paused slightly, seemingly only then noticing the unexpected guest in the group, and asked, "Who is this child?" Ace stepped forward and recounted Yang Ming's background in detail. At the same time, Ace also recounted his experiences before returning, detailing how Yang Ming fought alongside them and was a brother worth befriending. Upon hearing that Yang Ming was an orphan with no parents and had been scavenging for a living at an uncertain destination for many years, Dodden was overcome with maternal love and pulled Yang Ming into her arms, exclaiming, "Yang Ming, from today onwards, you can stay at Dodden's house without worry." Yang Ming was so tightly embraced that he could barely breathe. In particular, Dodden's chest was not soft at all. On the contrary, due to long-term and unremitting training, his chest was as hard as a steel plate, making him feel as if he was being pressed against a steel plate and rubbed repeatedly. Fortunately, this painful torment did not last long. As soon as Dodden released his arms, Yang Ming took a deep breath. He never imagined that being alive could be so wonderful, or that the air could be so fresh. Women are just too terrifying. Dodden pushed open the door of the wooden house, and the scene inside came into view. The wooden house has 2 floors. The first floor hall is not decorated in a fancy way, but it is very carefully arranged. The walls are painted with bright colors, and the kerosene lamps emit a warm yellow light, making the place very cozy. Inside the house, small groups of bandits were carrying barrels full of rum or placing cooked roast meat on the dining table. At the head of the table, which was covered with a white tablecloth, sat a burly figure wearing a dog head hat, a naval uniform, and a white cloak with the words "Justice" written on it. When Yang Ming's gaze fell on this person, his pupils immediately contracted. The next instant, the man sitting in the main seat left his seat and appeared in front of them at an extremely fast speed, as if he had teleported. He raised his fist, which was the size of a sandbag, and punched Ace and the other 2 without saying a word. Boom, boom, boom. The fist landed on the heads of the 3 people. Even though Luffy had eaten a devil fruit, he still had a big bump on his head, and the pain almost brought tears to his eyes. Garp was getting into the swing of things, and seeing Yang Ming standing right next to him, he prepared to deliver a loving punch. Yang Ming had no desire to experience Garp's iron fist. The feeling was definitely unpleasant, and with his frail physique, who knew what might happen? Flash! Yang Ming spotted an empty seat next to the dining table and immediately disappeared from Garp's sight. What? Garp let out a surprised exclamation. When he turned around, he saw Yang Ming sitting in his seat, smiling politely at him. This kid is quite interesting. Chapter 5. I feel my youth is boiling over. A month later. Cuckoo. A rooster's crow broke the silence of the night. As dawn broke, glistening dewdrops still clung to the leaves in the forest. Footsteps approached from afar, and 4 children were running for their lives. Behind them was a ferocious lone wolf with sharp teeth and eerie green eyes, relentlessly closing in. Yang Ming was sweating profusely, utterly speechless. Since Garp took leave from Navy headquarters to return to the East Blue a month ago, he has been treating the 4 of them with the utmost hospitality. This training, known as the Death Race, is a program designed to train Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. Yang Ming has officially become a guest of Dodden's family. Moreover, because he used Flash in front of Garp, he left a very deep impression on Garp. This was originally a training program for Luffy and his 2 companions, but after Yang Ming rested for a month, he was brought along today as well. Of course, Yang Ming's own willingness also played a part in this. Yang Ming knew very well that in this world, the Navy had a systematic training method, and Garp, as a naval hero, naturally had his own unique training methods. But isn't this method a bit too unique? Is it all about the thrill? Yang Ming didn't need to turn around to see. He could feel the wolf's rapid breathing behind him and its eyes that seemed to be devouring him. During this race against death, Garp forbade the 4 of them to use force to resist, leaving them no choice but to be chased by the wolves. If they stopped, they would suffer terrible news. Facing the threat of death can bring out the maximum potential within the human body. Yang Ming could feel his adrenaline surging, and his blood and chi were about to boil. Over the past month, if it weren't for the abundant nutritional meals provided by Dodden's family, which, under the operation of the 6 treasures immortal thieves, maximize the extraction of nutrients from the food to nourish Yang Ming's depleted body and even slowly improve his physical fitness, Yang Ming would probably have collapsed on the ground from exhaustion after running only a short distance. The large intestine, small intestine, stomach, triple burner, gallbladder, and bladder continuously emitted accumulated chi, replenishing Yang Ming's physical strength and enabling him to persevere in this race against death. Garp hid in the forest, holding a bag in one hand and eating a donut in the other. When Garp saw Yang Ming lagging behind the team, despite having no prior training and being undergoing such intense training for the first time, he couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. This kid, you can tell at a glance he's a good candidate to be in the Navy. Page 5. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy have gone astray. They always want to go to sea and become pirates. This time, we can't let Yang Ming be influenced by these 3 brats. He should come back with me and become a glorious marine. Wolves are not suited for long-distance raids. Once they exceed 5 kilometers, their stamina begins to give out, and once they exceed 10 kilometers, they are unwilling to continue tracking their enemies. With 4 prey right in front of it, yet unable to catch them no matter what it did, the wolf ran for 10 kilometers before giving up and turning away. After the wolf had gone far away and they were sure it wouldn't come back, Yang Ming and his companions decided to stop. It is not advisable to sit down and rest after a long run. So Yang Ming leaned against a tree trunk and gasped for breath. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Sweat had soaked Yang Ming's clothes from head to toe, making him look as if he had just been pulled out of the sea. Yang Ming had never trained so intensely before. He felt a spasm in his leg muscles and had to endure the fatigue by stretching in place to relieve the discomfort. After a while, Garp appeared out of nowhere, threw the bag in his hand on the ground, and grinned. You brats, hurry up and eat something. After you finish eating, even more brutal training awaits you. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy were already used to Garp's sudden appearance, and they were all physical prodigies who could run 10 kilometers without getting out of breath, as if they had just finished warming up. Yang Ming dragged his tired body closer. The bag was filled with high-energy, high-nutrient foods such as cream bread, cheesecake, and boxed milk, which can replenish the energy consumed by the body. If you have a quick hand, you will have it, but if you have a slow hand, you will not have it. Seeing Ace and the other two wolfing down their food like starving ghosts, Yang Ming was not to be outdone and quickly grabbed a cheesecake and swallowed it in one gulp. Meanwhile, thanks to the Six Treasures Immortal Thief technique, which is constantly in operation, the cheesecake was digested at an astonishing speed as soon as it entered my stomach, and transformed into qi that flowed through my limbs and meridians. These energies, like a skilled massage therapist, kneaded Yang Ming's spasming leg muscles, gradually calming the soreness in his legs. After finishing 5 butter bread rolls the size of rugby balls and 10 cheesecakes the size of an adult's palm, Yang Ming drank 800 milliliters of pure milk in one go before he finally felt his strength return and that there was still some qi left in his body. It's not advisable to engage in strenuous training right after a meal. Garp then led the four back to the backyard of Dodden's house and began to explain combat techniques to them. The goal of combat is to subdue the enemy with minimal losses and in the shortest possible time. We need to have a clear understanding of ourselves and our enemies. The most vulnerable parts of the human body are as follows. There are several aspects to the technique of generating power in a punch. Not long after Garp spoke, Ace, Sabo, and Luffy started yawning repeatedly, almost falling asleep on the spot. Only Yang Ming took out paper and pen from the room, feeling as if he had returned to his previous life to attend class, and carefully wrote down everything that Kapu had said. Seeing that Ace, Sabo, and Luffy were not paying attention, Garp's forehead veins bulged. Fortunately, Yang Ming was the only one there, diligently taking notes on his thoughts and feelings. Garp finally felt a bit of the joy of being a mentor, and didn't fly into a rage on the spot. The teacher loves to teach, and the students are eager to learn. Yang Ming absorbed Garp's combat skills from his many years of military service, just like a dried-up sponge. Although it's all just theoretical knowledge at the moment, it has opened a door for Yang Ming, letting him know that fighting is also an art, not just a reckless act of throwing punches. Okay, Luffy's method of killing his master with random punches doesn't count. After explaining for an hour, Garp estimated in his mind that the four of them had probably finished resting, so he clapped his hands and said, "Today's lesson is now over. Next up is the practical session." After saying that, Garp disappeared into the forest. Not long after, accompanied by several mournful roars from the forest, Garp was seen dragging a black bear out of the woods. The black bear had a large bump on its head and looked aggrieved. It clearly didn't understand how it could have provoked Garp, this fierce god, when it was sleeping peacefully in its den. Garp tossed the black bear in front of Yang Ming and his companions, saying, "You will take turns coming up and fighting this black bear one-on-one. Remember, you can't use any firearms, you can only rely on your own strength and fighting skills." At this point, Garp specifically looked at Yang Ming. Yang Ming gave an embarrassed smile and had no choice but to throw the 2 flintlock pistols he had seized from the pirates at his waist onto the ground. Animals in the world of One Piece are very intelligent and perceptive. The black bear seemed to understand Garp's words, and suddenly felt a surge of anger. "Damn it, they beat me up first thing in the morning and dragged me out of my den just to be my sparring partner for these 4 human brats." The black bear got up from the ground and suddenly stood upright, its height exceeding 3 meters, resembling a standing black iron tower, putting considerable pressure on Yang Ming and his companions. Since Yang Ming was a new member, he was specially assigned to the last position by Cap, so that Yang Ming would have more time to observe how the other 3 fought the black bear. Yang Ming was happy to do so, taking the opportunity to watch and learn from the master. Under Garp's arrangement, Ace, Sabo, and Luffy appeared in turn. Ace and Sabo both knew how to make full use of their advantages, not to compete with the black bear in strength, but to constantly dodge and evade, taking the opportunity to strike the black bear's knee joints. Even though the black bear had thick hide and tough flesh, it was still beaten by Ace and Sabo in turn, howling in pain. As for Luffy, his attacks rely entirely on shouting, and his moves are all about brute force. There's absolutely no strategy involved. The fight between Luffy and the black bear was utterly pointless, infuriating Garp to the point of turning red in the face as he roared and yelled from the sidelines. If Luffy hadn't eaten a devil fruit that made his body rubber and reduced the pain from attacks, anyone else fighting in this way would probably have died countless times already. After Luffy finished his battle, it was finally Yang Ming's turn to enter the fray. Garp was utterly speechless at Luffy's antics. He channeled his grief and anger into his appetite, chewing on a donut as he asked, his words slightly slurred, "Yang Ming, are you mentally prepared?" Yang Ming nodded emphatically, a resolute glint in his eyes, and said, "I feel my youth is boiling over." Garp grinned, thinking Yang Ming's answer was excellent and very much in line with his temperament. At the same time, a system notification sounded in Yang Ming's mind. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Naruto. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to activate the prize wheel? Yang Ming faced the black bear in the center of the backyard. After being ganged up on by the 3 little brats, the bear's anger had reached its peak. Its eyes were bloodshot, and it exuded a violent aura, as if it wanted to tear the human brat in front of it to pieces. Feeling the overwhelming malice, Yang Ming tensed up, assuming a fighting stance. At the same time, Yang Ming thought to himself, hopefully, I'll be able to draw a suitable prize later. Lottery. Chapter 6 Garp's Appreciation. Roar. The black bear roared and slapped Yang Ming with its paw. The claws tore through the gale, but failed to strike anyone, as Yang Ming, who was prepared, anticipated and dodged the attack. Boom. The bear paw slammed heavily onto the ground, leaving a paw print and kicking up a cloud of dust. Yang Ming started running clockwise around the black bear to dodge its attacks. Meanwhile, Yang Ming's attention was drawn to the lottery wheel, which was out of sight of others. Summoned characters: Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi. Ninjutsu/Taijutsu, Great Fireball Technique, Water Dragon Technique, Dark Travel Technique. Limitations of Blood Succession, Ice Escape, Magnetic Escape, Melt Escape, Explosion Escape. If I could draw these bloodline limits. Yang Ming shook his head, dismissing this delusional idea from his mind. Judging from the odds on the lottery wheel, the more precious and powerful the ninjutsu and bloodline limit, the smaller the space it occupies, basically with a probability of 0.01%. With such a low probability of winning, it's like winning the lottery jackpot. Only the luckiest person would have the confidence to draw such a prize. When the lottery pointer stopped, Yang Ming's eyes narrowed. Konoha Taijutsu that takes 3 years of study at the Ninja Academy to learn, and possesses a solid foundation in Taijutsu. In that instant, Yang Ming felt a surge of memories and experience flowing into his body, as if he had experienced 3 years of spring and autumn in a short period of time, undergoing countless arduous training sessions. Yang Ming snapped out of his daze, his eyes suddenly sharpening. When the black bear attacked him again, Yang Ming felt that the opponent's moves were too monotonous and direct, and he could easily judge the opponent's intentions. This time, Yang Ming did not choose to continue running in circles. Instead, he advanced instead of retreating. A real man should take the initiative. Seeing this, Garp's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself, whether they are confident or foolish, we will soon find out. Garp stopped eating the donut, bent his knees slightly, and tensed his calf muscles, fully prepared for the rescue. If Yang Ming is hit by the black bear at close range later, he can quickly provide support using the Naval 6-style shave technique. The black bear's swatter just missed Yang Ming, and the gust of wind that swept in was like a knife, stinging his face. Taking advantage of the moment when the black bear's old strength had been exhausted and its new strength had not yet been generated, Yang Ming seized the opportunity to approach and step forward. He stomped his left foot hard, his whole body leaping to the side, and his right leg fiercely kicked towards the black bear's nose. With a head of bronze, bones of iron, and a waist of tofu, just as wolves have a weakness in their waist, bears also have their own weakness, namely their noses. Konoha Tornado. With a smack, Yang Ming delivered a whip kick to the black bear's nose. Page 6. The nose is the softest part of a black bear's body. Even though Yang Ming's legs have less strength due to his young age, once injured, it can still cause considerable pain to the black bear. Seeing that his attack had a clear effect, Yang Ming immediately rolled away the moment his feet touched the ground, dodging the black bear's retaliatory stomp and causing the attack to miss again. The black bear has poor eyesight and cannot accurately locate Yang Ming. Yang Ming rolled between the black bear's legs to its back and delivered a groin kick without hesitation. Oh! A heart-wrenching scream rang out, causing all who heard it to weep and all who saw it to grieve. The surrounding leaves rustled, and a few withered yellow leaves fell. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy felt a chill run down their lower bodies and looked at Yang Ming with strange expressions. When fighting pirates before, Yang Ming seemed to have castrated one of them with a single shot, right? Could it be that Yang Ming has some unique quirk? The three of them suddenly shuddered. When Yang Ming's leg struck the black bear, Garp relaxed completely. Seeing Yang Ming use every means at his disposal, and despite the vast difference in strength between the two sides, he was able to make the black bear howl in pain. Garp's eyes lit up. The layman looks at the excitement and the insider looks at the doorway. Garp could clearly see that when Yang Ming first started fighting the black bear, his skills were still very clumsy. But as time went on, his fighting skills became more and more proficient, and they became so seamless that it was impossible to tell that he was a beginner. He was like a recruit who had been trained for 2 or 3 years, with concise and powerful movements, without any hesitation. This shows what? This proves that Yang Ming is a genius. Clap clap clap. Garp clapped his hands, then shoved the black bear aside and said, "That concludes today's practical lesson." Black bear was so angry his nose almost twisted out of shape. He was just a hair's breadth away from hitting Yang Ming on the head, but this hateful man interrupted him halfway. His eyes immediately flashed with ferocity. Garp seemed to sense something and suddenly turned around to look. The moment their eyes met, even though Garp's expression was calm, the black bear felt as if he had seen the most terrifying monster he had ever seen. His fierce aura vanished instantly, and he let out a pitiful howl before dragging his tired and aching body back into the forest. The human world is terrifying, I'm never coming back. Only after the black bear had completely disappeared from sight did Garp turn to look at the 4 of them. I have to say, you are the worst class of students I have ever taught. Seeing Luffy's nonchalant attitude, even picking his nose, Garp was furious and gave him a good scolding. "Luffy, especially you brat, I've taught you so many times to fight with your brain, not to rush in recklessly. Look at Yang Ming, he's a rare genius. He's only had one lesson with me today, and he's already learning quite well. You should learn from Yang Ming, understand?" Upon hearing this, Ace, Sabo, and Luffy were all shaken. During training, they always saw Garp with a stern face, and rarely saw him praise someone like that. The three of them turned to look at Yang Ming in unison, and he said modestly, "Teacher Garp, you flatter me." Yang Ming knew his own limitations. He wasn't a genius at all, just someone who had a slight advantage. Is this reasonable? This makes perfect sense. To Yang Ming's amusement and exasperation, he seemed to have become someone else's child, used by Garp to teach Luffy and his two companions a lesson. Little did Yang Ming know that, in Garp's eyes, Yang Ming's answer was a sign of humility and politeness, which made him extremely satisfied. A broad, bear-like hand rested on Yang Ming's shoulder. Garp stared intently at Yang Ming and said, "Yang Ming, come back to the Navy headquarters with me and become a Marine from now on." Yang Ming's heart skipped a beat. He understood that Garp was eyeing him and didn't want to see a promising naval talent wasting his time, so he was deliberately extending an olive branch. Once Yang Ming agrees, he will be able to enter the Navy headquarters as a new recruit. Yang Ming knew the plot was unfolding, and many of his ideas required him to become a naval officer to implement them. As for becoming a pirate, not all pirates are named Luffy, and they have a good father and a good grandfather. Any pirate without any background who tries to make a name for himself will be brutally killed by the Navy before he even reaches the Grand Line. Yang Ming has a meme-generating lottery system, but he's struggling because he hasn't memorized many lines, so he naturally prioritizes playing it safe and developing his character in the early stages. Yang Ming stood firmly on his feet, head held high, and shouted, "Garp-sensei, I'm willing to become a righteous Marine." Seeing this, Garp nodded with a smile. "Very good." Thankfully, Yang Ming wasn't led astray by Ace and the others. Garp almost burst into tears, realizing how difficult things had been for him. After Yang Ming accepted Garp's offer, the relationship between the two became much closer. At the same time, Garp also increased the difficulty of Yang Ming's training. These training programs are extremely difficult, practically insane. Examples include tying Yang Ming to a hot air balloon and letting him fly high in the sky, kicking him off a cliff and letting him fall into the sea from a height of more than 10 meters, or driving several ferocious jackals and tigers out of the forest to chase Yang Ming. Regardless of the type of training program, they all extremely challenge the physiological limits of humans. Despite Garp's meticulous guidance, Yang Ming never complained and persevered through it all. Eat, train, sleep. Yang Ming felt like he had returned to his senior year of high school in his previous life, living a tense yet fulfilling life. You don't need to think too much, just keep completing one highly challenging training project after another, and you'll gain a pleasant sense of accomplishment. Young people possess unlimited potential. After completing the training program, Yang Ming greatly improved the efficiency of circulating the 6 treasures Immortal Thief through a large amount of food. The abundant chi nourished his depleted body, healing the hidden injuries remaining in his body and continuously strengthening his physique. In just 2 months, Yang Ming grew a head taller than before, and his body showed obvious muscle contours. His former thin and small appearance was no longer visible. Drink. On this day, Yang Ming was lifting a rock that was as thick as 2 people could hug. This stone weighs over 200 pounds. In Yang Ming's previous life, this would have been an impossible task for a child. Now, Yang Ming can only barely lift the stone. 23, 46, 99, 100. After lifting the stone 100 times, Yang Ming suddenly put it down. His arms convulsed slightly from exhaustion, and sweat poured down his body. Spurred on by Yang Ming, Ace, Sabo, and Luffy were forced to join in, training like madmen on the sidelines. Their frenzied energy was enough to make anyone tremble. There's nothing we can do. If they don't train well, Garp will use Yang Ming, this other people's kid, to teach them a lesson. I really can't stand it. Just as Yang Ming was leaning against the rock, quietly circulating the 6 treasures Immortal Thief chi to clear the meridians in his arms and relieve the soreness, he saw Kapu walking over. Garp cleared his throat, stopped the other 3, and said, "After this period of training, it's time to test your performance. I am now giving you a mission to wipe out the Bursum pirates within 7 days. Chapter 7. There are always creatures on Earth that dare to face the might of thunder. The Kingdom of Goa, the final destination of uncertainties. In this area filled with piles of waste, sparks suddenly ignited everywhere, and the small fires gradually grew into a prairie fire. A group of pirates set fires everywhere, and in the flickering flames, they looked like demons emerging from the flames. In the uncertain destination, a large number of scavengers live, and when faced with a fire, they can only helplessly flee in all directions. Boom! Bursum raised his hand and fired a shot, killing a scavenger who had fled to the vicinity. As the captain of the pirate crew, Bursum's flintlock pistol was noticeably more advanced than those of the other crew members. It was a gun purchased at a high price from the black market, supposedly the latest model smuggled from the Grand Line to the East Blue by black market merchants. Unlike the old-style flintlock pistols, which required a 3-second pause after each shot, it could fire bullets continuously. Bang bang bang. Bursum fired repeatedly, killing one scavenger after another, and killing 2 at a time. Along a narrow road, the pirate crew behind Bursum recklessly poured diesel fuel all around, gradually leading the fire here. For scavengers, their home is the uncertain final destination. Now, with their home being burned down by pirates, naturally a scavenger leader will step forward and raise a question. Bursum, do you know what you're doing? Bursum raised his head, and beneath the wide brim of his pirate hat, a somewhat sinister expression appeared on his face. Are you teaching me what to do? Bursum and his pirate crew unleashed a hail of bullets at the scavenger leader who was blocking their path. The scavengers were a bunch of poor wretches, with no guns or ammunition to their name. Under the brutal shooting of Bursum and his men, blood flowed like a river, leaving behind a field of corpses. A foot clad in a trendy deerskin boot from the kingdom of Goa stomped heavily on the head of the scavenger leader's corpse. Bursum spat disdainfully on the ground and sneered. You worthless scum. Once today is over, you scum who were born to scavenge for a living will vanish along with this uncertain final destination. And I will enter the town and become a high-ranking nobleman. The scavenger leader's eyes were wide open in anger. He clearly died with his eyes open in disbelief. After the group of pirates passed by, the fire behind them quickly spread along the oil stains on the ground. The raging fire engulfed everything, as if swallowing up all the ugliness and evil in the world. Page 7. A scorching heatwave filled the air, along with the nauseating stench of burning corpses and debris. The heads of the corpses on the ground fell towards the city of Goa Kingdom, as if silently accusing the murderers who had orchestrated all of this. Those who live in the city enjoy fresh air, clean water, neat clothes, abundant food, and beautiful art, but they never regard those outside the city as their compatriots. On the contrary, they regard them as filthy things that defile the city and must be eradicated. Most of them were not nobles of the kingdom of Goa. They might be tailors, pastry chefs, or coachmen in the city, but they all supported this argument with tacit approval. The kingdom of Goa is sick. From top to bottom, the disease is already terminal. On a mountain of garbage, 4 little boys stood side by side. Sabo's pupils reflected the firelight, which was not only the fire that had been lit at the uncertainty terminal, but also the dissatisfaction and anger he felt towards oppression and exploitation. Despite being a descendant of nobility, Sabo felt no pride in his lineage. Instead, he felt ashamed of having noble blood flowing through his veins. His voice was filled with a tragic tone, like a bard telling a story. Ace and Luffy clenched their fists so tightly that all 10 fingers dug into their flesh. Yang Ming listened silently to Sabo's explanation, his mind clear as a mirror. He knew very well that even without the Bursum pirates, there would be pirate crews like the Sapphire Pirates and the Black Cat Pirates who would commit the same heinous acts. Human nature is such that as long as the consequences of a disaster are borne by others, people can comfortably enjoy the benefits that follow. Rather than saying that the kingdom of Goa is sick, it would be more accurate to say that the entire world has become utterly corrupt. The monarchy is supreme, holding the lives of millions in its hands. The working class could only humbly eke out a living under the monarchy, toiling away for even the smallest necessities of life. The descendants of nobles remain nobles, the descendants of naval officers remain naval officers, and the children of farmers remain farmers. This is a cycle of fate. In this cycle, the world government and the nobles form a small group at the head, while the navy is the gear that keeps the cycle running. The majority of the population either accept their fate or choose to risk their lives to become pirates and break free from this cycle of destiny. Anyone who tries to become a pirate and disrupt the existing order and peace will be relentlessly crushed by the navy. The one who was able to stand out from this group of pirates and was not afraid of the navy's encirclement and suppression was the 4 emperors who now dominate the new world. Yang Ming placed his hand on the hilt of the knife he was wearing at his waist. The knife was borrowed from Dodon's family. As he slowly drew his sword from its sheath, revealing a 1.2-meter long blade with a remarkably sharp edge that gleamed with a cold light. Ace, Sabo, Luffy, let's go. Yang Ming's deep voice rang out, and he charged towards the Bursum pirates under the garbage heap. Sabo's words were like a stone falling into everyone's hearts, a stone called destiny and power. Beneath this stone lay the wailing of countless toiling masses, filled with resentment and bitterness. Yang Ming and his group were all young, and they all had a burning desire to overturn this oppressive rock and vent their anger to the fullest. The Bursum pirates spotted the 4 people not far away early on, but initially didn't pay much attention to them as they were just a group of children. Seeing Yang Ming and his 3 companions approaching menacingly, Bursum, thinking himself humorous, said with a mocking expression, "A bunch of brats who haven't even grown their first hairs yet, and they want to be heroes." The pirates around them were quick-witted and knew how to flatter, and immediately burst into laughter. The unrestrained and arrogant laughter is the condescending contempt and disdain of the strong towards the weak, and the trampling of the lives and dignity of the weak. The next moment, Bursum raised his flintlock pistol and was about to fire a bullet at Yang Ming. Flash! Yang Ming murmured to himself. The next instant, he vanished from Bursum's sight. Boom! The finger pulled the trigger, and the bullet landed on the open ground as expected. At the same moment, Yang Ming appeared beside Bursum, swinging his sharp blade with all his might and slashing down fiercely. Bursum was able to run rampant near the kingdom of Goa for many years, so he was certainly no ordinary person. When he witnessed Yang Ming suddenly disappear from the spot and then suddenly reappear in front of him, Bursum's mind hadn't even reacted yet, but his years of fighting with the enemy had already left a deep imprint on his body, and he reflexively took a step back. This step represents the distance between life and death. The blade flashed and disappeared in an instant, blood splattering everywhere. What? A blood-curdling scream rang out. A gruesome knife wound slid down half of his face, his left eye being directly blinded. Despite losing an eye, Bursum's timely retreat saved him from being beheaded. Crimson blood blurred Bursum's vision, and the pain of losing half his sight pierced his nerves. Enraged, he immediately roared an order. Fire! Shoot them! Shoot all these brats! Upon hearing this, the pirates beside Bursum immediately drew their guns and fired. Just then, Luffy arrived. The moment Yang Ming landed, he rolled behind Luffy. The two worked together very well, clearly not the first time. Clearly, Yang Ming has teamed up with Luffy to fight enemies quite often in the past few months. Of course, at that time, their enemies were mostly ferocious wild beasts in the mountains and forests. Luffy took a deep breath, filling his chest and abdomen with a large amount of air, causing his entire body to swell from the inside out, blocking all the oncoming bullets. Using his rubber body, Luffy's abdomen contracted and expanded, ricocheting a large number of bullets around him haphazardly. Amidst the whirlwind of bullets flying everywhere, even the agile pirates had no way to dodge. One by one, they were wounded by bullets, and two unlucky ones were even hit in the head by stray bullets and lay in a pool of blood. Bursum fared no better, having been hit in the knee by a stray bullet and forced to kneel on the ground. He covered his left eye, trying to stop the blood gushing from the wound, while his right eye was wide open, its pupil bloodshot, and he roared hysterically at Yang Ming and the other three. Do you even know who you're going against? I am here on the orders of a nobleman from the kingdom of Goa to burn down the Uncertainty Terminal. How dare you stop us? Are you trying to oppose me and the nobleman behind me? It was less a roar of Bursum than the dying struggle of a wounded beast. He underestimated his opponent, and he will have to pay the price for it. In the kingdom of Goa, for the working class, the nobility was like a mountain, suffocating them. Even on the roadside, the working class cannot look directly at the nobles, because that would tarnish the noble status. Bursum had thought he could intimidate the four children by relying on his noble connections. With his free hand, he quietly raised his flintlock pistol, ready to launch a sneak attack. Yang Ming observed Bursum's subtle actions but paid them no heed. Instead, he calmly watched this pitiful wretch willing to act as the executioner of the nobility, as if talking to himself, or perhaps speaking for the countless innocent souls who had perished tragically. There are always creatures on earth that dare to face the might of thunder. Chapter 8 Genshin Impact, Vision of God. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Genshin Impact. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to activate the prize wheel? The system's voice, seemingly from heaven, rang in Yang Ming's mind, and even the scorching heat in the air seemed to lessen considerably. Yang Ming raised his sword to parry, blocking Bursum's enraged slash. With the advantage of being an adult and the strength honed through years of life and death struggles, Bursum's slash was extremely powerful, forcing Yang Ming's arms to sink down. The force from the blade was transmitted through the blade to Yang Ming's hands. He felt a numbness in the tiger's mouth of his hands and almost lost his strength to release the handle of the knife. Fortunately, Ace and Sabo arrived in time and harassed Bursum, giving Yang Ming a chance to catch his breath. The Bursum pirates clashed with the four men. The enemy outnumbered them and each of them was armed, putting Yang Ming's side at a disadvantage. Taking advantage of the brief break, Yang Ming glanced at the lottery wheel in his line of sight. The prizes on the lottery wheel are divided into several categories: summoned characters, artifacts, items, talent skills, and skins. Summoned characters: Jean, Diluc, Klee, Venti, Mona. Relics: Flower of Life, Feather of Death, Sands of Time, Goblet of Emptiness, Crown of Reason. Items: Eye of God, Wind Catcher, Pocket Anchor. Innate skills: West Wind Swordsmanship, Wind Pressure Sword, Dandelion Wind, Traveling with the Wind. Skins: Sea Breeze Dream, Shining Concerto, Orchid in Gauze. The prizes on the lottery wheel were plentiful, but Yang Ming noticed that the probability of winning something good was only 1 in 10,000. It has to be said that this is a very challenging moment for those with bad luck. Yang Ming dodged to the side, avoiding the attack from the pirates blocking his way. At the same moment, the pointer of the lottery wheel stopped and landed on the item category. Eye of God. In the world called Tivat, when people gain the approval of the gods, they will obtain the Eye of God, an elemental magic organ used to guide elemental power. This Eye of God contains the power to guide the element of fire. Yang Ming glanced down and noticed a square pendant suddenly appearing on his waist. It was set with a faceted ruby in the center, and the gem was engraved with a flame emblem. In the continent of Tivat, there is a saying: when faced with circumstances beyond their control, people always lament their own powerlessness. At the steepest turning point in life, if the desires of mortals reach their peak, the gaze of the gods will be cast down, and the eye of God will appear. The scavengers at the uncertain final destination felt utterly powerless when faced with the Bursum pirates, who were tolerated by the nobles, setting fire to the place. Yang Ming couldn't imagine whether, if he hadn't met Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, even if he had lingered on at the uncertainty terminal, he would have ended up as one of the souls lost in the sea of fire. The anger in his heart towards the darkness and tyranny of this world seemed to have attracted the attention of a god from another world, who bestowed upon Yang Ming a divine eye capable of burning away all evil through a lottery wheel. Bang, bang, bang. Yang Ming's heart pounded violently. He could feel the anger deep within him resonating with the eye of God he wore at his waist. The flames that had been burning wildly all around him, under the guidance of the eye of God, clung to the blade in Yang Ming's hand like birds returning to their nests, forming a sword of flames. Page 8. Die. Amidst the astonished and fearful gazes of the pirates blocking his path, Yang Ming glanced forward lightly. Flames, carrying surging heat, swept past the swords and blades that the pirates were blocking their way, unleashing their fury upon them. In an instant, the pirates' simple clothes became the best flammable material. Licked by the flames, they instantly turned into a human torch. Even if he lay on the ground and rolled around, he could not extinguish the flames on his body. This is the flame that punishes evildoers. Yang Ming twirled his sword, appearing like a king wielding flames amidst the surrounding fireworks. The flames could not harm him in the slightest. Instead, they seemed to eagerly welcome the arrival of this new king. At this moment, everyone was stunned. As Ace watched the figure approaching, enveloped in flames, his heart seemed to be deeply moved, and a strange expression appeared on his face, as if he were looking forward to it. Sabo's mouth gaped open like a koi fish, unable to believe that the little boy in front of him was his familiar friend. We agreed to have fun together, but you've been secretly working hard behind my back. Luffy smacked his lips and muttered softly. You still say you're not a devil fruit user. Seeing Yang Ming approach step by step, flames swirling around him like the most loyal guard, the Bursum pirates were horrified. The image of their companion dying tragically in the flames was still vivid in their minds. They couldn't understand why this boy possessed such powerful abilities. The more vicious and wicked a person is, the more they are afraid of death and attached to the worldly pleasures. The Bursum pirates retreated into a small group, forming a defensive circle. You don't come any closer. Bursum's voice trembled slightly, and even the arm that raised the flintlock musket was shaking. Yang Ming abruptly raised his head, his pupils reflecting the raging fire around him, yet also seemingly revealing the fury within him. His tone was surprisingly calm. When you wantonly take the lives of others, have you ever thought that you yourself might also have your life taken by others? Ah! A soft, indescribable laugh rang out, and just as the flash cooldown ended, Yang Ming vanished from his spot. When he reappeared, he was already in the center of the Bursum pirates. Turn into ashes of flames. Yang Ming used his feet as a fulcrum and rotated clockwise once. The flaming sword drew in the raging flames all around, as if to vindicate the unjustly killed scavengers, engulfing all the pirates in a sea of fire. The screams, the cries of anguish, the sounds of people collapsing, all these sounds filled the air. A foot crushed the charred corpse, and a young boy emerged from the inferno carrying Bursum's head. The heatwave ruffled the boy's bangs, but his dark eyes shone like stars. Despite not appearing particularly tall, his figure seemed exceptionally imposing against the backdrop of the surrounding flames and burning corpses. This scene was deeply imprinted in the memories of Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, and it was difficult to erase even after many years. When Yang Ming and his group returned to Dodon's house, Kapu was still enjoying a rare moment of leisure, lying on a beach chair in beach clothes, holding a book with a cover featuring a hot woman, and occasionally letting out a cryptic laugh. We're back. The childish voice approached from afar, and Karp shuddered, immediately hiding the book in his hand behind his back. Karp took off the magic mirror and saw Yang Ming and the other three walking out of the forest covered in dust. What? With his sharp eyes, Karp quickly noticed that the severed head Yang Ming was carrying was none other than Bursum, the person he had assigned the mission to. Although Bursum's bounty on the Navy's list of East Blue pirates is only 2 or 3 million, he is a minor character that Garp could easily crush. However, in Karp's view, such a minor character was more than enough to serve as a whetstone for Yang Ming and his group of 4. Karp originally estimated that even if Yang Ming and his 3 companions finally defeated Bursum, it would still take them a considerable amount of time and at least a week to complete the mission. But to Karp's utter surprise, the entire process, from their descent down the mountain to hunt Bursum to their return to Dodon's family, took less than 12 hours. Could it be that this Bursum is just a fraud? However, when Garp learned about Yang Ming's exploits during the entire hunt from Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, he immediately overturned his previous assumptions. Garp looked at the boy standing there, seemingly deep in thought, and couldn't help but sigh. Yang Ming, your growth has exceeded my expectations. Garp still remembers that when he first met Yang Ming, the other party had just left the uncertainty terminal. Due to long-term malnutrition, he was as thin as a monkey, just skin and bones, and looked miserable. However, after several months of rest and relentless training, the opponent not only caught up with the training progress of Ace, Sabo, and Luffy in just a few months, but also surpassed them, and now gave him a big surprise. Seeing that Yang Ming seemed not to have heard him and was instead absorbed in his own world, Garp couldn't help but ask, "What are you thinking about?" Yang Ming gathered his scattered thoughts and said in a deep voice, "I've been thinking about this for a long time. How many scoundrels like Bursum are there in this world? If no one is willing to seek justice for those who have died unjustly, how many more human tragedies will occur?" Garp had already learned of Bursum's evil deeds from Ace and the other two, and also knew that Bursum was being instigated by the upper-class nobles of the Goa kingdom. However, sometimes, simply using force cannot solve the problem. If force could solve all the world's troubles, then the Navy, with its many top-tier fighters, and the world government, with its Uranus, wouldn't be so busy dealing with the constant pirates rising up everywhere. Garp didn't want this promising young man, who had the potential to become a pillar of the Navy, to follow the same path as his son, Dragon. So he avoided the topic and instead changed the subject. "Yang Ming, as long as you return to the Navy headquarters with me, you will be able to find out what justice is in your heart." Justice. Yang Ming's gaze passed over Garp's tall and imposing figure and landed on the navy cloak that had been washed and was hanging on the hanger, fluttering in the wind. The word justice written on it seemed somewhat glaring. Chapter 9. From the moment you enter the kitchen, you bear the responsibility of cooking delicious food. The Kingdom of Goa, a seaport. A naval warship with a dog's head carved on its prow is docked here. The Navy has a clear hierarchy, with officers of different ranks being equipped with sailing warships of different classes. The warship is 65 meters long, 14 meters wide, and has a draft of 7.8 meters. It is equipped with 100 main guns, can store 30 tons of gunpowder and 110 tons of shells, and can sail continuously for more than half a year. Its standard displacement is 3,450 tons and its maximum load capacity is 1920.1 tons. Currently, the main power of naval warships still relies on the power of 3 sails. The mainmast is 61.3 meters high, the foremast is 54.1 meters high, and the aft mast is 45.7 meters high. The ship can achieve a speed of 9 knots by relying solely on the power of the sails, and the maximum crew capacity is 730 people. The bottom of the warships, below sea level, is coated with a layer of sea stone to protect them from harassment and attacks by sea kings. Such a naval warship is a veritable mobile fortress at sea, and it is very difficult to destroy or sink it with ordinary shells. Yang Ming, dressed in a naval trainee uniform, bid farewell to Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. Despite having only spent 2 or 3 months together, Yang Ming won over the 3 men with his actions and became their good brother. Of course, this brotherhood is more than that of ordinary good friends, but it hasn't reached the level of sworn brothers. The relationship between Ace, Sabo, and Luffy can only be described in one sentence. I don't ask to be born on the same day, month, and year, but I ask to die on the same day, month, and year. Yang Ming stood at the bow of the boat and waved to the 3 people on the shore. "After I leave, there will be no one to make you compete in the same way, so don't miss me." Ace and Sabo's lips twitched slightly. At such a sad moment, Yang Ming deliberately made them recall heartbreaking memories. With Yang Ming joining them, the training volume of the 3 of them increased dramatically, and they also had to be given a lot of instructions by Capra every day. "Look at Yang Ming, he can learn it after I teach him once, but you guys can't learn it no matter how many times I teach you. Now, do it again for me." Yang Ming's progress today is due to his extra practice every night. You bunch of rascals should learn from him. Starting tonight, we'll all practice extra together. Work hard, keep going, strive. Are you even inferior to a newcomer like Yang Ming? Ace and Sabo could still hear Garp's angry roar, which made them feel terrible. Of the 4, Luffy was the youngest. Having inherited Garp's shamelessness from a young age, he didn't realize how tough the training had been. He kept waving his arms and shouting, "Yang Ming, when we meet again, I will definitely become the Pirate King." Yang Ming, Ace, and Sabo all covered their faces. This slogan was shouted in front of at least 500 naval officers and soldiers. Yang Ming believed that if Luffy weren't Garp's grandson, he would have been hung up and beaten by the Marines who rushed over long ago. "Luffy, I hope you've improved by the time we meet next time, or I'll catch you." Yang Ming's voice faded into the distance as the warship set sail, with only the damp sea breeze still blowing along the shore. After Yang Ming boarded the warship, he did not receive any preferential treatment because of his special relationship with Garp. On the contrary, it was precisely because of this special relationship that Garp directly assigned Yang Ming to the grassroots level, starting him as a trainee. Trainees live in single rooms, which can only accommodate a single bed with no extra space and no windows to see the outside. The living conditions are quite poor. The trainees did a wide variety of jobs, including sweeping, mopping, washing dishes, and doing laundry. These were the most basic tasks. Every morning, trainees also have to go to the deck with other officers and soldiers for daily training. In addition to work and training, the Navy also has very strict requirements for the lives of trainees, requiring them to fold their blankets neatly after getting up and to eat within a specified time. In addition, at night, Yang Ming would receive academic instruction from Garp's deputy, who would introduce him to the world's writing system, geography, maritime knowledge, and cultural environment. Yang Ming felt like he had returned to the period before the college entrance examination, when he had to be on edge every moment to complete a lot of work, training and study, just like a spinning top that could never stop. Most people really couldn't withstand such a high-pressure environment, they would probably collapse long ago. But Yang Ming had a fierce determination in his heart, and he persevered. Like a dried-up sponge, he absorbed all kinds of knowledge with all his might, constantly enriching himself. Initially, the naval officers and soldiers on the warship thought Yang Ming was someone with connections and treated him coldly. But after spending this time together, everyone gives Yang Ming a thumbs up whenever they talk about him. Those who have never sailed on the ocean will always have all sorts of fantasies about this unknown vast expanse, praising the sea with beautiful, poetic words, and describing it as a fairyland. Page 9. Only those who spend years at sea truly know how tedious and demanding it is to sail on a vast ocean with no land in sight. After more than a month at sea, the warship did not return to the Navy headquarters immediately, but instead wandered around in the East China Sea. Garp was obviously slacking off and did not want to return to headquarters to take up his post so soon. On the deck of a warship, a boy in training uniform mingled among a group of naval soldiers, doing his daily morning exercises. Drink, drink, drink. The boy stood with his legs apart and knees slightly bent, remaining motionless as the warship rose and fell, intently swinging his fists. The sun rises in the east, and the sunlight shines brightly. After a round of sun exposure, the boy's skin did not turn dark, instead, it showed a healthy olive color. With diligent daily training and the abundant qi nourishment from the 6 treasures immortal thief through dietary supplements, Yang Ming not only did not ruin his body, but instead appeared stronger than his peers, with increasingly defined muscle lines serving as the best proof. That day, after his morning exercise, Yang Ming did not carry a bucket to wipe the deck as usual, but was called over by Kapu. Cap looked at the boy in front of him with kind eyes, and was very satisfied with him. Karp originally planned to assign Yang Ming to a lower-level position to hone his skills and test his character. A soldier's duty is to obey. No matter how capable a soldier is, he must learn to obey. Those who do not understand this principle will find it difficult to rise to a high position in the Navy. Fortunately, Yang Ming did a great job, better than Karp expected. Since joining the grassroots level, Yang Ming has worked diligently and without complaint, doing his job perfectly. He has won the recognition of officers and soldiers on and off the warship, which is very commendable for someone his age. To Karp's surprise, Yang Ming did not object to his arrangement for his deputy to teach him. Every naval commander is the soul of a warship. If a naval commander does not understand the seas and the Grand Line, he will be unable to lead his soldiers across the seas if his navigator dies in battle. If naval commanders do not understand the cultural environment of different countries, they will easily find themselves in a passive position when going to sea to carry out missions and dealing with local naval bases and local nobles. They will be unable to obtain enough information from the local area, and if the two sides become enemies, they may even be secretly tripped up by local forces, making it difficult to carry out the mission smoothly. Such naval commanders are not qualified naval commanders. Garp admired Yang Ming and hoped that he could become a well-rounded naval commander, rather than a narrow-minded naval officer. There are far too many narrow-minded naval officers. One more Yang Ming won't make a difference. The Navy is actually lacking a leader-level admiral. The current fleet admiral of the Navy is not lacking in combat power and strategy, but he lacks the ambition to make progress. He is good at maintaining the status quo but not good at making progress. Garp had always hoped that he could cultivate someone who could succeed Sengoku as fleet admiral. Unfortunately, Dragon, the son on whom Garp had placed high hopes, was too radical and actually took up the banner of overthrowing the Celestial Dragon's rule. This time, Garp didn't want to fail again. Yang Ming, you've worked so hard for so long, take a good rest today. After today, the warships will no longer linger in the East China Sea, but will return to the Grand Line via the Calm Sea. Since he rarely had time to rest, Yang Ming naturally wouldn't refuse. Garp seemed to be trying to make amends to Yang Ming, as the warship suddenly turned and headed in a certain direction. In less than 3 hours, the outline of a building appeared on the horizon. It was a restaurant floating on the ocean, the famous Baladi floating restaurant in the East China Sea. The warship docked smoothly on one side of the restaurant, and Kapu and Yang Ming stepped onto the deck outside the restaurant one after the other. Just then, a blonde-haired boy was kicked out of the restaurant and rolled around at the restaurant entrance. The blonde-haired boy got up, calmly dusted off his clothes, and shouted into the restaurant as he did so. "You old fool, my cooking method is the right one. That's how you make dishes that satisfy your customers." As Yang Ming passed by the blonde-haired boy, he recognized him as Sanji and paused slightly. Yang Ming turned to look at the blonde-haired boy. The boy's curly hair was very distinctive, and there was still a hint of resentment on his face. He couldn't help but say, "From the moment you step into the kitchen, you bear the responsibility of cooking delicious food. I think this is the attitude a chef should have." Upon hearing this, Sanji was slightly taken aback. He originally thought that someone who uttered such philosophical words must be a seasoned chef. But when Sanji looked in the direction of the voice, he found that the other person was a boy not much older than himself, and he immediately got so angry that his nose twisted. "What right do you have to lecture me?" Chapter 10 The Test from the Warring States Marshal. What right do you have to lecture me? Sanji's temper is like a powder keg, ready to explode at any moment. Especially in the area of cooking, which she has always considered very important, she cannot tolerate others interfering. Yang Ming frowned slightly. He was just trying to give the other person some friendly advice, so how did he end up offending them? Normal people simply cannot understand these kinds of problem children. Fortunately, the system's notification in his mind somewhat alleviated Yang Ming's dissatisfaction. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Food Wars. Shokyuchi no Soma. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? Before Yang Ming could make a choice, a middle-aged man dressed in a white chef's uniform appeared at the door. The middle-aged man had a weathered face, and one could tell at a glance that he was a man who had experienced many hardships. He wore a tall chef's hat, his mustache was braided, and his right leg, now amputated and fitted with a wooden prosthesis, was rhythmically tapping the wooden floor as he shouted at Sanji. Sanji, I don't recall ever teaching you to treat guests like this. Aren't you going to apologize to the customer right now? Zeph's words seemed to have the opposite effect, provoking Sanji's rebellious mentality. Sanji turned his head away, pretending not to hear. Ugh. Zeph was both angry and anxious, and finally let out a sigh. This great pirate, who once roamed the Grand Line, recognized Garp as the famous marine hero the moment he saw him. The boy who was brought by Garp must have an extraordinary relationship with him. Zeph dared not offend him in the slightest, nor even show the slightest disrespect. Zeph, whose back was usually ramrod straight, bowed slightly, adopting the most sincere and humble posture, and said, I'm sorry, guests, I'm sorry to have startled you. He stepped aside and gestured for them to proceed. Garp raised his eyelids and quickly sized up the other person. Naval Headquarters maintains a record of wanted criminals from all over the country, and one of the essential courses for every naval admiral is to memorize each and every one of them. Although Garp's appearance differed slightly from that on the wanted poster, looking more downcast and dejected, Garp still recognized him as Zeph, the former captain of the chef pirates, known as Red Leg, with a bounty of 60 million berries. But soon, Garp lowered his eyelids, pretending not to recognize the other person. He had finally managed to ask for leave from the Warring States period to go back to his hometown in the East Sea, and he didn't want to work overtime during his vacation. Lying on a beach chair, reading fashion magazines, and enjoying quality time with your children and grandchildren, isn't that a wonderful life? Garp isn't like Yang Ming, a workaholic, so of course he'll slack off whenever he can, since he'll still get paid. As Yang Ming and Kapu stepped into the restaurant, Yang Ming felt his clothes being tugged forcefully. Yang Ming turned around and saw Sanji staring at him stubbornly. When it comes to chefs and culinary skills, Sanji becomes unusually stubborn. In the eyes of ordinary people, such people are either geniuses or madmen, a type of person not recognized by the world. Yang Ming glanced at the prize he had just drawn on the lottery wheel, and a slight smile appeared on his lips. Didn't you just ask me what right I had to lecture you? Yang Ming rolled up his sleeves and looked at Jeep. Boss, may I borrow your restaurant's kitchen? Commoner's cuisine, it comes from the lifelong learning of Soma Yukihira, the protagonist of Food Wars, and possesses superb culinary skills that can turn ordinary ingredients into something magical. The moment Yang Ming received the prize, all sorts of culinary knowledge flooded his mind, as if he had spent 18 springs and autumns, countless days and nights pondering culinary skills. Garp paused, a look of hesitation on his face. Yang Ming, don't be reckless. Teacher, don't underestimate the cooking skills I learned by secretly working in the warship's kitchen. Yang Ming waved his hand, looking confident, and entered the kitchen under Jeep's guidance. Zeph crossed his arms and looked at the boy, who was not much older than Sanji, with a cold expression, somewhat disapproving. Even with my personal guidance, Sanji's cooking is still appalling. What kind of dishes can this boy possibly make? In Zeph's view, this was mostly a battle of egos between teenagers. Zeph secretly planned that, in order to avoid Garp taking his anger out on him and Sanji, he should just have Sanji act out a bit more and admit defeat. It would be better than Garp and the Marines destroying the Baratai. The kitchen of the floating restaurant was very clean and tidy. Although small, it was fully equipped with all kinds of kitchen utensils. The moment Yang Ming picked up the kitchen knife, Zeph's expression changed instantly. This is. Under Jeep's astonished gaze, Yang Ming's knife skills were superb, just like a seasoned chef who had been immersed in the art of cooking for many years. His movements were as smooth as water, slicing the ham sausage and cutting the scallions into flower shapes. Yang Ming turned around, turned on the stove, heated the pot until it was red hot, poured in the oil, and then began to stir-fry the eggs, rice, ham, scallions, and other ingredients one by one. Her small frame seemed to house the spirit of a great chef. Her hand holding the wok handle was always steady, and she had a knack for tossing the wok. As the ingredients flew through the air, the egg liquid gradually coated each plump grain of rice, forming golden rice that was perfect in color, aroma and taste. Page 10. A seemingly ordinary bowl of fried rice is ready, and its rich aroma is irresistibly spreading. Smell good. Everyone present twitched their noses, instantly whetting their appetites. No matter how proud Sanji was, he had to admit, with a heavy heart, that the boy in front of him was far superior to him in cooking. "I'm gonna start now." Before Yang Ming could stop him, Garp unceremoniously scooped up a spoonful of fried rice and put it in his mouth. At this moment, Garp's astonishment was no less than that of Zeph and Sanji. "You're telling me this cooking technique was learned from a warship's kitchen? This is outrageous." Crack. With a crisp sound of clothes tearing, Garp felt his entire soul begin to ascend. The egg mixture evenly coats each plump grain of rice, allowing each grain to fully absorb the essence of the egg. With each bite, the aroma of ham and scallions continuously stimulates the taste buds. It was just an ordinary home-cooked dish, but Yang Ming managed to turn it into a 5-star dish. What delicious fried rice. Garp put down his spoon and belatedly felt a chill on his upper body. Yang Ming watched as Garp frantically picked up the shattered clothes scattered on the ground, feeling utterly speechless. In Food Wars, the food causes your clothes to burst after you eat it. I never thought this would be passed down here. Yang Ming secretly guessed that this might be due to the cooking skills he had in mind, which were called commoner's cuisine. After a brief hiccup, Yang Ming was finally able to calmly enjoy the food at the seaside restaurant. Black pepper pan-fried steak, charcoal grilled lamb, seafood risotto, cheesy baked lobster, and cream pudding. Each dish embodies the chef's focus and culinary skills, bringing out the unique flavors of the ingredients and creating an unforgettable taste. Zeph truly lived up to his reputation as a renowned chef on the Grand Line. The dishes he personally prepared were a real treat for Yang Ming. What surprised Yang Ming even more was that these carefully cooked dishes, after being absorbed by the 6 treasures immortal thief, generated even more chi than ordinary dishes. Does that mean the better you eat, the stronger you become? Yang Ming muttered to himself. Looks like I'll have to find a chef in the future. Of course, old men and brats are an exception. It's best to find a pleasing-looking cook. After a hearty meal, Yang Ming embarked on his voyage once again. This time, the warships did not linger in the East China Sea and sped back to the Great Sea route. After Garp took Yang Ming away from the East Blue, the pirates who had been suffocating under the pressure of the naval hero immediately rejoiced. Zinking, that great plague, was finally gone, and they all came out of their hiding places. 2 months have passed in the blink of an eye. Yang Ming stood on the bow of the dog-headed boat, gazing at a huge building in the distance. The island is surrounded by tall white walls, with thousands of naval soldiers and hundreds of cannons stationed on the walls. Inside the 4 walls is a huge cylindrical fortress, wider at the bottom and narrower at the top. At the very top is a Japanese-style building, which is the highest command post of the naval headquarters, also known as the office of the Sengoku Fleet Admiral. At the top of the flagpole, a naval flag fluttered in the wind, depicting a seagull carrying a scale in its beak, with the word Navy below. At the dock, a group of naval officers and soldiers stood side by side. As the warship approached the dock, a group of naval officers and soldiers stood in formation and saluted. Yang Ming followed Garp into the marine headquarters. Along the way, people came and went, all hurrying about and busy with their own tasks. Garp walked straight toward Fleet Admiral Sengoku's office, much to the surprise of the surrounding naval officers and soldiers, who secretly observed the young man beside the naval hero, wondering what his identity was. Garp flung open the office door and sat down casually opposite Fleet Admiral Sengoku. "Warring States period, I want to ask you for a favor." The Warring States Marshal was dressed in marshal's uniform, with a series of medals on his left breast, highlighting his past achievements. Only the seagull on his hat spoiled his dignified image. Garp. Fleet Admiral Sengoku took off his round mirror and wiped it, saying with a hint of exasperation, "How many times have I told you to knock before entering the office?" Garp crossed his legs and even had time to pick his nose. The Warring States Marshal knew his old friend's temperament and didn't pay much attention. His gaze fell on Yang Ming, and the resourceful Marshal quickly understood what Garp wanted, saying, "You want this child to go to the Naval Academy. However, most students who enter the Naval Academy are already teenagers, and he is far too young. However, since you asked me to do this, I'll give this kid a chance. Tomorrow is the first day of the Naval Academy. If he can defeat any one of the cadets, I will make an exception and allow him to enter the Naval Academy." Chapter 11. The weak have no rights and no choice. Spring of the year 1511 in the Haiyuan calendar. This year is destined to be recorded in the history of the Navy's development. On the huge drill ground specially designated by the Navy headquarters, hundreds of naval cadets were running around the drill ground. A middle-aged, burly man with purple hair led the way, occasionally glancing back at the group of students and roaring loudly, "Did you guys skip breakfast? You're running so weakly, why aren't you catching up?" After saying that, the purple-haired middle-aged man suddenly accelerated. The middle-aged, muscular man wore a navy cloak over his shoulders and was shirtless, revealing his muscular physique. Having fought in hundreds of battles, large and small, his body bore many scars from healed wounds, which added to his imposing appearance. Admiral Zephyr, the Black Arm. 23 years ago, after his family was killed in a pirate attack, Zephyr retired to a less active role and became the head instructor of the Naval Academy, responsible for training the new generation of naval personnel. After running 42 kilometers, Zephyr remained calm and composed, while the naval cadets behind him were exhausted. Apart from a few naval cadets who were able to maintain even breathing without much effort, most of them were panting heavily with their hands on their knees. Running at a pace of 4 minutes per kilometer is a double test of physical fitness and endurance for any naval cadet. The trainees felt their heart rate soar, their hearts pounding wildly, and beads of sweat the size of soybeans poured down their faces. Zifa glanced around, lingering for a few seconds on those outstanding students. Smoker, Tina, Drake, Dottie Masterson, Jonathan. It seems that these are the promising talents among this year's freshmen, the others are still lacking. Just as Zephyr was about to start the next phase of his teaching, he caught a glimpse of Fleet Admiral Sengoku arriving with Garp. Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr were all students in the same year at the Naval Academy and comrades in arms who fought side by side on the battlefield. Zephyr quickly put down what he was doing and walked forward to meet them. "What wind blew you two VIPs here today?" Garp pretended not to hear Zeph's barbed teasing. These old friends were used to roasting each other and didn't take it to heart. Garp pushed Yang Ming forward and said, "Zephyr, today I want to recommend my disciple for admission to the Naval Academy." Upon hearing this, Zifa frowned. "Isn't this against the rules? The Naval Academy has a limited number of students it can recruit each year. This year's quota has already been used up. Moreover, this child is too young. Even if he gets into the Naval Academy, he probably won't be able to endure the hardships of training." Zifa shook his head repeatedly, his attitude clear. "Rules are dead, people are alive." At this moment, the Warring States Marshal spoke. "Zifa, sometimes you're too inflexible and don't know how to be flexible. I understand your difficulties, so I have decided to let Yang Ming challenge a cadet. If he can defeat his opponent, I will exercise my authority as Marshal to allow him to enter the Naval Academy without any special privileges." Zifa's brows furrowed into a deep frown. If it were just Garp alone, Zephyr could refuse. If Garp disagrees, he's willing to fight Garp. But with the addition of Fleet Admiral Sengoku's words, Zephyr also understood Garp's determination. Zephyr glanced at Yang Ming meaningfully. Seeing his black hair and black eyes, and his sharply defined facial features, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed, as if he were seeing Garp in his youth. Could that old bastard Garp be some kind of illegitimate child born from somewhere? Zifa secretly wondered what was going on, and he became increasingly convinced that this was the truth. "There's nothing we can do about it. Dragon and Garp are just not alike at all." Zephyr took a deep breath, raised a finger, and said in a deep voice, "I agree to this in principle, but I have one condition. I must designate the student that Yang Ming will challenge." Marshal Sengoku raised an eyebrow. He had worked with Zephyr for many years and knew that Zephyr was being stubborn and would probably choose a strong student to defeat Yang Ming, thus making Garp back down. In this way, Zifa was able to uphold his principles while saving face for both of them, leaving only Yang Ming to suffer. Fleet Admiral Sengoku glanced at Garp subconsciously, and seeing that Garp hadn't refused but instead looked confident, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Could it be that this child has something special about him?" Marshal Sengoku knew that Garp never did anything he wasn't sure of. Now, even the Warring States Marshal couldn't help but feel a bit more excited about this battle. Zifa led Yang Ming to the front of this year's students, looked around, and loudly proclaimed, "You little rascals, you all heard it just now. This kid next to me is going to challenge one of you. He's just a child, at least 7 years younger than you. If he wins, you will become a disgrace to all naval cadets. I ask you, do you want to become this disgrace?" Zifa's words immediately stirred up a huge wave of discussion. Page 11. The freshmen, full of youthful vigor, were still provoked into blushing red even though they knew it was Zifa's provocation, and immediately roared. In no mood. Hundreds of freshmen spoke in unison, their voices deafening and their presence overwhelming. Zifa originally thought that he could use this to scare Yang Ming and make him back down. But when he glanced at Yang Ming out of the corner of his eye, he didn't see any panic on Yang Ming's face. Instead, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and his eyes flashed with a fierce fighting spirit, clearly ready to make a move. This kid, how come his personality is just like Garp's? Is he really not Garp's illegitimate son? Zifa muttered to himself, but his gaze swept over the group of freshmen. Those who failed to complete the 42-kilometer run were immediately filtered out. Smoker ate the smoke fruit, gaining the ability to transform into an element, making him the strongest among the students, and thus not even considered by Zephyr. Zephyr could imagine that if he chose Smoker as Yang Ming's opponent, Garp would dare to come and demolish his naval academy tomorrow. Tina is a girl, so it's not suitable. Dottie Masterson has a carefree attitude, so I'm afraid he'll slack off. Jonathan was still spacing out at this moment. What was he thinking about? Finally, Zephyr fixed his gaze on Drake. This kid, with his arrogant attitude, you can tell at a glance he's the kind of troublemaker. Yang Ming won, so he helped Zifa teach Drake, that troublemaker, a lesson. Drake won. His strength ranks among the top of the trainees, but he's not too strong, which is perfect for him to refuse Garp's request. No matter what, Zephyr wins. What a win. Drake, step forward. At Zeph's command, Drake stepped out of the line with an excited expression. Drake had orange hair, blue eyes, a hooked nose, thin lips, and an X-shaped scar on his chin. He was tall and slender, toying with a small knife in his hand. His brows furrowed with arrogance as he stared excitedly at the boy opposite him, a slightly cruel smile playing on his lips. Kid, I don't want to know what kind of background you have, because I hate guys like you with connections the most. So, I'm giving you a piece of advice, it's not too late to surrender now, otherwise when I beat you to the ground, you'll have nowhere to cry. Yang Ming's expression was cold and stern. Without saying a word, he simply raised his middle finger at Drake. 1,000 words cannot compare to the destructive power of a single middle finger. Drake's face darkened, and he suddenly lunged forward, the small knife in his hand aimed straight at the face he loathed. Yang Ming's 5 slender fingers were already on the hilt of the sword at his waist, and he suddenly drew the sword from its sheath. Clang! The blades clashed, sparks flying. Yang Ming's knife had a cold, sharp edge. It wasn't one of Dodon's family's knives. Last time, when Yang Ming attached flames to the back of the sword couldn't withstand the baptism of battle and cracked after the fight. Now, this sword is a standard naval weapon, forged in steel through repeated tempering, with solid hardness, and can withstand flames attached to it. Is this all the strength you've got? Yang Ming suddenly exerted force in his arm, transmitting the power through the blade to Drake's hand, causing his hand to go numb and lose his grip on the hilt. The knife slipped from his hand, spun in midair, and landed on the ground a short distance away with a clink. What a strength! Drake was secretly surprised. Although he had been somewhat careless just now, he never expected that the boy in front of him possessed such strange strength, which surpassed that of many ordinary adult men. The 6 treasures immortal thief technique allows one to extract a large amount of chi as long as one consumes enough nutritious food, which can be used to improve physical fitness. The world of One Piece is completely different from Yang Ming's previous life. The food here contains much more nutrients. Especially during the warship's passage through the Calm Belt, Garp hunted down several sea kings for Yang Ming to eat. The nutrients contained in the flesh and blood of the sea kings were beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Yang Ming frantically improved his physical fitness through food supplements, which led to his current performance. After Yang Ming knocked the hilt of his sword away with a single blow, Drake felt the strange looks from his companions. Those looks were like sharp knives piercing his heart, making him both ashamed and angry. Drake suddenly drew a naval standard issue longsword from his waist and coldly shouted, "You brat, a weakling like you should act like a weakling. Why don't you just go home obediently?" This time, Drake abandoned his contempt and fiercely slashed at Yang Ming with both hands, as if he wanted to cut Yang Ming in two. Yang Ming knew that although his strength was greater than that of many ordinary adults, he was still far behind an outstanding student like Drake. He immediately chose to avoid his opponent's sharp edge and kept dodging around him. Yang Ming looked up, meeting Drake's fierce eyes directly, and said calmly, "Drake, you're wrong. The weak have no rights and no choice. Therefore, we must become strong and use the power of the strong to protect the weak." Chapter 12 Breath of Flame. The weak have no rights and no choice. Therefore, we must become strong and use the power of the strong to protect the weak. A slightly immature voice echoed across the playground. Smoker and the other freshmen were still young and didn't take those words to heart, focusing intently on the agile figure. Despite the huge age difference and the disadvantage in height and strength, this figure always managed to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses, making Drake run around in circles and refusing to fight him head-on, which made Drake roar in anger. Only the 3 martial Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr sharpened their gazes upon hearing Yang Ming's words. Garp gazed at Yang Ming's face, which bore a striking resemblance to his own, and thought to himself, "Yang Ming, is this the justice you've been searching for?" Zifa crossed his arms over his chest, and the coldness between his brows dissipated slightly. Zephyr has always been straightforward and honest, just as Fleet Admiral Sengoku said, he doesn't know how to be flexible. Even though he agreed to the challenge out of respect for Fleet Admiral Sengoku and Garp, he still harbors some prejudice against Yang Ming. However, after hearing Yang Ming's words, Zifa's perception of Yang Ming, if not completely changed, at least became much more agreeable. Sensing the change in the gazes of several important figures behind him, Yang Ming's lips curled up slightly. Yang Ming knew very well that the world was sick. The celestial dragons, high above the rest, enjoy wealth and luxury, and care nothing for the lives of ordinary people. Ambitious individuals within the Navy are eager to make a change, but are powerless to stop the world government's domination and can only become accomplices in its evil deeds. Ordinary people either accept their fate and continue to be cruelly exploited, or they have no choice but to risk going to sea as pirates. It's already difficult enough to survive in such a morbid world. To truly make a difference, one must know how to leverage existing resources. Yang Ming chose to join the Navy not only for the sake of safe development, but also to recruit soldiers under the banner of justice. Disguise is a sophisticated art of acting. Yang Ming doesn't care whether he can fool everyone. After all, he now has the face of a child, which naturally makes him deceptive enough. Not to mention, ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Demon Slayer. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? This was Yang Ming's main objective. Yang Ming did a somersault, narrowly avoiding Drake's knife. Dread slashed his sword into the ground, his face ashen, and said coldly, "You brat, is all you can do to run away? You wanted to defeat me, didn't you? Come on. Yang Ming sprang to his feet, dusted himself off, and nonchalantly continued his game of hide-and-seek with Drake. After this brief encounter, Yang Ming finally understood how valuable the training that Garp had given him had been. Garp did not teach specific sword techniques or fist techniques. The entire text only focused on the 4 words, play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. These 4 simple words are actually difficult for most people to achieve. Drake is the son of a former naval officer. His moves are quite methodical, but unfortunately, they are all fixed routines without his own unique insights, making it easy for others to see through his intentions. As Drake raised his arms, Yang Ming knew he was about to chop. As Drake raised his right arm, Yang Ming knew he was about to make a horizontal slash. The swordsmanship learned by junior naval officers doesn't involve any fancy moves. It's simply about integrating slashing and cutting techniques into their instincts. On the battlefield, white blades go in, and red blades come out. Those with greater strength are more likely to win. Although naval swordsmanship is simple, it is much more practical than those swordsmanship techniques that are all show and no substance. Yang Ming glanced at the lottery wheel when he had a moment to spare. The prizes were categorized into 3 types: summoning characters, blood demon techniques, and breathing techniques. Summoned characters, Kibutsuji Musen, Suzumeru, Hand Demon. Blood Demon Arts, Blood Bewitchment, Line Prison, Eye-Killing Corpse. This last part is a nonsensical string of characters and doesn't translate directly. Breathing techniques, Sun Breathing, Water Breathing, Flame Breathing. Yang Ming dodged Drake's furious fatal slash with a flash, instantly appearing behind Drake. At the same time, the lottery wheel pointer stopped at the breathing technique section. Breath of Flames, one of the 5 basic breathing styles originating from the breathing of the sun. Normally, it can be used to strengthen cardiopulmonary function through breathing techniques. In battle, it can allow the blood to absorb a large amount of oxygen in a short period of time, instantly greatly enhancing physical abilities. Whoosh! A wisp of white smoke, barely perceptible to the naked eye, emerged from Yang Ming's nostrils. Yang Ming gripped the knife hilt tightly with both hands, as if he had returned to that day at the uncertain terminal, surrounded by a raging sea of fire, his breath causing his blood to surge rapidly, and a powerful feeling was rising within him. At the same moment, to the astonishment of Marshal Sengoku and Zephyr and his entourage, a spark ignited on the tip of Yang Ming's blade. The crimson flame spread along the blade, transforming the entire naval standard longsword into a sword of flame. When Drake felt the heat wave coming from behind him, he immediately realized something was wrong. Page 12. Drake, as expected of one of the top-ranked students in this cohort, turned around and returned to defense in the shortest possible time. When, amidst the clanging of blades, Drake's astonished eyes reflected a figure wielding a flaming sword. What made Drake even more uneasy was that the power transmitted from the blade was no less than his own. How can this be? He's just a brat, how come he suddenly has such superhuman strength? Drake parried Yang Ming's fire sword, feeling the tingling sensation in his hands, and began to question his existence. Yang Ming landed lightly on his feet and moved closer again. The breathing technique created a wonderful synergy with the 6 treasures Immortal Thief, causing 8 parts of the body: heart, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, triple burner, stomach, gallbladder, and bladder to begin to tremble slightly. The vital energy was being consumed in large quantities, flowing through his blood and continuously strengthening Yang Ming's bones and meridians in a short period of time, which enabled him to achieve a significant improvement in strength and speed, making him comparable to the freshmen of the Naval Academy. While facing off against Drake, Yang Ming was also constantly processing the memories in his mind. The Breath of Flame is not just a breathing technique, but also contains a complete set of sword techniques. First form, Shiranui. Yang Ming stomped his foot, and a ball of flame burst forth beneath his feet, propelling him forward like an arrow. The flames on his longsword suddenly expanded, resembling the gaping maw of a ferocious beast. Drake's pupils contracted sharply, and he only had time to raise his longsword with both hands to block. The moment the longsword made contact with the flaming sword, the longsword, which had already developed fine cracks from the previous collision, was now severely damaged and cut in 2. The severed blade tip spun into the air, and under the scorching heat, a blade tip engulfed in flames was just an inch from Drake's neck. If Yang Ming had moved forward just a little more, he would have slit Drake's throat. Drake had thought that he might face the threat of death one day, but he never imagined that he would be threatened by a child. A series of suppressed gasps rang out from his companions around him. These sounds, which would normally have infuriated Drake, were not as intense as the fear of death at this moment. Feeling the sharp edge so close at hand, and the burning sensation on his skin, Drake swallowed hard. I give up. After saying those words, Drake deflated like a punctured balloon and collapsed to the ground. Yang Ming extinguished the flames on the blade and sheathed it, using this action to conceal his physical weakness. Flame breathing can be unleashed in a short time, but due to the excessive consumption of energy, there will be a brief period of weakness afterward. Yang Ming needs to carefully manage the scale of the battle. Clap, clap, clap. At first, only Marshal Zhang Gua and Zifa gave a sparse round of applause, but then the students suddenly realized what was going on, and as more people joined in, the applause erupted. No matter how unwilling the trainees were, they had to admit that most of them wouldn't have been able to do better than Drake if they were in his shoes. The ability to teleport is one thing, but it also has the ability to attach flames to the blade, and seems to have some method to temporarily increase power. Is this guy a monster? Tina opened her cherry-like mouth like a koi fish, and her cute little tongue could be vaguely seen. Dottie Masterson looked up at Yang Ming, deeply imprinting the figure in his mind and adding him to the list of people he should not easily provoke. Jonathan yawned and continued to drift off into his own thoughts. Smoker was itching to fight. If it weren't for the inopportune moment, he would have loved to step forward and ask for a lesson. Garp watched the reactions of the trainees with a sense of immense pleasure, much like he had just stolen a hidden treat from the Sengoku period's office. Even the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. Zifa patted Yang Ming on the shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Congratulations. From today onwards, you are a new naval cadet." After saying that, Zifa turned his gaze to the group of students. "You have really disappointed me. You can't even beat a child. From today onwards, all training will be doubled. As long as you don't kill anyone, train like you're going to die. At the same time, I announce that a live-fire test will be conducted in 2 months. You will be hunting pirates on the Grand Line. If you are afraid now, it's not too late to withdraw from the Naval Academy." Upon hearing Zifa's words, Yang Ming secretly sensed something was wrong. Sure enough, the students' faces were filled with frustration and rage, and they were furious with the culprit. Seeing this, Zephyr chuckled inwardly. With Yang Ming joining, this group of trainees will train even harder, thanks to the catfish effect. I won again. Chapter 13. You're awesome, be my son. Navy Headquarters. Under the scorching sun, hundreds of trainees are undergoing grueling training on the training field. Each trainee carried a 20-kilogram tortoise shell on their back, with their hands on the ground, and performed push-ups rhythmically to the sound of Chief Instructor Zifa's whistle. Sweat had already soaked the trainees' clothes, and beads of sweat the size of soybeans slid down their cheeks to their chins, dripping onto the ground and evaporating into water vapor in no time. Whenever a trainee felt like giving up, they would hear Chief Instructor Zifa's angry roar. "You bunch of useless trash, get moving. Are you even less capable than a child?" At this point, hundreds of trainees seem to be injected with adrenaline, drawing strength from who knows where, and are able to persevere. When the 200 push-ups were finally finished, most of the trainees were so exhausted that they collapsed on the ground, unable to straighten their backs. Even top students like Smoker, Tina, Dottie Masterson, Jonathan, and Drake felt physically exhausted and were panting heavily. Tina wiped the sweat from her chin, glancing at the upright figure standing in front of her, her beautiful eyes immediately sparkling. To be able to persevere through such grueling training, just what kind of monster is the opponent? Smoker felt the tortoise shell on his back was as heavy as a mountain every moment, and even the 2 ropes that hung the shell from his shoulders dug into his flesh, leaving 2 shallow bloodstains. However, when he discovered that Yang Ming had completed the training without a word, that damned competitive spirit surged into his heart, causing Smoker to clench his fists and grit his teeth, thinking to himself, "How could I be outdone by a little brat?" Despite being extremely annoyed by Yang Ming, the one who instigated them to increase the amount of training, the group of trainees, including Drake, had to admire him for completing a training volume that they themselves almost couldn't handle at the age of 6 or 7. All the trainees were burning with determination, absolutely unwilling to lose to Yang Ming in the training exercise. Otherwise, not only will Drake be branded as a disgrace in history, but his entire graduating class will become a laughingstock of the Navy. The thought of graduating and officially becoming a naval officer, only to hear my colleagues jokingly saying, "Look, these are the recruits who couldn't even compare to a little kid back then." This scene is too beautiful to bear. Whether it was for face or self-esteem, all the students gave it their all. Seeing this bustling training scene, head instructor Zifa, who was in charge of all of this, smiled with satisfaction. This is youth. 42 kilometers long distance run, 100 m shuttle run, frog jump, squat, push-up, sit-up, pull-up, wall climbing. The day's training program proceeded intensively. After each program ended, the trainees rested for less than 20 minutes before starting the next program. There was no lunch break, only an hour for a simple meal and rest, and the trainees satisfied their hunger with the lunchboxes they brought with them. During the training, Yang Ming used both the flame breathing and the 6 treasures immortal thief techniques simultaneously. His abdomen rose and fell rhythmically as he absorbed as much oxygen from the air as possible, converting it into the chi needed by the human body. This continuously replenished his depleted physical strength and nourished the hidden injuries left during the training. High-intensity training can cause muscle strains, damage capillaries, and lead to hidden injuries. These hidden injuries are not usually visible and have no impact, but over time they can develop into chronic conditions. Many retired veterans suffer from chronic illnesses, which stem from the excessive training they underwent during their military service in their youth, resulting in accumulated health problems. Yang Ming's internal energy was greatly depleted. When Chief Instructor Zifa announced the end of the day's training, everyone else cheered, "Finally, we're alive again." Only Yang Ming felt a strong hunger in his stomach. He couldn't care less about getting closer to the other trainees and quickly turned around and ran towards the canteen. Seeing Yang Ming run towards the cafeteria without saying a word, Chief Instructor Zifa thought to himself. Such a familiar example of incompetent behavior. And you still say you're not Garp's illegitimate son. Instructor Zephyr curled his lip. He never expected that Garp, that guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would also go astray and know how to keep a mistress on the side. He thought Garp was a gentleman. Nonsense. That old Leichair. Having confirmed Yang Ming's true identity, Chief Instructor Zifa, out of respect for his old friend, naturally wanted to show him some consideration. He waved to Tina, beckoning her over, and said, "Later, you will be responsible for showing Yang Ming around the dormitory environment and arranging his accommodation." Although Tina was so tired that she could barely move, she knew that a soldier's duty was to obey orders, so she had no choice but to bite the bullet and accept the task. After Chief Instructor Zephyr left, Drake crept up to him furtively. "Tina, I need to discuss something with you." Seeing Drake's ill-intentioned look, Tina raised her beautiful eyebrows. "What do you want to do?" Drake whispered a few words in Tina's ear, which made Tina's eyebrows furrow. "Isn't this not good?" Drake chuckled and said, "You don't understand, do you? This is how men get to know each other." Tina glanced at Drake thoughtfully, knowing better than to expose his little scheme. Tina was quite curious about Yang Ming. She wanted to see how he would deal with the difficulties posed by Drake and the others. Page 13. At this moment, Yang Ming naturally had no idea that Drake was full of bad intentions and was plotting to teach him a lesson. The Naval Academy has a dedicated canteen that is not open to the public and is only for the students. The canteen has 3 floors, each of which can accommodate hundreds of students for meals. Because the canteen employs chefs from all over the world, the selection of dishes is extremely rich. Local specialties from the East China Sea, West China Sea, South China Sea, and North China Sea, as well as famous local dishes from various countries along the Grand Line, can all be found here. Of course, the cadets selected for the Naval Academy are all carefully chosen talents. The Navy headquarters is very wealthy, and all the food in the canteen is free, so people can eat as much as they want. Free things are free, so why not take advantage of them? Yang Ming scooped out a bowl of white rice, and there was a pile of roasted meat and vegetable salad on the table. He then wolfed it down without any politeness. Whenever food enters the stomach, it is broken down in the shortest time. The nutrients in the food are extracted by the 6 treasures immortal thief. At the same time, under the effect of the flame breath, the transformed qi begins to nourish the 8 major parts of the body, namely the heart, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, triple burner, gallbladder, and bladder. The 8 parts work together to create a resonance that is imperceptible to ordinary people. Yang Ming could clearly feel that his physical strength after a long day was being replenished, and his body was like an old tree that had been rejuvenated, showing its vigorous vitality again. When Tina arrived at the cafeteria, she happened to see Yang Ming had already finished one meal and was coming back to get his second meal. Looking at the plates left on the table, so utterly desolate that not even a scrap of food remained, Tina felt as if she had witnessed a starving ghost reincarnated. Just seeing Yang Ming eat made Tina feel full. Despite saying that, Tina still went to get some food and came back, sitting opposite Yang Ming, and said, "Professor Zifa instructed me to arrange your accommodations." Yang Ming had just swallowed a piece of roasted meat without even chewing it, and in the midst of his busy schedule, he managed to squeeze in a reply. "Understood." Immediately, Yang Ming threw himself back into the great cause of being a rice cooker and having a rice-making spirit. No matter how beautiful a woman is it more important to have someone who can't afford to eat? In Yang Ming's eyes, the slender, well-developed young woman in front of him was not as important as the grilled meat in his hand. At least, good food can fill a person's stomach, but what can a beautiful woman do? He's just a child. Even after being ignored, Tina wasn't angry. Instead, she finished off the food on the table in a seemingly slow and deliberate but actually quick and efficient manner. Finally, she elegantly took out a handkerchief to wipe the grease from the corner of her mouth. After eating and drinking their fill, the two walked side by side. The Naval Academy built a special apartment building to serve as dormitory accommodation for cadets. The dormitory building faces away from the sea and towards a sea of flowers. As the sun sets, buildings cast long, slanted shadows on the ground. The flower bed is planted with unidentified plants that bloom with flowers of all colors: red, orange, green, blue, indigo, and violet, emitting an enchanting fragrance that attracts many bees and butterflies to collect their pollen. A pink butterfly fluttered its wings and gently landed on Yang Ming's shoulder. Yang Ming seemed oblivious, listening intently to Tina's introduction of the dormitory area. Because the number of women enlisting in the military each year is very small, female students account for less than 30% of the total number of students selected for naval academies. Therefore, the school does not have a separate dormitory building for female students, and men and women live together in the same dormitory building. Naval academies have strict regulations on male-female relationships. Dating is not allowed during school hours. If discovered, the student will be expelled and will not be allowed to join the military. The dormitory building is divided into 4-person, 6-person, and 8-person rooms. Ordinary students live in 6-person and 8-person rooms. Yang Ming, you have already proven with your actions that you have the potential to be a top student, so you will be assigned to a 4-person room. As Tina recounted her story, the two arrived at room 601. The moment Yang Ming opened the door, he saw 3 students, Drake, Dottie Mazda-sen, and Jonathan. Drake cracked his knuckles and said with ill intent, "Yang Ming, welcome to our newest member of Dormitory 601. Call me Dormitory Head, shall we?" Yang Ming watched his defeated opponent's clumsy acting with a blank expression and calmly said, "You're awesome. Come and be my son." Chapter 14, 6 Navy Styles. Drake couldn't swallow his anger whenever he thought about losing to Yang Ming in public, and he wanted to get revenge elsewhere. Young people often act impulsively without considering the consequences. Drake was undoubtedly that kind of person. He asked Tina to arrange for Yang Ming to stay in his dormitory, room 601, intending to give Yang Ming a hard time. After waiting and waiting, just when Drake thought Tina was playing a trick on him, he heard Tina and Yang Ming talking outside. Crack. With a turn of the doorknob, the door opened. The figure Drake had been longing for finally came into view. He cracked his knuckles and said with ill intent, "Yang Ming, welcome to Dormitory 601. Call me Dormitory Head, shall we?" To facilitate the management of boarding students, the Naval Academy has appointed a dormitory head for each dormitory. The head is responsible for the daily life of the students in the dormitory. The head has little power, but can still make things difficult for someone if they want to. Drake looked at Yang Ming without saying a word, then chuckled. "Kid, do you know that the Navy has a strict hierarchy and a clear distinction between superiors and inferiors? I'm the dormitory head, which makes me half a rank above you. Are you trying to be disrespectful by refusing to address me respectfully?" Yang Ming glanced up at Drake, speechless. Is this because he's young and they assume he doesn't know the rules of the Navy? The Navy has a strict hierarchy with clear distinctions between superiors and inferiors. This is certainly true. However, there is another rule in the Navy. Might makes right. Moreover, isn't it a tradition for the Navy to have subordinates overthrow their superiors? You're awesome. Come and be my son. Yang Ming's childish voice echoed in the dormitory, as if it had slapped Drake hard across the face, making his face turn red and then pale. Pfft. Tina covered her mouth and smiled. If it weren't for the fact that they were all in the same cohort and needed to give Drake some face, Tina would probably have burst out laughing already. Tina gazed at the little boy with her beautiful eyes, feeling that he was more interesting than any other boy she knew. Yang Ming paid no attention to the thoughts of the beautiful girl beside him. His attention was focused on the system notification sound in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from One Piece. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? A lottery wheel appeared in Yang Ming's vision, but the 4 people around him did not notice it. The lottery wheel is divided into 2 categories, devil fruits and techniques. Devil fruits, dark fruit, flame fruit. Techniques, Navy 6 styles, fishman karate, transvestite kung fu. Yang Ming pondered to himself that the reason he didn't receive any rewards like summoning characters was probably because he was in the One Piece world. Tina's smile was like rubbing salt into Drake's wounds, infuriating him. Dottie Masterson, Jonathan, let's go together and teach this kid a lesson. It's unclear what Drake and the other 2 promised each other, but the 3 of them attacked Yang Ming together in a tacit manner. Seeing this, Tina raised an eyebrow, sensing that the situation was beyond her expectations, and couldn't help but coldly rebuke. It's too much for 3 boys to team up against 1 child. Just as Tina was about to lend a helping hand, Yang Ming raised his hand to stop her. Let them come at us. The cramped space in the dormitory limited Yang Ming's room to maneuver. But at this moment, he showed no intention of dodging. Instead, he stood with his legs shoulder-width apart in a horse stance, seemingly ready to let Drake and the other 2 attack him. Tina was puzzled, but seeing Yang Ming's calm and composed demeanor, which didn't seem like he was faking it, she was immediately reassured. Pretending. Drake sneered inwardly and, in a fit of rage, threw a series of punches, relentlessly pounding Yang Ming's body. However, the moment the fist landed on Yang Ming, Drake's expression changed drastically. It didn't feel like being hit in flesh and blood, it felt more like punching a steel plate. Drake wasn't the only one who noticed this. Dottie Masterson and Jonathan quickly realized something was wrong. Bang bang bang, bang bang bang, bang bang bang. The 3 blows rained down on Yang Ming like a shower of raindrops on a banana leaf. Despite his small stature, Yang Ming remained motionless, as if his body had been tempered into steel. He even had time to yawn, watching the 3 of them struggle with disdain. He was panting heavily, but there was nothing he could do. This is all thanks to the system. Naval 6 styles, iron body. By infusing power into a well-trained body, it gains the hardness of iron, making it impenetrable even to ordinary bullets and knives. The only drawback is that one cannot move freely when using iron body. This is the prize that Yang Ming just drew. The system shamelessly split the 6 styles of the Navy apart, only granting him the ability to use iron body. Page 14. It has to be said that, to some extent, the system and the Penguin are comparable. After years of research into armament haki and observation haki, the Navy simplified them, resulting in the 6 styles of naval power that are now widely used by lower-ranking officers in the Navy. Despite its flaws, iron body, as a watered-down version of armament haki, is not a defense that 3 teenagers can break through at the moment. Yang Ming could feel that when he used the iron body technique, the muscles in his body became extremely firm in an instant. At the same time, under the resonance of flame breathing and 6 treasures immortal thief, his iron body also underwent a subtle change, becoming 3 points harder than the iron body technique used by ordinary naval personnel. I have to say, this was a pleasant surprise. Iron block making is a skill that comes from the inside out, and in the Navy, only officers of the field rank have the opportunity to come into contact with it. Generally speaking, to learn the skill of iron weights, one needs a solid physical foundation, otherwise, it is easy to fail. Watching Drake and the other 2 hammer away for ages without breaking through his defenses, even getting red-faced and swollen from exhaustion, Yang Ming stretched and said, "My sons, you're giving your father a good massage, give him a little more pressure." Drake and his 2 companions were so angry that they couldn't even speak. Look at Yang Ming's blissful expression. Aren't they just 3 dutiful sons giving their father a back massage? They knew perfectly well that Yang Ming had tricked them. Of all times, Tina had to bring up the very thing she didn't want to talk about. Is this what male friendship is like? I love it. The 3 men's faces darkened, and they immediately stopped and slunk away. If we don't run away now, do we think we're not embarrassed enough here? Tina raised her hand to tuck a strand of hair that had fallen beside her ear, her beautiful eyes fixed on Yang Ming. She felt that the boy in front of her was shrouded in a layer of mist, which aroused her desire to delve deeper and explore the mist. She leaned down, the tight silk clothing outlining the exaggerated curves of her body. Yang Ming, I want to sincerely apologize to you. I didn't know that Drake would actually do something so outrageous to you. This is all my dereliction of duty. A pleasant fragrance wafted towards Yang Ming, and then he felt a slight coolness on his forehead. Tina covered her lips, her ears burning red, and said shyly, "Consider this my sincere apology. You're not allowed to dislike it, after all, it was my first kiss." After saying that, Tina turned and left. Watching the receding figure, Yang Ming touched the lipstick mark left on his forehead, feeling a mix of amusement and exasperation. Are all girls in this world this precocious? People's values are influenced by their physical appearance, and Yang Ming was no exception. He found it hard to be angry with this enthusiastic and lively young woman. After the music ended and everyone left, Yang Ming was the only one left in the dormitory. Only then did he leisurely survey his future home. The 4-person dormitory, strictly speaking, should be a 2-bedroom, 1 living room dormitory. Each room has 2 beds with soft mattresses and matching bedding. The living room isn't very big, about 30 square meters, with a sofa and a coffee table. Various snacks are placed on the table. The living room connects to a balcony, where an iron rack is placed for drying clothes. Standing on the balcony, you can see a vast blue sea, with the sunset gradually fading on the horizon. Sometimes, Yang Ming would reminisce about the days in his previous life when he had air conditioning, computers, and cell phones. Now, after washing his clothes in the dormitory, he could only sit on his bed and meditate to pass the time. For the vast majority of trainees, after their grueling daily training, there are only a few ways to kill time: playing cards or gossiping. Gossip spreads quickly among students, and the conflict that occurred in dormitory building 601 was soon widely reported. The dormitory building houses not only this year's cadets, but also cadets from the previous 2 years. They are only allowed to graduate from the Naval Academy after achieving certain results. Graduating from the Naval Academy is not easy. The assessment content is different every year. It may involve hunting large sea kings on your own or chasing down famous pirates in the Grand Line. If you fail to complete the assessment, you can only continue to study at the academy. Within a single night, all the students in the dormitory building knew that a formidable new student had arrived in this year's class. The next day, as soon as Drake arrived on the training ground, all the trainees looked at him and smiled. Some people shouted, "Drake, how did you lose to Yang Ming again?" Drake sullenly pretended not to hear. Then someone deliberately shouted loudly, "Drake, what's it like being a child's son?" Drake's eyes widened, and he angrily rebuked. "How could you slander someone's innocence like this?" Drake's face turned red, his neck bulged, and several veins bulged on his forehead. He then went on to say some more repetitive things. "So what if we win or lose temporarily? Can we consider it a loss when it comes to the Navy?" At this moment, everyone burst into laughter. The air inside and outside the playground was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. Chapter 15 Awakening, Hunting Time. 2 months have passed in a flash. White clouds drift lazily by, and seabirds occasionally take flight. 5 warships cut through the white waves and sailed on the Great Sea Route. These 5 warships were smaller than normal warships, serving as training ships for Naval Academy cadets. They were 19.5 meters long, 7.95 meters wide, with a draft of 3.35 meters and a displacement of 180 tons, and were equipped with 10 cannons. In terms of combat power alone, these 5 training ships are probably not as strong as some large pirate crews. However, what is lost on one front is gained on another. The training ship is small and light, and its speed is much faster than that of ordinary warships. When Yang Ming stepped onto the deck, he could clearly sense the complex gazes of the other trainees. Humans are a peculiar group. When you are too outstanding and stand out from the crowd, you will be ostracized by your peers. But when you leave everyone far behind, you will not only not be envied, jealous, or hated, but you will be admired by others. During the 2 months of grueling training, a small number of trainees could not withstand the immense pressure and chose to drop out of the Naval Academy midway, while many more chose to grit their teeth and persevere. Among the trainees who remain, a small group will always stand out. Even among this small group of people, Yang Ming's brilliance was undeniable. In high-intensity physical training, swordsmanship training, boxing training, and shooting training, Yang Ming consistently achieved top results in every training program. It's hard to imagine that this child seems to possess boundless energy. After a day of grueling training, most trainees were so exhausted they could barely lift a finger, but Yang Ming was an exception. He continued training into the night. The trainees' initial hostility towards Yang Ming gradually changed. Now, many students regard Yang Ming as their role model and strive to emulate him. Ignoring the stares of others, Yang Ming went straight to Chief Instructor Zifa. In the hands of Chief Instructor Zifa, there was a bounty poster. The bounty poster features a young man with a pointed mouth and monkey-like cheeks, sporting a strange hairstyle resembling fox ears. His chin is held high, and he looks at others with a sidelong glance, revealing a hint of arrogance. Foxy the Silver Fox, with a bounty of 2,400 million berries. At the same time, this is also the target of practical courses. When Chief Instructor Zephyr saw Yang Ming arrive, perhaps because he was convinced that Yang Ming was Garp's illegitimate son, he felt a desire to test him and asked, "Yang Ming, do you know why I chose Foxy the Silver Fox as the hunting target for this practical training course?" Information was scarce within the Naval Academy, making this an unsolvable problem for ordinary cadets. Fortunately, the Naval Academy has a day off every Sunday, which allows Yang Ming to keep in touch with Cap regularly. As a high-ranking officer in the Navy, even the information that Garp reveals through his fingers is highly confidential intelligence that is rare to outsiders. Not to mention, Garp intended to groom Yang Ming into a future senior naval officer, and he had no intention of hiding it from him. On the contrary, he often dumped his unfinished official duties on Yang Ming for help, allowing Yang Ming to get a glimpse of the current situation from the vast sea of books. After thinking for a moment, Yang Ming recalled seeing a file that recorded several incidents of pirate crews disappearing en masse in the Grand Line recently, which seemed to highly overlap with the sea area that the training ship was heading to this time. If it weren't for Chief Instructor Zifa's question, Yang Ming wouldn't have connected the two events. Now, he suddenly senses a deeper meaning behind them. Recalling the original work, Foxy the Silver Fox enjoyed engaging in a kind of gambling game with other pirate crews, using this method to plunder their crew members and ships, thereby constantly strengthening his own forces. With this in mind, Yang Ming immediately understood. Could it be that Foxy the Silver Fox is plundering members of other pirate crews in these surrounding waters? Upon hearing this, Chief Instructor Zifa's eyes revealed a hint of appreciation. Chief Instructor Zifa rolled up the bounty poster in his hand, his eyes gazing intently at the vast, blue sea ahead, and said, "At your age, it is truly remarkable that you were able to learn this information by peeling back the layers of the case. However, you only know one side of the story, not the other." According to a secret investigation by the Navy Headquarters Special Forces, Foxy the Silver Fox has had close ties with Don Quixote da Flamingo in recent years. At the auction of Don Quixote family's shares in the Sabayati archipelago, a batch of pirate goods also appeared. Therefore, the Navy Headquarters now has reason to suspect that Don Quixote da Flamingo is expanding his business in the underworld again. This is not something the Navy Headquarters wants to see. We can no longer afford the cost of a strong person emerging in the new world, let alone the birth of an uncontrolled Shishibukai. Upon hearing this, Yang Ming suddenly understood. A year ago, Doflamingo seized Dressrosa through cunning and force. With control of an entire country, Doflamingo is the most powerful among the 7 warlords of the sea. If it is allowed to continue developing, it will become too big to handle and may even threaten the Navy. However, because Doflamingo is a celestial dragon and now a member of the 7 warlords of the sea recognized by the world government, the Navy cannot openly target him. Otherwise, it would give them leverage, break the rules of the game, and cause unnecessary chaos. That's why they took this action. Under the guise of practical training, they attacked Foxy the Silver Fox, thereby crippling Doflamingo's power and subtly warning the Don Quixote pirates to make Doflamingo more cautious. It must be said that this strategy was very ingenious. The problem is that Yang Ming is familiar with the development of the plot and knows very well that even when the plot officially begins, Foxy the Silver Fox is still active on the Grand Line until he encounters Luffy and then his life is in jeopardy. Moreover, Doflamingo's business in the underworld not only did not suffer any setbacks, but expanded in an exaggerated way. Doflamingo's business was found all over the world, the Grand Line, and even the New World, involving transactions such as arms, unknown drugs, devil fruits, and human trafficking. This means that the Navy's original plan was good, but the actual operation went wrong, ultimately leading to failure. My wife does it. There are female naval officers in the Navy headquarters. Page 15. When Yang Ming helped Carp with official business, he saw a list of people because Carp had the power to promote his subordinates. Fergo, who belongs to the Don Quixote family, joined the Navy headquarters 4 years ago and was promoted to Rear Admiral last year due to his accumulated merits. Yang Ming sighed, rubbing his forehead, and roughly understood the cause and effect. Surprisingly, Foxy the Silver Fox, who seemed like an insignificant minor character in the original work, actually plays such an important role. Yang Ming did not tell Cap and Chief Instructor Zephyr about Fergo's matter. Suspecting a naval rear admiral for no reason and without any evidence to prove that the other party was a female harem would lead to Fergo turning the tables and taking Yang Ming to a military court. Military tribunals are led by the world government, with CP9 responsible for arresting criminals, and they show no leniency to the Navy. Yang Ming didn't want to provoke the madmen of the CP organization, he just wanted to develop his strength discreetly. The 5 training ships sped along, and the pirates nearby, upon seeing the naval flag flying on the warships, dared not approach and scattered like birds and beasts. Yang Ming calmly gazed at the rippling blue waves, where the outline of a pirate ship gradually emerged on the horizon. When the pirate ship saw the 5 training ships, instead of fleeing in panic, it headed straight for them. A black banner with a white skull fluttered on the mainmast of the pirate ship. The skull had the personal features of Foxy the Silver Fox, fox ears, a red pointed nose, and squinty eyes. Seeing the pirate ship charging straight at them, seemingly unafraid of sinking, Chief Instructor Zephyr frowned slightly, calmly directing the 5 training ships to disperse and avoid the oncoming pirate ship. The Silver Fox pirate's ship was a size or 2 larger than the training ship. As it passed by the training ship under Yang Ming's feet, a pirate attached a hooked rope to the railing on the deck and swung like a Tarzan ape, somersaulting in midair before landing on the deck and rolling a few times to dissipate the force. He then drew a gun in one hand and a sword in the other and charged at the nearby trainees. Some pirates extended wooden ladders, one end of which concealed iron hooks. Once hooked onto a ship, they could temporarily create a floating bridge. On the narrow planks that could only fit 1 foot, a group of pirates, with white knives in their mouths, would fiercely pounce on the bridge. Pirates who can wreak havoc on the Grand Line are mostly bloodthirsty scoundrels who hang their heads on their waists, having long since thrown life and death to the back of their minds. They are beyond the comprehension of those flowers grown in greenhouses. Despite the fact that the individual naval cadets were far superior to these pirates, several naval cadets cried out in pain the moment they engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the enemy, and were successively injured, some even losing their hands or feet. Unlike naval cadets, pirates are poorly clothed and sleep poorly, wearing only faded sailor uniforms. Beneath their dark skin are strong, muscular bodies. Their fighting style is completely unpredictable, yet every move is aimed at the naval cadets' vital points. Eyes, throat, heart, genitals, rear end, whichever part of the human body is vulnerable, that's the Navy prioritizes attacking. The female trainees were especially embarrassed. Not only did they have to endure the lewd stares of a group of lustful single men, but they also had to put up with the verbal abuse from these uncultured pirates. At the same time, they had to avoid being groped by the enemy during battles. It was incredibly frustrating. Yang Ming was the youngest among all the trainees, and soon 3 pirates set their sights on him. Seeing the expressions in the eyes of these 3 pirates, Yang Ming knew exactly what they were up to. Yang Ming slowly drew his sword, his eyes suddenly sharpening. Awake, time to hunt. Chapter 16 Long Ming. Jia 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 jia. What did I just see? A little kid actually became a Navy officer. A pirate cackled, holding a dagger in his hand. He extended a long, thin tongue and lightly slid it across the blade, his slanted eyes revealing a hint of disdain. He and 2 other companions quietly surrounded Yang Ming, and, following the principle of picking on the weak, launched the first attack on Yang Ming. As the 3 pirates expected, the little boy in front of them was completely terrified and stood frozen in place. However, when the weapons of the 3 pirates landed on the boy, there was no sign of a head falling to the ground. Instead, when the 3 men's blades struck Yang Ming's neck and heart, they made a crisp clanging sound, as if striking a steel plate. She's awake. Yang Ming's eyes were obscured by his bangs. He gripped the hilt of his sword tightly with his 5 fingers, stomped his foot, and a ball of flame exploded beneath his feet. As if propelled by a thruster, his small figure shot out like an arrow. The standard longsword in his hand swung, creating a surge of heat. With a flash of light, crimson flames clung to the 3 pirates like a persistent infection. Yang Ming landed firmly on the ground behind the 3 pirates, and only then did he manage to utter the second half of his sentence. Hunting time. The 3 corpses fell to the ground with a thud. The blood that had just spilled from their slit throats quickly evaporated into wisps of bloody smoke as the flames burned, emitting a nauseating stench of blood. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Honor of Kings. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? The system notification was drowned out by the noise of the battlefield, but fortunately Yang Ming kept some of his attention focused. A lottery wheel slowly appeared in my field of vision, displaying 3 categories of prizes: hero skins, runes, and hero skills. Hero skins, Wooling Immortal Lord, Phoenix Seeking Phoenix, Flying Balance. Inscriptions, Hunting, Eagle Eye, Mutation. Hero skills, Dragon's Roar, Thunderous Dragon, Word of Power Barrier. The lottery wheel spun rhythmically, matching the sound of Yang Ming's feet hitting the deck. Swords clashed, and gunshots rang out incessantly. The trainees on the training ship, stepping out of their sheltered environment for the first time, were subjected to the brutal baptism of pirates on the Grand Line. Compared to the heartwarming stories we used to see in anime, real-world pirates are much more cunning and cruel. They have no bottom line. Their fighting style is often to risk their lives, targeting the enemy's vulnerable points with every move, wishing nothing more than to kill or maim them. Even the students inside the cannon seemed to be thrown off their rhythm, forgetting that they were supposed to fire cannonballs at the pirate ship next to them. Chief Instructor Zifa did not issue any commands or intervene. He simply acted as an observer, letting the situation unfold as it would. The Silver Fox Pirates are not considered a powerful pirate crew on the Grand Line. If they can't even defeat such an opponent, this year's cadets will only drag down their teammates if they manage to graduate and enter the Marine headquarters. Fortunately, these cadets were carefully selected by the Navy, and after the initial chaos, they quickly regained their footing under the guidance of the top students. Smoker, with his elemental powers, constantly moved across the battlefield. His billowing white smoke could be both soft and hard, sometimes transforming into nooses to bind enemies, and sometimes into smoke needles to knock down a group of pirates. Tina is skilled in hand-to-hand combat and moves nimbly among her enemies. Once she catches an opening, she will close in and suddenly knock you to the ground, leaving you with at least a broken bone. Dottie Masterson is a master marksman, wielding 2 guns as he roams the edge of the battlefield. His calm gaze always finds the enemy's weak points, and a single bullet pierces the enemy's heart with pinpoint accuracy. Jonathan's physical skills, swordsmanship, and marksmanship are all mediocre, but he possesses a remarkably intelligent mind and the ability to command and organize combat. He has gathered a group of trainees around him and manages them with great skill and efficiency. Under Jonathan's command, 5 training ships surrounded the enemy pirate ship. The wounded were moved to the rear, while the front was led by trainees skilled in melee combat. With his organization, the originally precarious defensive line was immediately stabilized. Drake was familiar with Jonathan and was assigned by Jonathan to charge at the forefront. Wherever his blade passed, many pirates fell into pools of blood. Among all the trainees, Yang Ming stood out the most. He was like a king born from flames. With each step he took, before other pirates could even react, a blinding flash of light would appear, and a pirate engulfed in flames would fall beside Yang Ming, dying without even a scream before becoming a cold corpse. The merciless flames devoured the pirates' corpses, leaving behind a pile of burnt ashes in Yang Ming's wake. When a sea breeze blew by, ruffling Yang Ming's bangs, his deep, dark eyes, reflected in the firelight, exuded a powerful sense of oppression, making one's heart tremble involuntarily. What was once a coveted prize in the eyes of pirates has suddenly become a great white shark that preys on its prey. After the number of deaths under Yang Ming's blade exceeded 30, the surrounding pirates dared not approach, and a vacuum area immediately appeared around Yang Ming. During a lull in the battle, Yang Ming finally had time to check the prizes he had won. Dragon's Roar. Each time you take damage in battle, the damage you receive will be slightly reduced, up to a maximum of 1/3 of the damage you receive. The passive ability Dragon Roar is enough to greatly enhance Yang Ming's survivability and endurance. With the addition of the Navy's 6 Styles Iron Body, Yang Ming's defensive capabilities are greatly enhanced, making him increasingly formidable in battle. Furthermore, as Yang Ming further developed his armament haki, his vitality became increasingly tenacious in battle, making him comparable to a replica of Kaido of the Beasts. Seeing that the trainees on the 5 training ships had secured their positions and were showing signs of pushing back onto the pirate ships, the officers on the pirate ships could no longer sit still. However, before they could make a move, Yang Ming took the lead, stepping across the floating bridge built by the pirates from the training ship and landing steadily on the pirate ship. The Navy frequently engages in battles with pirates from various regions, and close combat is commonplace. Therefore, the discipline program at the Naval Academy includes training in body balance. A wooden plank that could only accommodate 1 foot was no big deal for Yang Ming. After landing, Yang Ming quickly surveyed the enemies on the deck. Foxy the Silver Fox, Hamburger, Poke, Ito, Cabernet, Biculus, Gina, Sonny, Donovan. All 9 officers, including Captain Foxy the Silver Fox, were present. Besides, Yang Ming glanced meaningfully at the 3 burly men with long beards. The burly man at the head of the group was enormous, like a small giant. He was tall and imposing, and his most distinctive feature was his beard. He tied his long, brown beard into 3 braids, and anyone who didn't know him might mistake him for a white-bearded admirer. Teed Pirates Captain Teed Boss, Bounty 1,700 million berries. Upon hearing Yang Ming reveal his identity, Boss Teedbeard let out a hearty whoa-ho-ho-ho laugh. This seemingly hospitable, burly man had a fierce glint in his eyes, like that of a vicious wolf. All the Navy personnel must die. As soon as he finished speaking, Boss Teedbeard took the lead and swung a spiked club weighing over 500 pounds with great force. A strong wind rushed towards Yang Ming's face, stinging like a blade. Boss Teedbeard went all out from the start, showing no slackening even though his opponent was a child. Pirates who can make a name for themselves on the Grand Line are no ordinary people. They know very well that there are three types of people who cannot be ignored on this sea: the elderly, women, and children. Especially since this boy was the first to come from the training ship, it's clear he's a rising star cultivated by the Navy. If we underestimate him and are careless, we really don't know what death means. Just as Yang Ming was about to dodge, Silver Fox Foxy revealed a sinister smile and pointed a finger at Yang Ming from afar. Slow light. A pink beam of light shot out. Although it wasn't as fast as the speed of light, it was still something Yang Ming couldn't dodge, and he was hit by the pink beam on the spot. The next moment, Yang Ming felt his thoughts slow down to an extreme degree. It must be said that the pirates on the Grand Line are extremely treacherous and have no sense of martial ethics. They will even gang up on a child without hesitation. Fortunately, Yang Ming had been keeping a close eye on everything around him and had been paying attention to every move of Silver Fox Foxy. The moment the other raised his finger, all the muscles in his body tensed up. Iron. Amidst the piercing sound of wind being cut, the spiked club viciously pounded against Yang Ming's body. Boom. Page 16. The spiked club carried immense power, blasting the small figure away. Boom. A wooden wall was smashed, leaving a human-shaped crater and raising a cloud of dust. Boss with the T-beard let out his signature laugh again, but this time it carried a hint of mockery and sarcasm. What an arrogant brat who doesn't know his place. If the Navy were full of such useless people, that would be fantastic. After he finished speaking, the group of pirates immediately burst into laughter. These pirates are all cunning. Every move they make has a hidden meaning. They knew very well that this method would restore the pirates' low morale and also severely dampen the arrogance of the Marines, killing two birds with one stone. However, when Foxy the Silver Fox and Boss the T-beard glanced at the naval personnel on the training ship next to them, they were surprised to see no sign of their dejection or sadness at losing their teammates. Instead, they seemed to be watching a good show unfold. Upon seeing this, their hearts sank, and a sense of foreboding washed over them. Chapter 17. No matter how many times I'm knocked down, I will get back up. After 2 months of training at the Naval Academy, the cadets already knew that Yang Ming, at a young age, had mastered one of the 6 naval techniques, the iron block. Although this is a unique skill that only junior and mid-level officers in the Navy can access, everyone felt relieved when they thought that Yang Ming was Garp's disciple, and even that, according to a certain head instructor who wished to remain anonymous, Yang Ming was suspected to be Garp's illegitimate son. Is it in this river? That makes perfect sense. That's why, when Boss with the T-beard and Foxy the Silver Fox were laughing heartily, Smoker and his fellow trainees looked at them with pity. Don't these people know that the ominous star above their heads is shining brightly? Just then, a slender arm emerged from the ruins of the collapsed house, and a boy with a blank expression crawled out from among the broken wooden planks. When the T-bearded boss saw that Yang Ming was unharmed, his eyes widened in astonishment, and he couldn't help but exclaim, "How can this be?" Boss T-beard knew very well that his move just now could have killed a bull with a single blow. This guy is definitely not an ordinary Navy man. Foxy the Silver Fox narrowed his eyes slightly. He was quick-witted and soon connected the dots with the strangeness of this operation. Previously, Doflamingo had arranged for him to join forces with the T-beard pirates to station a group of Marines in this area, claiming it was a Marine training fleet, which is why Foxy the Silver Fox agreed. Foxy the Silver Fox has been able to survive on the Grand Line for many years thanks to his shrewdness and cunning. He knows who he can mess with and who he shouldn't. If this were a fleet led by a naval admiral, he would never dare to come and run into trouble. Of course, Chief Instructor Zephyr had retired from his position as a Navy admiral many years ago and had been keeping a low profile. Foxy the Silver Fox was unaware that Zephyr was on the training ship. Otherwise, even if he had the guts of a bear and the courage of a leopard, he wouldn't dare to provoke this lion, Zephyr. After discovering Yang Ming's special qualities, Foxy the Silver Fox had a vague feeling that he had been tricked by Doflamingo. But at this point, Foxy the Silver Fox was already in a difficult position. Even if he wanted to leave the battlefield, they had already run onto the deck of the pirate ship, clearly not wanting to let them go. The thought flashed through his mind for only a moment before Silver Fox Foxy quickly made up his mind. His face suddenly darkened, and he gave orders to his officers. "Let's go together." Although the officers felt somewhat hesitant and didn't understand why Captain Foxy valued this boy so much, they trusted him and didn't question him. Instead, they chose to carry out Captain Foxy's orders. Boss T-beard was naturally unwilling to be outdone, and at the same time, he was a little annoyed. He immediately led 2 of his officers to charge ahead. Iron-bearded Sumki and Big Machete Ron were both large, burly men, just like T-beard Boss. Iron Muscle Sumki's hands were fitted with iron gauntlets, and his arms, which were thicker than the thighs of an average adult, were covered in bulging muscles. His fists were filled with the power to shatter rocks. Ron wielded a machete taller than himself, with several holes pierced along the back of the blade and interspersed with gold rings that made a crisp clanging sound when he swung it. It was clearly a specially made, unusual weapon with considerable lethality. As soon as Yang Ming stood up, he was met with a cunning slowing beam from Silver Fox Foxy, and fell into a slowed state once again. It must be said that the slow fruit is a powerful support fruit. Anyone who gains the ability to slow down will become the best support on the field. From the moment he boarded the pirate ship, Yang Ming had already foreseen his fate. In fact, Yang Ming was not simply there to test his new skills, but also to hold off the enemy's main force for his teammates, thus giving them more time to clear out the pirates on the training ship. On the battlefield, everyone has their own role. Smoker is a firefighter. Whichever front is in danger, he is the first to save it. Tina and Drake are powerful attackers who, with their impressive physical skills, forcefully carved a gap in the enemy's battle line. Dottie Masterson is a sniper who specializes in targeting enemy gunners and eliminating enemy firing positions. Jonathan is the commander, responsible for coordinating the battle between the various parties. As for Yang Ming is a crucial link. He is the king among these trainees. King versus king, general versus general, soldier versus soldier. Yang Ming took on the most important responsibility, keeping the officers of the Silver Fox Pirates and the T-Beard Pirates occupied. Bang bang bang, bang bang bang, bang bang bang. In this short period of time, Yang Ming was subjected to a fierce and rapid attack by a group of pirates. Slashing with a knife, punching with a fist, chopping with a sword, kicking with a leg. All sorts of attacks rained down on Yang Ming like a torrential downpour. The Navy's 6 Styles Iron Body is not an invincible defensive move. It has a limit to the damage it can withstand. Once this limit is exceeded, it will cause damage. Yang Ming's naval trainee uniform was already tattered, with only a rag hanging on his body. His strong physique was faintly visible, with bruises and wounds from swords and knives on his skin. Although there were many injuries, they were all superficial and did not penetrate to the bone. Whenever Yang Ming takes damage, he can slightly reduce the damage he receives under the Dragon's Roar passive effect, which has now stacked up to reduce the damage by 1/3. As time went on, the enemy's stamina began to decline, and their attacks were not as fierce as before. In addition, with Yang Ming's passive damage reduction effect, the pirate officers could only inflict minor injuries on Yang Ming when they launched another attack. Simultaneously, Yang Ming could feel that, while wielding the iron block, each attack he received caused minor internal injuries to his flesh, fascia, and bones. If these internal injuries accumulated, they could lead to a serious and severe injury. But Yang Ming is different. The flame-breathing and the 6 treasures Immortal Thief are constantly in operation. The heart, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, stomach, triple burner, gallbladder, and bladder resonate and work together, constantly channeling qi through the damaged flesh, fascia, and bones. Yang Ming was like a stubborn rock, constantly being polished by the blacksmith. Each time Yang Ming suffers an internal injury, his strength increases by 1 point after the iron block is healed. What may seem like a minor improvement can accumulate into a considerable change over time. Even more surprisingly, when the quantitative change accumulated to the point of qualitative change, Yang Ming unexpectedly discovered that he could actually move while in the state of an iron block. In fact, the Navy's 6 Styles Iron Body, as a nerfed version of armament haki, can be moved after being trained to a certain level. In the original work, Jabra, who ate the dog fruit in his wolf form within CP9, made great progress in mastering the art of using iron blocks, allowing him to move quickly while maintaining the iron block. The principle behind using iron blocks is to focus attention on the muscles being strained. Beginners and experienced iron block users can only concentrate on one point, so they can only keep their muscles as hard as steel. Once one has mastered the art of using iron blocks, the body develops an instinctive response, allowing for multitasking and enabling movement. At this moment, Yang Ming was like refined iron after impurities had been tempered. Not only did he not perish under the enemy's siege, but he also gained an increase in strength. Boss with the T-beard swung his spiked club again, pounding it on the seemingly indestructible little guy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Swinging this spiked club, which weighs over 500 pounds, continuously is a physically demanding and technically challenging task for Boss T-beard. He is now feeling his strength waning and is panting heavily during a pause in his attack. Boss with the T-beard stared ahead. Despite being continuously affected by the sluggish light, Yang Ming still stood upright, like a javelin standing on the deck, enduring wind and rain without ever falling. Is this guy a demon? Boss T-beard couldn't understand why, even with so many of them working together, they still couldn't defeat the boy in front of them. Meanwhile, Smoker and the other trainees finally finished clearing out the pirates on the training ship and boarded the pirate ship. Yang Ming, we're here. Smoker transformed into a wisp of white smoke and circled around to the back of Foxy the Silver Fox. Taking advantage of Foxy's distraction due to the other students, he kicked Foxy in the knee joint, causing Foxy's knee to buckle and his body to tilt to one side. At the same time, Smoker used grappling techniques, grabbing the opponent's right wrist with his right hand and pressing down on the opponent's right upper arm with his left hand. He then twisted his body 180 to the right, pinning Silver Fox Foxy to the ground, pressing his knee against the opponent's back, and pulling out a pair of sea-stone handcuffs from his waist with his left hand. With a click, he locked Silver Fox Foxy's hands in shackles. Having lost Foxy the Silver Fox as his support, Yang Ming has finally shaken off the sluggish state he had been suffering from. Before the other trainees could come to his aid, Yang Ming smiled at the pirate officers who had been ganging up on him. To the pirate officers, that smile was nothing short of a demon's sneer. Yang Ming leaped into the air, his standard issue longsword brimming with boundless light and heat, as if the Emperor of Flames had descended. A scorching arc of flame slashed down on the group of pirate officers. The third form. The myriad forms of chi and flames. The roaring flame surged and engulfed the T-Beard boss and his companions in astonishment. The pirate officers had charred skin and were emitting wisps of smoke. Before losing consciousness and collapsing to the ground, Boss T-Beard uttered a soul-searching question to Yang Ming. Are you a human or a demon? I am just an ordinary human being. If I were to say what's special about me, no matter how many times I'm knocked down, I will get back up. Page 17. Yang Ming flicked his sword to remove the remaining sparks from the blade, then sheathed it and turned to leave. Behind him, the ashes of a pile of corpses drifted slowly in the sea breeze. Chapter 18 Gourmet Cells, The Puzzle of Becoming a God. The ashes from the burnt-out flames drifted away in the wind. The group of students gazed at the figure bathed in sunlight. The small man was covered in wounds, and the scars on his body seemed to tell others about the hardships he had encountered. All the trainees asked themselves if they could have achieved the strategic goal of tying down enemy cadres, just like Yang Ming did, if they had been in his shoes. For a moment, everyone looked at Yang Ming with a sense of awe and respect. Smoker stomped hard on Foxy the silver fox beneath his feet. He had also heard Yang Ming's words and muttered to himself, "No matter how many times you're knocked down, will you get back up?" Smoker's heart was filled with passion and fighting spirit, as if ignited by those words. His pupils reflected Yang Ming's figure, and his gaze was fixed on him. "I really look forward to the day when I can have a good fight with you." Yang Ming stood still, his chest gradually calming down. When he uses the breath of flame, inhaling a large amount of oxygen into his chest cavity, mobilizing the blood flow in his body, and enhancing his explosive power, he will experience a brief period of weakness. A wave of discomfort washed over him, a mix of aches and pains from being ganged up on by the pirate officers and fatigue from the heavy strain of using the iron blocks multiple times. A group of students who arrived late walked towards him. Yang Ming smiled slightly as he looked at Drake and the others in the front row. "My good sons, you've finally decided to come see your dad." Drake and the others, veins bulging on their foreheads, roared, "Damn it, give us back the emotions we felt." Yang Ming's source of happiness was that simple, seeing his three roommates, Drake and his two roommates, looking furious, finally allowed his tense nerves to relax a lot. Many veterans who have been on the battlefield are prone to post-traumatic stress disorder after war, either due to the shock of the deaths of their comrades and enemies or the nerve stimulation caused by their own killing. If one cannot adjust oneself in time, this situation is unavoidable. In addition to regular training programs, naval schools have also conducted similar educational courses. Everyone has a different way of dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. For example, Garp distracts himself by constantly eating snacks, and Aokiji travels around the world by bicycle to relieve the negative emotions that have accumulated in his heart. If you don't do this, it can easily lead to a drastic change in your temperament. Yang Ming once heard Chief Instructor Zephyr mention that among the first batch of students he taught 21 years ago, Akainu was not as hot-tempered and incorruptible as he is now. At most, he was a man who hated evil and loathed pirates who disrupted peace. Later, due to his long-term battles with pirates, Akainu witnessed his comrades and innocent civilians dying tragically at the hands and cannons of pirates. Under such high pressure, he gradually developed his current paranoid personality, believing that only by implementing absolute justice and eliminating all pirates from the world can world peace be achieved. Despite the tragic deaths of Chief Instructor Zephyr's family members at the hands of vengeful pirates, he did not betray his sense of justice by seeking revenge against those pirates. Instead, he chose to train a new generation of naval talent, finding solace in this endeavor. Everyone has different perspectives and experiences, leading to vastly different views on justice. Yang Ming escorted Silver Fox Foxy onto the training ship. When Foxy the Silver Fox saw the tall and imposing figure of Chief Instructor Zephyr, he immediately recognized him as the former admiral who had once been a formidable force on the high seas. In an instant, Foxy the Silver Fox's face turned ashen. He knew he had been terribly betrayed by Doflamingo. Chief Instructor Zephyr glanced at Yang Ming with satisfaction, then picked up Silver Fox Foxy and walked towards the interrogation room temporarily set up on the training ship, saying without turning his head, "You all go and rest and recover. I need to interrogate this guy properly." Due to the large number of wounded, the original medical room on the training ship was used to treat the seriously injured, so Yang Ming had to stay on the deck. Tina came over carrying a medical kit and saw Yang Ming casually tying scraps of cloth to the wound, so she hurried over. "Yang Ming, let me bandage your wound." A pleasant fragrance wafted over, and perhaps because she had run a little too fast, waves surged in front of Tina. Tina took out cotton swabs, medical disinfectant alcohol, gauze and other items from the medical kit and carefully treated Yang Ming's wound. Seeing the hideous wounds left on Yang Ming's body, Tina's heart trembled violently. She couldn't imagine how the boy in front of her could remain silent despite suffering such severe injuries. The moment the cool, disinfectant alcohol came into contact with the everted wound, it was like chili powder being sprinkled on it, instantly sending a burning pain through Yang Ming's face, causing him to frown. There were many wounded soldiers on the deck, who were being treated by their comrades and were constantly wailing and howling. In this way, the injured can focus their attention elsewhere. Yang Ming seemed a bit different. He shifted his attention to the system's prompts from earlier. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Toriko. You have been awarded one chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? A lottery wheel slowly appeared in Yang Ming's line of sight. Even though it was right within reach, Tina, who was standing next to him, seemed oblivious to it. Yang Ming had already discovered that only he could see the lottery wheel, no one else could see or touch it. There are only two types of prizes on the lottery wheel: fighting skills and special abilities. Fighting techniques, nail punch, eating the righteousness. Special abilities, gourmet cells, the Demon King's sense of smell. Noticing that Tina was staring at him, Yang Ming turned around abruptly and saw Tina resting her chin on her hand, staring straight at him. With Tina's help, Yang Ming's upper body was bound with white gauze, making him look like a mummy. What, is there a wound on my face? Why are you looking at me like that? Seeing that Yang Ming seemed a little troubled, Tina covered her mouth and smiled. Then, she took out a handkerchief and gently wiped the remaining blood from Yang Ming's face. I just think that you're clearly just a child, yet you unexpectedly possess a masculine quality. I am a man. Yang Ming answered truthfully. Yes, you little man. Tina couldn't understand the true meaning behind Yang Ming's words and mistakenly thought that Yang Ming was only saying that because he wanted to save face. Hearing the muffled thud from Yang Ming's stomach, Tina, like a friendly older sister, gently stroked Yang Ming's nose with her delicate fingers and smiled sweetly. I just applied the medicine to your wound. Don't move around too much, or the wound will break open and get infected. I'll go to the cafeteria to get you some food. Wait here for me, okay? After saying that, Tina put the miscellaneous items back into the medical kit and turned to return to the cabin. Yang Ming gave an awkward smile. Feeling the lingering fragrance on the tip of his nose, Yang Ming was momentarily speechless. Fortunately, the lottery results have been released. Food cells, after being implanted into the human body, human cells are activated, and human life can evolve after consuming food, thereby breaking through the limitations of the gene lock and surpassing the limits of humanity. The nourishing cells subtly and silently seeped into Yang Ming's body. Yang Ming did not feel any obvious changes, but in fact, they had already begun to subtly transform Yang Ming's body at the cellular level. Humans are a unique species, capable of creating all sorts of incredible miracles. However, humans are also a species with limits. Once they reach a certain level of maturity, no matter how much they train, they can no longer make any progress. However, everyone's physical condition is different, and their growth potential also varies. In the original story, Johnny and Joseph were once pirate hunters alongside Rorano and Zoro, but in the end, they were just unknown pirate hunters in the East Blue, and might die in some remote corner of the world at any time. Those individuals with extremely high growth potential are often labeled as geniuses with talent and ability. As for those humans who have little room for growth, they are often referred to as ordinary people. This is the cruelty of reality. Although Karp and others always viewed Yang Ming as a genius, only Yang Ming himself knew that he was hardly a genius. He was just someone with an extra system cheat code compared to others. Now that food cells have been integrated into his body, it means that Yang Ming will no longer be troubled by the physical limitations in the future. Only, there's a problem here. Yang Ming must eat delicious food to trigger the effects of the food cells. Just then, Tina slowly walked over carrying a food basket. Along the way, Tina attracted a lot of attention. Tina herself is top-notch in appearance and figure. Coupled with her lively personality, she can be said to be the most beautiful girl in the Naval Academy. Not only are her classmates envious, but even the senior students who stayed in the Naval Academy in the previous 2 years have many suitors for Tina. Unfortunately, Tina never showed any interest in other men. Therefore, when they saw Tina gently feeding Yang Ming, all the trainees on the deck felt their hearts break. If looks could kill, Yang Ming would probably be restless and uneasy right now. As soon as the food entered Yang Ming's stomach, he felt a slight dissatisfaction from the food cells in his body. It seems that these large-scale cooking methods cannot satisfy a gourmet's definition of gourmet food. This made Yang Ming realize that he had to put finding a cook on his agenda. Otherwise, if he wants to become stronger in the future, he will have to cook for himself, which will be too troublesome. After a hearty meal, under the resonance of flame breath and 6 treasures immortal thief, Yang Ming felt his injuries had improved. He estimated that his body would be fully recovered in about 3 days. Chief Instructor Zephyr's interrogation of Foxy the Silver Fox went smoothly, seemingly as a form of revenge against Doflamingo. Foxy confessed everything clearly. Chief Instructor Zephyr emerged from the makeshift interrogation room, holding a notebook filled with handwriting, his face radiating a chilling aura. He summoned 6 top students: Yang Ming, Smoker, Tina, Drake, Jonathan, and Dottie Mastitson, and said in an unusually serious tone, "I'm going to give you a special mission. This mission is extremely dangerous, and you could lose your lives if you're not careful. You haven't officially joined the army yet, so you can think about it carefully first." Page 18. Chapter 19. We defend our glory with our blood. New World. The night was dark, and the crescent moon hung high in the sky. A pirate ship, resembling a pink swan, slowly sailed on the sea, leaving ripples behind it. On the deck of the Flamingo, a blond young man lay on a beach chair with his arms behind his head, legs crossed, his right foot, clad in a pointed boot, swinging back and forth. His unruly eyes were hidden behind sunglasses, making it impossible to see what he was thinking. Porup. The distinctive sound of a den mushi rang out, accompanied by footsteps approaching from afar. Torbur approached, holding a precious white den mushi in both hands. White den mushi are extremely rare and can emit interference waves during communication to prevent others from eavesdropping on the conversation. Even with the Don Quixote family's wealth, they have only collected 2 white den mushi so far. Toripole bowed slightly and said softly, "Young master, Fergo is calling." Doflamingo slowly gathered his scattered thoughts and took the white den mushi from Treble's hand. The white den mushi opened and closed its mouth, emitting Fergo's uniquely magnetic voice. "Young master, the Silver Fox Pirates and the T-Beard Pirates operation has failed. Was it that old bastard Zephyr who made the move?" "No. According to my inside information at the Naval Academy, it was done by a Naval Academy freshman. He was only 6 years old, yet he single-handedly held off the officers of the Silver Fox Pirates and the T-Beard Pirates, and in the end, he killed all the officers except for Silver Fox Foxy." Upon hearing this, Doflamingo suddenly stood up. The pink coat draped over his shoulders rustled in the cool night breeze. He held a white den mushi in one hand and had the other hand in his pocket. He strode confidently to the bow of the swan ship and gazed at the reflection of the crescent moon on the sea. Doflamingo remained silent, while Fergo's report continued to come through the white den mushi. "Young master, according to reliable inside information, Foxy the Silver Fox has sold out our intelligence about our secret human trafficking to the Navy. Former Navy Admiral Zephyr has ordered the top students of this year's Naval Academy to form a team to destroy our important base in Water 7. Zephyr has been retired from the position of Admiral for many years and is now just the chief instructor of a Naval Academy. It seems that he has no intention of confronting our Don Quixote family head-on and destroying our important base. Perhaps he wants to use this as a warning to others. Young master, Zifa only sent a few top students. Should we send someone to eliminate them? If they discover any trace of our interactions with those important figures in the base station, it could be very detrimental to us." Upon hearing this, Doflamingo immediately let out a distinctive laugh. Phew. Fergo, I'm not trying to be mean, but we're law-abiding citizens. How can we always be thinking about fighting and killing? Doflamingo's words silenced Fergo. As pirates, isn't burning, killing, and looting normal? The laughter paused slightly, and Doflamingo's lips curled up into a slightly sinister smile. "When I had Foxy the Silver Fox and Boss the T-Beard team up to ambush the naval training ship, I knew they would fail, be captured, and expose my important base in Water 7. Perfect timing. Spandam, the commander of CP9, has been getting increasingly greedy lately. He's not even satisfied with our usual tributes. I've already ordered my men at the Water 7 base station to destroy all other evidence, leaving only the evidence of our deal with Spandam. As long as the Navy finds this evidence, it will be enough to force Spandam to step down and replace him with someone more obedient. In this way, the Navy will gain credit for losing an important base station and complete their mission of making a show of force. They will probably stop pursuing our Don Quixote family. The CP9 organization has a new leader, and in order to achieve results in the shortest possible time, they will definitely give our business the green light. Whether it's our Don Quixote family or the Navy, both sides can benefit. The only one who might suffer a loss is that unfortunate CP9 commander." The cool night breeze carried away the laughter in the darkness, and the crescent moon hid behind the dark clouds, seemingly unwilling to hear the dirty plots. Night enveloped the world. A simple single-mast sailboat crossed the sea. There were only 6 people on the ship: Yang Ming, Smoker, Tina, Drake, Jonathan, and Dottie Mastitson. After receiving the mission from Chief Instructor Zeph, they detached from the training ship and headed towards Water 7. A gentle night breeze blew as the 6 men remained on the deck. Recalling the task assigned by Chief Instructor Zifa, everyone was filled with emotion and couldn't sleep. "This is a very special task, and it may be quite a challenge for you at this stage." According to Foxy the Silver Fox, the Don Quixote family established a secret hideout in Water 7, specifically to gather people captured from all over the world and transport them to the Sabayati archipelago through Water 7. I require the 6 of you to temporarily leave the training fleet and form a special task force. The objective is to go to Water 7, destroy the Don Quixote family's human trafficking hideout in Water 7, and uncover evidence of the Don Quixote family's crimes. The Don Quixote family. A person's name, the shadow of a tree. In recent years, the Don Quixote family has risen rapidly, and Doflamingo is considered one of the best among pirates, gaining a great reputation in the New World. Destroying one of the major hideouts of this notorious pirate family means forging a deadly feud with the Don Quixote family. The Don Quixote family is different from ordinary pirates. The Don Quixote family's businesses span the East Blue, South Blue, North Blue, West Blue, and the Grand Line. Not only are they on good terms with major powers, but even the world government secretly conducts business with them. Offending the Don Quixote family means being hunted down to the ends of the earth by them. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your family. No one can guarantee that pirates won't harm their families while they're away on business. Although, since Admiral Zephyr's family was killed by pirates in retaliation, the Marine headquarters requisitioned an island and built a small town specifically to house the families of Marine headquarters officers. There are also more than 3 Marine fleets patrolling nearby, so safety is greatly guaranteed. However, due to the limited area of the island and the limited supply of housing, one must be at least a brigadier general to have such special privileges and be able to bring their family to the island to settle down. The Navy has established a rigorous organizational system, with ranks and titles ranging from lowest to highest as follows: Private First Class, Private Second Class, Private First Class, Corporal, Sergeant, Sergeant Major, Warrant Officer, Second Lieutenant, First Lieutenant, Captain, Major, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, Brigadier General, Major General, Lieutenant General, General, Marshal. Private First Class, Private Second Class, and Private First Class are collectively referred to as soldiers. From Corporal to Colonel, all were collectively referred to as non-commissioned officers. Brigadier General, Major General, Lieutenant General, General, and Marshal are collectively referred to as generals. Soldiers are the basic unit in the Navy. Once you reach the rank of sergeant, you have the authority to lead a unit of varying numbers of soldiers. Senior sergeants like colonels can even serve as garrison commanders in the weakest region, the East China Sea, and have the authority to lead a warship and its accompanying soldiers. At the general level, one would inevitably have warships and ships under command, the authority to command a fleet, or even be stationed at a naval base, making one a veritable local emperor. Are you scared? Jonathan struck a match and lit a cigarette for himself. The cigarette but glowed with tiny sparks, and the wisps of smoke blurred Jonathan's mature face. Among all the trainees, Jonathan is arguably the oldest, already in his early 30s. Most of the others are young men in their teens and 20s, while he is already an uncle. To be honest, I was terrified. Jonathan gave a wry smile, breaking the tranquility of the night. I am just an ordinary person. At most, I have better physical qualities and a better mind than others. But I know that my talents are limited. My swordsmanship is mediocre, my spearmanship is mediocre, I can't learn the 6 powers of the Navy, and I don't have any devil fruit abilities. If I hadn't enlisted at the same time as Admiral Akainu, and if I hadn't been from the same hometown as Admiral Akainu, and if I hadn't been so shameless as to write to Admiral Akainu to plead for my life since I was only a second lieutenant in my early 30s, and obtained his recommendation letter so that I could enter the Naval Academy for further studies, otherwise, with my qualifications, I would not have been able to sit and chat with you monsters. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. Naval academies are not places that just anyone can enter, they are bases for training the next generation of naval personnel. There are 2 conditions for entering naval school. Firstly, they excel in the execution of tasks and make outstanding contributions, thereby attracting the attention and appreciation of their superiors. Secondly, they have connections within the Navy headquarters and can obtain recommendation letters from officers of the rank of Commodore or higher. Once they graduate from naval school, they will be able to be given important responsibilities immediately. Of course, if you are unable to graduate, you can only stay at the school. If you are unable to complete the graduation exam after 2 years, you will be expelled from the school. As for the graduation exams at naval academies, they have always been known for their rigor, leaving no room for anyone to cheat. Therefore, even those who enter Naval Academy through personal connections and eventually graduate are the elite of the Navy. At this moment, Yang Ming stood up. In Jonathan's eyes, under the hazy moonlight, Yang Ming's figure suddenly seemed to grow infinitely taller. Yang Ming's voice was resounding and filled with a powerful, awe-inspiring force. I want to ask you a question: what is justice? The Don Quixote family peddled arms and illegal drugs, causing constant conflicts between countries and displacing countless people. These people could have lived in peace and prosperity, but they were forced to lose their homes and were even captured and enslaved, living a miserable life. With the weapons sold by the Don Quixote family enhanced, the pirates will become even more arrogant and domineering, and more of our naval comrades will perish under the enemy's swords and cannons. If we don't stop the Don Quixote family, the next victim could be any one of us, or even our families. Yang Ming pounded his fist on his chest, his face resolute, and said, I am human too, and I am also afraid of death. But I know that some things always have to be done by someone. If everyone remains silent, where is justice in this world? Protecting the common people is both justice and honor. We will defend our honor with our blood. Chapter 20 Water 7, The Sun Pirates. Jonathan originally thought that he had seen so much deceit and change in the world that his heart was hardened like iron. But now, as he gazed at that figure giving a passionate speech under the hazy moonlight, Jonathan felt a deep stirring in his heart, as if recalling the scene of him enlisting in the army in the same class as Admiral Akainu. Jonathan, why did you join the army? At that time, Admiral Akainu was still a boy with a prematurely aged face. Before Jonathan could answer, he clenched his fists and said, I joined the army to kill those pirates who wreak havoc everywhere and to maintain world peace. I look forward to the day when I can fight alongside you. Time flies like an arrow. Page 19. That boy who hated evil so much has now grown into a Marine admiral. Jonathan was just an ordinary lieutenant, a far cry from the situation of Admiral Akainu. For a fleeting moment, Jonathan felt that the figure before him overlapped with the image of Admiral Akainu in his youth. Perhaps all great people share a strikingly similar aspect in their youth. Those long-dead memories seem to ignite a fire in the heart of this somewhat is a difficult word to translate directly, but it implies a state of being listless, dispirited, or decadent, middle-aged man. Jonathan tossed aside his cigarette, stomped on it a few times, extinguished the butt, clenched his fist, and, mimicking Yang Ming, pounded it hard against his chest, saying loudly, "We will defend our honor with our blood." It was like some kind of solemn and sacred ceremony, which was incredibly awe-inspiring. Smoker, Tina, Drake, and Dottie Masterson were all deeply shaken, punching their chests and shouting in unison, "We will defend our honor with our blood." The crescent moon in the sky witnessed their vow. This scene will be recorded in history and become a legend for future generations. The 6 men looked at each other and smiled. At that moment, a strong bond was formed among the 6 of them, making them a group led by Yang Ming. Yang Ming's speech dispelled the concerns of the elite team members and inspired their fighting spirit. Everyone was eager to fly to Water City right now and show their skills. Fortunately, everyone remained rational, knowing that they were far from Water 7. After arranging for the night shifts, they went back to their rooms to rest. Yang Ming returned to his room and immediately checked the system notification he had received earlier. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from World of Warcraft. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? The prizes in the lottery wheel are divided into 2 types: racial talents and skills. Racial traits: escape expert, heroic spirit, resilience. Skills: charge, rallying shout, execution. Heroic aura: you possess extraordinary confidence and great strength, and all attacks receive a small bonus. Yang Ming walked up to a mirror. His tall figure was reflected in the mirror. His well-fitting clothes covered the gauze wrapped around his body. His olive skin revealed a healthy glow, and his cold, hard lines outlined a resolute face. Yang Ming wasn't exactly handsome, but he possessed a unique charm that set him apart from others in every gesture. Perhaps this is the unique quality that the heroic spirit bestowed upon Yang Ming. The reason why unknown individuals remain obscure and become the background templates of the world is not only because of their ordinary appearance and physique, but also because of the same temperament they possess that is no different from others. Every powerful person who achieves great things is, without exception, a standout. Just by looking at them, you know that they are unique. Today, Yang Ming possesses a unique temperament and has begun to cultivate his own distinctive aura. Silent all night. To avoid attracting the attention of Don Quixote's spies, the 6 men docked their straight sailboat on an island near Water 7, then bought tickets and boarded a sea train to Water 7. Yang Ming and 5 others bought tickets together, and their seats were close together. As the train whistle sounded, thick smoke billowed from the chimney, propelling the carriages along the tracks. A pretty flight attendant came to the carriage where Yang Ming and the others were. She was wearing a black flight attendant hat with gold trim, and her tight purple uniform accentuated her slender figure. Every inch of her body was perfectly proportioned, neither too much nor too little. The flight attendant had deliberately kept her long, wavy blonde hair down to her shoulders, which made her look even more charming and graceful. Her face was lightly made up, and her captivating eyes were filled with alluring glances. With the clatter of her high heels on the floor, she swayed her slender waist, leaving countless male passengers dumbfounded and secretly swallowing. Even Smoker, who is usually oblivious to romance, almost popped his eyes out the moment he saw the flight attendant. Not to mention the others. Women are naturally fond of beauty, but they all like to be beautiful themselves and don't like to see other women more beautiful than themselves. Tina was no exception. Seeing Smoker and the others' pathetic state, she couldn't help but snort coldly. She hugged Yang Ming in her arms, rubbing his collagen-rich face with both hands, and said through gritted teeth, "Yang Ming, when you grow up, you can't be as useless as these guys. It's just a woman, is it really that big of a deal?" Yang Ming was oblivious to his good fortune, feeling the pressure from the 2 indescribable objects, and was almost forced to wear a mask of pain. The flight attendant cupped her hands to her stomach and bowed to the passengers in the carriage, revealing a deep cleavage that made many male passengers secretly exclaim that they couldn't take it anymore. The flight attendant's sweet voice, like heavenly music, echoed throughout the carriage as she opened and closed her mouth. "Hello everyone, welcome aboard the sea train. I am your attendant, Coco, and I will now introduce this journey to you. Now you are riding the Smoking Tom, a sea train built by the Tom Shipbuilding Company over 13 years. It is currently in the trial operation and testing phase and has not yet been fully commercialized, so there is only one main train line, with the terminal station being Wolf Station. Water 7 is also known as Shipbuilding Island. It is home to the world's best shipbuilding companies and the world's best shipwrights. Even Mr. Tom, known as the world's #1 shipwright, lives in Water 7. If anyone is interested in buying a ship, I can contact Tom Shipbuilding Company on your behalf. There is a 20% discount available now, first come, first served. Seven Waters is a land of outstanding people and abundant resources. Every year, it hosts a variety of events that attract tourists from all over the world. In the coming month, Seven Waters will be hosting a grand food festival, where renowned chefs from various islands will be invited to compete. If you want to indulge in a feast, don't miss it. The flight attendant spoke with a clear and resonant voice, her words sharp and sweet. While seemingly introducing Water 7, the Kokoro crew occasionally interjected with advertisements for Tom Shipbuilding Company, which didn't feel out of place or unacceptable to viewers. Instead, quite a few male passengers took the opportunity to hand Kokoro, the flight attendant, postcards, hoping to spend a wonderful night with this beautiful woman in Water 7. Yang Ming finally managed to break free from Tina's overwhelming pressure, and his expression turned slightly strange as he watched many male passengers fawning over flight attendant Coco. If you remembered correctly, Kokoro was a mermaid, and her tail fin split into two legs after she grew up, which is why she was able to live on land. Mermaids are all very beautiful when they are young, but unfortunately their bloom is very short-lived. Once they are over 30, they will age rapidly. Yang Ming's mind was filled with the image of the other person as an older woman, so he was completely immune to the appearance of the flight attendant, Kokoro. Little did he know that his performance was a plus in Tina's eyes. No wonder he's the little man Tina approves of. The scenery outside the window flashed by, and ships came and went frequently on the sea. Seven Waters is a world-famous island and an important commercial hub. The harbor is filled with merchant ships of all sizes, and laborers work hard to move goods amidst the shouts of sailors. After an hour's journey, the train gradually slowed down and finally stopped at a dock. Ladies and gentlemen, the sea train has arrived at the Silth station. Please check your belongings and disembark in an orderly manner. As soon as Yang Ming's feet touched the ground, he felt a wave of heat rushing towards him. Looking around, the docks were packed with people. Near the pier, there were many banners and slogans, and merchants and vendors were trying to attract customers. Gulf Hotel, hot springs and gourmet food, pink romance, 10,000 yuan a night, just bring your bags and check in. Rent a two-seater blue mount that combines carrying backpacks and luggage with waterway sightseeing. It's an essential item for any trip. Rent it for 1 day for only 1,000 berries. Freshly baked glutinous rice balls. Don't miss out. Yang Ming's gaze swept around the area before suddenly stopping on the container yard at the dock. Fishmen, whose race and skin color are vastly different from humans, are sweating profusely and using their strength, which is 10 times that of humans, to painstakingly move containers. As the train attendant stood at the carriage door, she had already noticed this child with a unique temperament. Unlike the others, the child's eyes were always clear and bright when he looked at her, which made her feel good about him. Following Yang Ming's gaze, flight attendant Cece mistakenly assumed that Yang Ming had a problem with these fishmen, and immediately whispered, "Those fishmen are all employees of Tom's Shipbuilding Company." Seeing Yang Ming turn his head to look at her, flight attendant Cece smiled sweetly, revealing a row of white teeth. Tom is a kind old man who always likes to take care of those fish people who are not successful. These fish people are discriminated against by humans in other places and cannot find work, so Tom kindly took them in. Yang Ming didn't reply, his gaze fixed on the group of fishmen laborers. Despite their efforts to conceal it, a corner of the sun's mark on their arms was still visible. That was a brand that had been altered to conceal the celestial dragon's mark, and it was also the symbol of the Sun Pirates. Why are the members of the Sun Pirates here? Chapter 21, Level 1000-7. 4 years ago, Fisher Tiger free-climbed the Red Earth, wreaked havoc in the holy land of Mary Gosa, and freed thousands of slaves, making headlines. In the same year, Fisher Tiger founded the Sun Pirates. Because of the fishman's actions, which caused the celestial dragons to lose face, a bounty of 230 million berries was put on him as soon as he was put on the bounty, which is higher than the bounties of many rising stars in the Grand Line. Last year was the year Yang Ming traveled through time. While Yang Ming was still training hard in the East China Sea, one day major news media published articles announcing that Fisher Tiger's pirate crew had been ambushed by the Navy, and that he himself had been seriously injured and died. Even though Dodden's family lived deep in the mountains, they still received this newspaper delivered by the newsbird and learned of this earth-shattering news. Of course, Yang Ming was familiar with the plot and was not fooled by the one-sided story in the newspapers. He knew that Fisher Tiger had been ambushed by the Navy on his way back after taking a human girl home. Feeling betrayed by humans, Fisher Tiger refused to donate human blood that matched his blood type and died from his injuries. With the loss of Fisher Tiger, the Fishman leader, the Sun Pirates are currently leaderless. Thanks to Garp's status as a naval hero, and because every weekend Garp would dump the tasks he hadn't finished during the week onto Yang Ming for help, ostensibly to train Yang Ming's abilities, Yang Ming was able to learn a piece of intelligence that the outside world was unaware of. The world government is in communication with the Navy's top brass and intends to appoint Jinbi, the Knight of the Sea, as one of the 7 warlords of the sea, in order to ease the increasingly sharp conflict between humans and fishmen. It is said that Queen Otohim of Fishman Island played a key role in this, which made the world government willing to discuss the matter. Otherwise, given the celestial dragon's arrogant nature, they would probably want to wipe out all the fishmen from the world, because they hate everything associated with them. That's why Yang Ming found it strange. The Sun Pirates are currently in a situation where they are like rats crossing the street, hated by everyone. If they are discovered by others, they will probably suffer annihilation. How could they have the mood to come to Tom's shipyard in Water 7 to work? A group of pirates actually working honestly to earn money? Page 20. Either I'm crazy, or the world is crazy. Yang Ming, what are you still daydreaming about? At this moment, Tina's voice pulled Yang Ming back to reality from his reverie. Tina waved her arms at Yang Ming. Behind her were 3 blues rented from a merchant. Blues were aquatic creatures as big as elephants, active in the rivers, and a unique mode of transportation in Water 7. Yang Ming smiled, said goodbye to flight attendant Coco, and then boarded a blue train with Tina. The blue resembles a seahorse in appearance, with a wide and open back and a mahogany seat, making it suitable for 2 people to ride together, with enough space to put luggage. According to Foxy the Silver Fox, the Don Quixote family's important base for transporting slaves in Water 7 was disguised as a hardware store to conceal their true purpose. Yang Ming and his group intended to reach the shop as quickly as possible, before the Don Quixote family received the news and fled. Blue is very intelligent. Yang Ming and the others only need to provide an address, and it knows how to get there. 7 Waters is a magical city with a crisscrossing network of waterways and a well-developed transportation network that allows people to travel to any part of the city via the waterways. The river flows gently, its blue waves rippling. A small bridge spans a flowing stream, and boats shuttle back and forth. The riverbanks offer breathtaking scenery, with rows of houses belonging to the original inhabitants of Water City. Perhaps due to the humid climate, the windows of these buildings are connected by thin steel wires, from which residents hang their washed clothes, creating a picturesque scene. The winding network of waterways is enough to make anyone dizzy. Any newcomer to Water 7 would likely easily lose their way in this vast city and not be able to find their way back. As they approached their destination, the 3-headed blue gradually slowed down and came to rest on the shore. Yang Ming paused, then instructed the other 5 people. When we capture the person in charge of the base station, we must be careful that he may choose to commit suicide. Upon hearing this, the crowd seemed somewhat dismissive. Ascending the stone steps, Yang Ming and his 6 companions emerged from the low-lying area of the riverbed onto the ground. Surprisingly, this was not some remote, deserted place, but rather a densely populated residential area with various types of shops, restaurants, massage parlors, hardware stores, and timber shops along the riverbank. 7 Waters is a well-known shipbuilding island. In addition to world-renowned shipbuilding companies, it has naturally driven the development of the upstream and downstream of the shipbuilding industry chain. More than half of the city's residents are engaged in shipbuilding-related industries. Hardware stores and lumber shops are everywhere, most of which offer replacement parts for boats. Following the search based on the shop's address, Yang Ming and his 6 companions finally found their target. Jingle bell. The door was opened by 6 people, and the wind chimes hanging at the entrance echoed with a crisp sound. The middle-aged man working at his desk suddenly stopped what he was doing and a professional smile appeared on his face. Welcome to Haba Hardware Store. I'm Haba, the owner. How can I help you? As soon as Yang Ming and his 6 companions entered, they quickly surveyed the hardware store. Overall, this hardware store is fairly standard, roughly 30 square meters in size. Though small, it has everything you need, with a wide variety of goods displayed in the glass counters. It looks no different from any other hardware store. If someone unaware of the situation came here, they might mistakenly think it was just an ordinary hardware store, rather than an important base for the Don Quixote family to transport human slaves. The big hermit hides in the city, the small hermit hides in the wild. Doflamingo truly lived up to his reputation as one of the most business-savvy pirates. He knew that the most dangerous place was precisely the safest place, and he placed such an important base in a densely populated area, something no one else could have imagined. Smoker and his 5 men surrounded Haba. Yang Ming took out a naval ID from his pocket. This was a temporary ID provided to them by Chief Instructor Zephyr for convenience. It was enough to give them the authority to arrest and kill criminals without being blamed by the local government. We are the Navy. Your crimes have been exposed. Now you must confess to the Don Quixote family's human trafficking. Haba was already on guard when Yang Ming and his group entered the room. Generally, those who come to hardware stores to buy goods are adult men. Minors are rarely seen, and women are even rarer. Because hardware stores mainly sell tools for repairing ships, and these are all dirty and tiring jobs, only male shipwrights in this city of 7 Waters would need these items. So, Haba reached into the hidden compartment under the counter with his right hand and gripped a flintlock pistol, the latest product developed by the Don Quixote family. This new model solved the problem of overheating of the rifling caused by repeated firing of bullets in the past flintlock pistols, and could fire all the bullets at once. Faced with Yang Ming's questioning, Haba gave a forced smile and said, "Child, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I, Haba, have always been an honest and law-abiding businessman. How could I possibly be a human trafficker? You can't slander an innocent person." Seeing that Haba was being stubborn, Smoker spat and said, I knew it. Why follow Chief Instructor Zifa's method when dealing with these criminals? We shouldn't try to reason with them, we should just knock them unconscious and take them back for interrogation. After saying that, Smoker was about to handcuff Habak. Seeing that the scholar was unable to reason with the soldiers, Haba knew that he absolutely could not fall into the hands of the Navy. A ruthless glint flashed in his eyes, and he pulled out a flintlock pistol from the counter and pulled the trigger one after another at the 6 people present. Bang bang bang, bang bang bang. Smoke billowed from the gun barrels as 6 orange-yellow bullets shot straight into the foreheads of 6 men. Judging from his superb marksmanship, Haba is definitely not an honest and simple businessman. Yang Ming and his 6 companions had already anticipated that the other party would resort to desperate measures. Smoker immediately transformed into several wisps of smoke, binding Haba's hands and feet. The other 5, having anticipated this, easily dodged the enemy's bullets. The instant he saw Smoker turn into smoke, his pupils contracted sharply, and he exclaimed in shock. A devil fruit user. Is it a Logia-type devil fruit? Haba was almost crying. As a base station manager, what makes him worthy of being approached by a Logia-type devil fruit user? Smoker tackled Haba to the ground, having already reverted to human form, and placed heavy shackles on Haba's hands and feet. Smoker, also short-tempered, stomped his hard leather boots on Haba's foot and said, Where did you hide all the slaves and people captured by the Don Quixote family? Haba knew he was probably doomed this time, and a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes as he tried to bite the poison hidden in his dentures. Yang Ming had reminded Smoker of this point long before the operation began. At first, Smoker didn't believe it, but upon seeing the ruthlessness in Haba's eyes, Smoker reacted swiftly, grabbing Haba's chin and forcefully twisting it, dislocating Haba's jaw on the spot with a snap. Yang Ming was almost right, you actually wanted to commit suicide. Smoker was secretly alarmed as he pulled a false tooth from Haba's mouth and saw the poison hidden inside. Smoker simply couldn't believe that Habakkuk was a die-hard member of the Don Quixote family. But does this mean that the Don Quixote family has some kind of powerful means of controlling its subordinates, which is why they would rather commit suicide than fall into the hands of the Navy? The rest of the people gathered clues at the hardware store, investigating whether there was a secret room or basement there. Yang Ming led Haba into the cramped bathroom alone, slammed the door shut behind him, and cracked his fingers, revealing a devilish smile in Haba's eyes. I know you won't easily reveal information about the Don Quixote family. So, let's play a simple game. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go. What is 1000 to 7? Chapter 22, Is Tom Shipbuilding Company the culprit? Haba's jaw was dislocated, making it impossible for him to open his mouth and speak. He could only stare helplessly with wide eyes. You can't even answer such a simple question. It seems I'm going to have to torture you. Yang Ming stuffed a wad of toilet paper into Haba's mouth, covered his eyes with a towel, laid him horizontally on the ground, and slightly turned on the tap so that water dripped continuously onto Haba's forehead. In ancient times, the water-dripping torture was comparable to the branding torture. Although it may not seem very harmful, when a person's eyes are blindfolded, all their senses about the outside world are amplified. Over time, it can even create a terrifying feeling that the dripping water is penetrating the skull. While Haba was enduring the torture of being dripped with water, Yang Ming checked the system messages. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Tokyo Ghoul. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to activate the prize wheel? A prize wheel appeared, but there were very few prizes on it. Prizes, RC cells, Hercules pods. RC cells. Before Yang Ming could even check the prize he had won in the lottery, the food cells in his body, like great white shark-smelling fish, opened their mouths and devoured all the RC cells that had merged into his body. The gourmet cells provided excellent feedback, strengthening Yang Ming's body at the cellular level. Yang Ming could feel that his physical fitness had improved significantly. Clenching his fist and feeling the power in his hand, Yang Ming secretly speculated that the enhancement brought by the gourmet cells had at least saved him a year of arduous training. Yang Ming frowned as he smelled a foul odor permeating the air. He turned his head sharply and glanced at Haba. Haba's pants were soaked, and his legs were cramping slightly. Judging that the other party had reached his limit, and if the dripping torture continued, he would probably be tortured into a fool, so Yang Ming turned off the tap and removed the towel covering Haba's eyes. Upon regaining his sight, Haba burst into tears. Haba has never felt the beauty of life as much as he does now. If he could do it all over again, he definitely wouldn't have been so tough on these Navy men. Yang Ming took paper and a pen from the hardware store, threw them in front of Haba, and said, You should be able to write, right? Tell me the truth. Haba looked at Yang Ming with awe. He had really misjudged him. He never expected that this seemingly harmless child would actually be the most terrifying one among the Navy. To avoid being subjected to the same water-dripping torture again, Haba gripped the pen and shakily wrote crooked words on the paper. The level of knowledge penetration in this world is not high. Page 21. Despite being in charge of an important base station, Haba had little formal education, and his handwriting was simply appalling. Yang Ming took the intelligence report and studied it for a long time before he could barely understand it. The second wrench on the third row of the counter on the left side of the hardware store is the mechanism to open the basement. Turning it clockwise once will open the basement door, where half of the human slaves have been transferred to Tom's shipbuilding company. Having obtained this information, the group quickly located the wrench. Crack. Turn the wrench clockwise once, and the wall behind the hardware store's workbench splits open to the left and right, revealing a winding staircase leading downwards. As you descend the stairs, the air gradually becomes polluted. 2 pirates were guarding the basement. Perhaps due to their years of pampered life, they had lost their vigilance and continued to drink and eat meat, showing no reaction to the Marines who came to the basement. A drunken pirate, with bleary eyes, said, "Huh, why are there people in the basement again? Didn't they just take away a batch of goods a while ago?" No sooner had the pirate finished speaking than a bullet pierced his head. The moment the other pirate heard the gunshot, he immediately sobered up. However, all that awaited him was a cold bullet. Pfft. The pirate was also shot in the forehead, his head tilted to the side, and his face fell directly onto a plate of delicious food on the table. Dottie Mazdasan blew on the muzzle of the gun, then twirled the flintlock pistol in his hand before tucking it into the holster on his waist. The basement was cold and damp, and inside the iron bars, a group of slaves were imprisoned according to different types of goods. Young and strong men, children, young girls in their prime, and beautiful women with excellent looks and figures. Elderly people are clearly a type of worthless commodity, so there are no elderly people in the basement. To prevent these imprisoned slaves from rioting, they were only given 1 meal a day in the basement, keeping them constantly hungry and weak. When Yang Ming and his 6 companions arrived at the basement, most of the prisoners were curled up in a corner sleeping, in order to reduce physical exertion and avoid feeling hungry or uncomfortable. Seeing how emaciated and pale these people were, everyone's expressions turned rather grim. They are all young, and they all have their own sense of justice. They cannot accept that their compatriots have fallen to this state. Tina retrieved a set of keys from the pirate's corpse and unlocked the iron bars one by one, saying, "We are the Navy, we've come to rescue you." A little girl woke up with a start, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and said, "Am I dreaming?" Seeing the little girl dressed in thin clothes and shivering from the cold, Tina hugged her tightly, letting her own body warmth transfer to her, and said, "Don't worry, this isn't a dream." The others woke up one after another, staggered out of the iron fence, and went back into the hardware store down the stairs. Many people wept with joy upon regaining their freedom and seeing the long-lost sunshine outside. Yang Ming glanced around and saw Haba lying in a pool of blood, with the pen he had used to write intelligence sticking out of his neck. His brows furrowed slightly. Even from this glimpse, it's clear that Doflamingo possesses a certain degree of skill in managing his subordinates. Looking at the hastily written intelligence report in his hand, Yang Ming muttered to himself, "Tom Shipbuilding Company. How did this get involved with them?" Yang Ming and his 6 men first contacted the Navy station near Water 7 and asked them to come and pick up the slaves. They then arranged for the slaves to return home one by one and headed straight for Tom Shipbuilding Company. Tom Shipbuilding Company, a world-renowned company, is located in the heart of Water 7. From afar, you can see the distinctive horned fishman logo of the Tom Shipbuilding Company. It has to be said that in this world, regardless of race, everyone likes to show off their most distinctive features, whether it's to make a pirate flag or to use it as a company logo. Upon arriving at the Tom Shipbuilding Company's premises, one hears a series of clanging sounds as a group of shipwrights busily build new ships, creating a lively and bustling scene. A group of fishmen, with strength 10 times that of ordinary people, carried a batch of materials needed for shipbuilding. Asborg rode on the iron ladder with a mouthful of screws in his mouth, holding a hammer in his right hand and taking the wooden plank handed to him by the merman in his left. He removed the screws from his mouth and nailed them firmly to the plank. Ispago gave the newcomer a thumbs up and said, "Makuro, thanks to your help, otherwise the construction period would probably have been extended this time." Makuro is a type of fishman who swallows eels. He has algae green skin, an ugly appearance with small eyes and a big mouth. He wears a white and purple square scarf over his head and only has a simple set of work clothes, which vaguely reveal his muscular chest. Makuro scratched the back of his head, gave a shy smile, and said, "You're too kind. If it weren't for Uncle Tom's willingness to take us in, we would still be wandering around without a home." Suddenly, a commotion arose at the entrance of the company's premises. Acebag came down the iron ladder, stretched his slightly numb legs, and walked towards the entrance of the company compound. "Is someone causing trouble?" At first, when he saw a group of company shipwrights gathered at the entrance of the camp, Ispago thought that someone had come to cause trouble. But when Ispago pushed through the crowd and stepped out from the crowd, he found that things were not so simple. 6 brightly dressed men and women stood at the company entrance. The young man at the head of the group, holding a naval identification card, said expressionlessly, "Based on clues provided by our informants, we now suspect that your Tom Shipbuilding Company is secretly involved in human slavery and is suspected of engaging in human trafficking with the great pirate Doflamingo." The group of shipwrights, armed with hammers and other weapons, glared angrily at Yang Ming. "Fart." Frankie, hands on his hips, shouted angrily, "Our Tom Shipbuilding Company has always operated in an honest and upright manner. How could we possibly be involved in human trafficking?" You are completely slandering us. I'm starting to doubt whether you guys are even in the Navy. Frankie was one of Tom's procs, and his remarks, to some extent, represented the attitude of Tom's shipbuilding company. The shipwrights were in high spirits. If they weren't worried that Yang Ming and his 6 companions were actually from the Navy, these burly shipwrights would probably have already rushed forward and given them a good lesson. Even some members of the Blade's Edge squad felt a slight wavering. Before coming to Tom's shipbuilding company, the Blade Point squad had already done some research. The profits that Tom's shipbuilding company made from building new ships and repairing existing ships each year far exceeded the profits from human trafficking, so there was no need for them to take the risk. Espago straightened his slightly disheveled clothes and approached Yang Ming and his group of 6. He carefully examined the naval identification card in Yang Ming's hand, which bore the seal of the naval headquarters and was impossible to fake. He couldn't help but give a wry smile and said, "My lords, I suspect there might be some misunderstanding involved." The other 5 people all turned their gazes to Yang Ming, leaving the decision to him. Yang Ming was somewhat hesitant. According to the original story, Tom's shipbuilding company had nothing to do with human trafficking, and it seemed that it was all a prank by Haba. Chapter 23 War, No Need for Words. Death, regardless of bloodline. Seeing the boy fall into a brief silence, Espago gave Frankie a wink. These 2 brothers have a deep relationship, they can understand each other with just a glance. Frankie clenched his fist, raised his right arm high, and shouted, "Navy, get out." The shipwrights at Tom's shipyard were already seething with anger, and Frankie's words were exactly what they wanted to hear. They raised their arms and shouted in unison, "Navy, get out." For a time, the momentum was immense. It's human nature to enjoy a good spectacle, and Tom's shipbuilding company and the Navy were both easy targets for attention. The conflict between the 2 sides quickly attracted the attention of people nearby, and even newspaper reporters rushed over to capture the first-hand news. The members of the Blade Point squad looked solemn. Smoker, Drake, and Tina were relatively young and lacked social experience. Faced with the imposing drive away by the shipwrights from Tom's shipbuilding company, they were already wavering on Haba's one-sided story, and now they couldn't help but back down. Seeing this, Espago seized the opportunity to propose. "My lords, we've become friends through a fight, so why don't I host you all for a visit to the company another day? That would help dispel some of the prejudices people have against us." Espago and Frankie played the roles of good cop and bad cop, respectively. Those unaware of the situation might mistakenly believe that Espago was adept at interpersonal relationships, knowing how to give the Navy a way out while preserving its dignity. Just as Yang Ming was hesitating, his gaze passed over Espag and suddenly fell on Makuro, the eel-swallowing fishman behind him, and all his doubts were resolved. The Sun Pirates can be roughly divided into 3 factions. The largest faction was led by the Fishman hero Fisher Tiger, an idealistic group that believed that fishmen could only coexist with humans under the same blue sky if they let go of hatred and prejudice. This faction was later inherited by Jinbi, who became a Shishibukai. The second-ranked faction is a group led by the Evil Dragon. They are filled with hatred for humans and are fanatical and extreme advocates of the race. They arrogantly believe that fishmen are inherently superior to humans and that humans should unconditionally submit to the rule of fishmen. The last faction is led by Makuro. They are neither idealists nor advocates of fishman's supremacy. Instead, they inflict harm on others based on their own experience of being enslaved by the celestial dragons, and are keen on being human traffickers. When Makuro met the boy's deep eyes, his heart skipped a beat, and for some reason, a huge sense of unease suddenly welled up inside him. During his time infiltrating Tom's shipbuilding company, Makuro had developed a strong nerve and good acting skills. Although he had a bad feeling, he still wore a simple and honest smile. Anyone who sees Makulo's expression would mistake him for a big, simple-minded idiot. Yang Ming smiled slightly, his gaze sharpening as he looked directly at Acebag standing before him and said, "Our Navy has always acted in accordance with justice, and will never let any criminal go unpunished, nor will it ever wrong any innocent person. Mr. Acebag, I would like to ask if you are aware that the group of fishmen employed by your Tom Company are actually from the Sun Pirates." As soon as Yang Ming finished speaking, Makulo's expression froze. The other fishmen didn't have Makuro's composure. As soon as Yang Ming pointed out their true identities, they knew that their identities had been exposed. Espago's lips twitched slightly, as if he was about to offer an explanation. Unfortunately, these fishmen pirates, who always keep their heads on their hips, are a bunch of desperate men. Seeing that their plan was about to be exposed, their eyes suddenly flashed with a terrifying ferocity. 2 fishmen crept up behind Yang Ming, then raised their iron hammers and smashed them hard against the back of Yang Ming's head. Page 22. Acebag was stunned. What's it like to have a bunch of terrible teammates? Waiting online, very anxious. Acebag really wanted to tell these fishmen that it didn't matter if they were members of the Sun Pirates, and that he would do everything he could to protect them. Who told them they were from the same hometown as Teacher Tom? However, arguing with the Navy is one thing, attacking the Navy is another. The former would at most wear down the patience of these sailors. As long as Tom Shipbuilding Company denied it outright and resolutely refused to allow the Navy to inspect, there would be no problem. With Tom Shipbuilding Company's prestigious reputation, the Navy would have to consider the impact and would not dare to act arrogantly or violently. The latter not only confessed without being asked, but also provoked the behemoth that is the Navy. Whether or not the boy in front of them is successfully ambushed by the two fish men, it means that Tom Shipbuilding Company is in big trouble. Espago was a man of many thoughts, and in an instant he thought of many possible things that might happen next, and he secretly groaned in despair. The sound of wind cutting through the air reached Yang Ming's ears. It was as if he had eyes in the back of his head, and his long, slender fingers, which were already resting on the hilt of his sword, suddenly clenched tightly. Clang! The moment the standard-issue longsword is drawn from its sheath, a spark ignites from the tip, followed by intense flames that spread along the blade, enveloping the entire sword and transforming it into a powerful, fiery sword. Yang Ming took a deep breath, and under the flame breath, a large amount of oxygen was inhaled into his body, and his physical activity suddenly increased. Immediately afterwards, Yang Ming used his right foot as a support and spun his body clockwise, his flaming sword slicing out a vortex of fiery slash. Fourth form, blazing flame vortex. The two mermen only saw a blinding flash of light before their eyes, and then a scorching stream of flames engulfed them completely. Two charred corpses collapsed to the ground, the iron hammers they had been holding clinking as they rolled to the side. Feeling that he was not as weak as before, Yang Ming secretly guessed that it might be because his physical condition had improved further and he had begun to gradually adapt to the aftereffects of the flame breathing. Looking at the two corpses at his feet, Yang Ming couldn't help but praise them, acknowledging that the fishmen were indeed more powerful than humans by nature. Even the T-Beard boss, with a bounty of 1,700 million berries, was reduced to ashes after taking a direct hit from his fiery slash. However, these two fishmen were just ordinary members of the Sun Pirates, and his fire slashes were unable to burn them to ashes, which shows that the fishmen race does indeed have a unique physique. A ring of flames remained on the ground, still burning fiercely, like loyal guards protecting their king. Amidst the flames, Yang Ming, dressed in a crisp white training uniform with only a black belt binding his waist, slightly raised his flaming sword, pointing it diagonally at the Sun Pirates, and issuing commands to Smoker and his four companions. Arrest them and bring them to justice. Upon hearing this, Smoker and his four companions snapped out of their daze and immediately began to take action. Drake glanced at Yang Ming with a complicated expression, thinking to himself, was all of this within his expectations? This brat, no, this man, is truly terrifyingly profound. Even Drake himself probably didn't realize that he had unknowingly lost the hostility he felt towards Yang Ming at the beginning of the Naval Academy, and instead developed a genuine sense of respect for him. The situation on the field changed in an instant, so fast that all the shipwrights at Tom's Shipbuilding Company were caught off guard. One moment he was an honest and kind fisherman laborer, how did he turn into a vicious pirate in the blink of an eye? The general public is simple and honest, and has no liking for pirates. Most of the shipwrights, watching the two sides locked in fierce combat, would probably have joined the Navy and attacked the Sun Pirates if it weren't for their past friendship. The fact that they chose to stand by and watch was already a sign of their camaraderie. A few shipwrights, represented by Espago, tried to stop it, but it was too late. If Espago were to step forward to help the Sun Pirates, it would mean that Tom Shipbuilding Company has deep ties with pirates, and would soon face scrutiny from both the world government and the Navy. Because Tom had built the Golden Jackson for the pirate king Roger when he was young, Tom Shipbuilding Company was questioned by the world government and criticized by people all over the world, almost leading to the company's dissolution. If it weren't for the groundbreaking product of the sea train, Tom would probably have been sent to the gallows long ago. If, at this time, more unfavorable news about Tom Shipbuilding emerges from the outside world. As soon as Espago put his mind to it and thought about the consequences, he felt a headache coming on. The 4 main sea-crossing railway lines will be officially opened next year. Why did this have to happen at this time? Espago was pulling at his hair, almost devastated. Makulo cracked his wrists, making a series of popping sounds. Standing beside him were 2 tall, muscular fishmen, even more robust and powerful than ordinary fishmen, who were Makuro's right-hand men. Goldfish sword technique, Gara. Karate master Tans. Makuro originally thought that with their Sun Pirates' large numbers, dealing with a mere 6 Marines would be a piece of cake. However, the situation on the battlefield was far beyond Makuro's expectations. The members of the Sun Pirates did not show an overwhelming advantage. Instead, they got bogged down in the battle and were locked in a stalemate. Makuro's expression turned cold, and he grinned maliciously at the black-haired, black-eyed boy in front of him. You brat, how dare you ruin my... Before Makulo could finish speaking, Yang Ming vanished from his sight. Flash. Yang Ming suddenly appeared behind Makulo and swung his sword without hesitation. That strike was both ruthless and swift. The blade tore through the slippery fish scales and tough muscles, leaving a burn wound that smelled sweet. The remaining flames on the wound tried to spread, but were extinguished by the viscous fluid secreted from Makuro's body. Although he escaped unscathed, Makulo was left in a sorry state. Yang Ming slashed his blade diagonally, the tip pointing directly at Makuro's eyes, and said coldly, "War, no need for further words. Death has nothing to do with bloodline. Chapter 24 Dragon Bloodline. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Thick liquid kept secreting from Makuro's wounds, making a sizzling sound when it came into contact with the flames on his body. The eel-eating fishman is a very peculiar fishman. Their jaw muscles are extremely developed, allowing them to easily open their mouths wide and swallow their prey. The food they eat is stored in their stomachs. Furthermore, since the eel-eating fishman does not have the problem of bones like ribs, it can transform the stomach acid in its stomach into this special viscous liquid in some way. This liquid can be used as a potent poison to fight enemies, or as a miraculous medicine to heal its own wounds. Smelly brat. Makuro stared intently at the boy in front of him, pulled 2 iron rods from his waist, joined them together, and activated a hidden mechanism on the rods. A spearhead made of deep-sea iron sprang out from the rods, gleaming coldly in the sunlight. Makulo moved with perfect harmony between his waist and horse, wielding his spear with the grace of a dragon. His 2 right-hand men wanted to help, but Smoker and Tina blocked them. Smoker, a cigar dangling from his lips, surrounded by smoke that gradually blurred his features, said, "This road is closed to traffic." Upon seeing this, the expressions of Goldfish Swordsman Garo and Karate Master Tan's immediately darkened. He's a Logia-type devil fruit user. Nevertheless, neither of them panicked. The Sun Pirates were no small, unsophisticated pirate crew. Karate Master Tan slowly put on a pair of brass knuckles, made of sea stone, which were not cheap on the black market. He assumed the starting stance of Fishman Karate, and the battle was about to begin. Ding! The system notification sound followed almost simultaneously with the sound of clashing knives and guns. Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Dota. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to start the prize wheel? The spear was blocked by the flaming sword. When Makulo realized that Yang Ming had only taken 7 steps back to dissipate the force transmitted from the spear tip, he was secretly shocked. Fishmen are 10 times stronger than normal humans. Makuro originally thought that his opponent was just a brat with skill but no substance. He didn't expect that his opponent, at such a young age, would have such strength and be able to withstand his full-force attack. Yang Ming twirled the knife, using it to revitalize his numb hands. The fishman's strength is truly astonishing. If I hadn't recently increased my strength significantly, I probably wouldn't have been able to withstand that shot. While dealing with Makuro's aggressive and fiery gunplay, Yang Ming quickly glanced at the lottery wheel that appeared out of the corner of his eye. It had 3 categories of prizes: hero skins, hero skills, and equipment items. Hero skins: Magic Crystal, Spirit Forest, Raging Thunder. Hero skills: Time Barrier, Dragon Bloodline, Black Hole. Equipment and items: Archangel Sword, Crusader's Shield, Dragon Slayer Sword. Makulo noticed that Yang Ming was momentarily stunned, and while he was annoyed, he couldn't help but feel a surge of secret joy. Take advantage of his illness and kill him. Like other fishmen, Makuro does not wear shoes because his feet are webbed. The moment the viscous fluid seeped through the soles of his feet, it reduced the friction between Makuro's feet and the ground, allowing him to close in as quickly as if he were ice skating, his spear striking unexpectedly. Just then, the lottery results were announced. Dragon Bloodline. Dragon blood flows through your veins, giving you powerful regenerative abilities and the ability to freely unfold or conceal your dragon scales. The moment the dragon factor imprinted in the DNA was injected into Yang Ming's body, it first resonated strongly with Long Ming's passive voice. Yen. Yang Mingxiang's body trembled. To Makuro's astonishment, the spear in his hand had clearly passed the barrier of the flaming sword and pierced Yang Ming's chest, but the feeling transmitted from the spear tip was not the expected pleasure of piercing flesh and blood. Instead, it was as if he had plunged his head into hard steel. The force of the impact made his hands feel a little sore. Makulo abruptly raised his head, staring at the boy whose feet had plowed 2 scorched tracks into the ground, and murmured, "Page 23. What's going on?" Makuro stared at the hole in Yang Ming's clothes, pierced by the spear tip. What was revealed wasn't human skin, but rather the scales of some kind of snake. Makuro had never seen a dragon before, so he couldn't immediately identify the origin of the scales. Yang Ming glanced down at the dragon scale that had been struck by the spear tip. Only a white mark remained. He thought to himself, "I never expected that my defense would be greatly improved after the dragon scales were stacked with iron blocks and the dragon roar passive skill. My current state is comparable to activating armament haki, isn't it? If I ever learn armament haki." Seeing Makulo thrust his spear at him again, Yang Ming immediately swung his sword to meet the attack. The 2 sides exchanged blows, and the sounds of clashing swords and spears were incessant. After Gara, wielding the goldfish swordsmanship, severely wounded Tina with a single strike, he saw that Makuro was struggling to subdue the black-haired, black-eyed boy and was having an extremely difficult time fighting him. Disregarding the possibility of taking Tina's life, he rushed to her aid. He walked around behind Yang Ming and exchanged a smile with Makulo. The two have been partners for many years and need not say much. Makulo shouted, his spear flashing and creating a series of afterimages as he tried to distract Yang Ming. Even though the dragon bloodline provides formidable defense, it cannot completely cover areas like the eyes. Once the spear tip pierces the eyes, it can directly damage Yang Ming's brain. Taking advantage of this moment, the golden fish swordsman, Gallo, like a venomous snake waiting for its chance, suddenly darted out of the bushes, her sword silently approaching behind Yang Ming's head. Clearly, when Gara was fighting Tina, she was also paying attention to the battle here and had already noticed the strangeness about Yang Ming. In order to avoid her attacks failing to harm Yang Ming's body, she aimed at his head. Pirate crews that can make a name for themselves on the Grand Line are not ordinary people, even if they are just ordinary members. However, neither of them noticed one thing. From the moment Yang Ming killed the two fisherman pirates who initially ambushed him, he had never used his full strength. Yang Ming gripped the hilt of the knife with both hands, raised the blade above his head, stood with his legs shoulder-width apart and his knees slightly bent. The pendant at his waist swayed, and the rhomboid ruby shimmered with a burning light. Fifth form, Flame Tiger. Scorching flames rose from beneath Yang Ming's feet, coiling around his body like a fiery python. Scorching heat waves rolled in, and the air seemed slightly distorted. The hot wind made Yang Ming's bangs flutter, and his dark eyes reflected the raging fire. He was like a ruthless and fiery king, capable of inflicting devastating blows on his enemies when enraged. Feeling the heat wave rushing towards them, even the two mermen attacking from both sides slowed their pace slightly out of instinct. Fishmen dislike fire, not only because it is their nature, but also because of an instinctive resistance. Under the command of the Flame King, the raging flames, like a tiger unleashed from its cage, pounced on the golden fish swordsman Gallo who was attacking from behind. Before the poor creature could even let out a scream, it was burned to a crisp. Emboldened by this achievement, Yenhu charged at Makuro once again. The surrounding air temperature rose sharply, even causing a momentary difficulty in breathing, clearly due to a rapid increase in the consumption of oxygen in the air. Makuro felt extremely dehydrated, which is not a good sign for a fishman. Fight! Makuro gritted his teeth and thrust his spear forward with all his might. This was not a heroic act, rather, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, and seemed rather ridiculous. The spear scattered a few sparks, but for the ferocious Flame Tiger, which was at the height of its power, it only caused a minor scratch. Pfft! Makuro followed in his companion's footsteps, collapsing to the ground charred black, emitting a wisp of burnt smoke. Yang Ming slowly sheathed his sword, then belatedly slapped his forehead and exclaimed in surprise. "Oh no, I forgot to hold back. Could this guy be dead?" Upon hearing this, Makuro's lips twitched violently, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted. Yang Ming squatted down and pointed his finger at the other person's nose for a moment. Despite being severely injured and barely breathing, Makuro managed to stay alive thanks to his superior physique compared to other fishmen. Seeing his two accomplices, Makuro and Garo the goldfish swordsman, fall one after another, and his other subordinates also fall to Drake and his two companions, the karate master Tan's calm state of mind was suddenly shattered, and he immediately revealed a fatal flaw, which Smoker accurately seized upon. White smoke swirled around the arms of karate master Tan's, and then Smoker appeared behind him. Before Smoker could pin the enemy to the ground and put shackles on him, Tina came over carrying the injured body and delivered several whip kicks, making Karate Master Tan's face swell up and almost turn into a pig's head. Hiss! Seeing that Karate Master Tan's looked like he had just had a cosmetic surgery, Smoker gasped. Women are truly terrifying creatures. Smoker thought that Tina wouldn't hear him because he was speaking softly. To his surprise, Tina stopped in her tracks and turned around abruptly as soon as he finished speaking. "Smoker, say that again if you dare." Smoker gave an awkward smile. What else could he say? When Yang Ming arrived, Smoker witnessed the multifaceted nature of women. Tina pulled Yang Ming into a tight embrace, letting him experience what it meant to have a loving and compassionate heart. "My little man is the best. He came to my aid the moment he saw I was injured." Smoker opened his mouth, but in the end, it turned into a sigh. They were so caught up in the joy of their victory that they didn't notice a group of journalists suddenly appearing in the crowd and quickly snapping photos of the scene. One of the reporters slipped out of the crowd, went into a quiet alley, and took out a den mushi. "Please report to the young master that the plan has been initially successful." Chapter 25. Before dawn arrives, someone must light up the darkness. General. A large, broad hand gripped a black knight, forcefully capturing the white king on the chessboard. Doflamingo withdrew his hand, stretched his fingers together, then lay back on the sofa, crossed his legs, narrowed his eyes behind his sunglasses, and looked at the person opposite him with a smile. "Morgans, it seems I've won this round." The figure sitting opposite Doflamingo appeared in the form of an albatross, wearing a black top hat with a red and white feather stuck upside down, a blue shirt underneath, a black cape over it, a yellow tie around his neck, and red and white checkered trousers. Seemingly annoyed by his defeat in chess, the man's once neatly groomed feathers were now slightly disheveled, indicating that he was not at ease at the moment. The New World is a place where order and chaos coexist. Besides the bustling trade on the surface, the constant warfare has spawned a multitude of shady businesses, creating countless arms dealers and loan sharks in the underworld. Over the years, only 6 people have been able to stand out from these arms dealers and loan sharks. They are known as the 6 kings of the underworld, and they control 6 major areas: currency, assassins, entertainment, intelligence, goods, and transportation in most parts of the world. Morgans, president of the World Economic News Agency, is also one of the 6 kings of the underworld. Morgans, displeased, swept all the chess pieces off the board, his sharp eyes fixed on the unfathomable man before him, and said, "Joker, you didn't invite me here today just to make fun of me, did you?" "Of course, no." Doflamingo revealed a mocking smile and said exaggeratedly, "Look how serious you look just now. Do you think we can't take a joke like this after all these years of friendship?" Morgans rolled his eyes and got up to leave. Just then, a broad hand landed on Morgan's shoulder, and Doflamingo's warm breath reached his ear. "I'd like to know the routes used by various countries to transport gold from the sky this year. The 170 member states of the world government are required to hand over a portion of their wealth to the celestial dragons every year, euphemistically called celestial gold. Although the Navy will dispatch escort fleets to help transport the celestial gold, the Navy is usually very busy and cannot plan the transport routes of all member states in advance. Therefore, this task will be entrusted to each member state to handle itself. To avoid being robbed of their celestial treasures by pirates along the way, each member state begins designing and initially finalizing its shipping routes at the beginning of each year. Such top-secret information is impossible for others to obtain. But Morgans, known as the head of intelligence, was an exception. No one outside knows what Doflamingo and Morgan Smith discussed during their hour-long conversation. After Morgans flew away, Tori Pole emerged from the shadows. "Young master, our messengers have reported that Zifaw's Blade Point squad has taken the bait we deliberately laid out." Upon hearing this, Doflamingo burst into laughter. "I'm increasingly looking forward to seeing what kind of expression that insatiable Spandam will have when he hears this news. Human sorrows and joys are not interlinked. Some are happy, some are sad." After Yang Ming and his 6 companions defeated the 3 leaders led by Makuro, the remaining fishmen confessed to the crimes committed by their Sun Pirates crew in front of Yang Ming's benevolent smile. They also revealed the address where the slaves transported from Haba Hardware Store were hidden, which turned out to be near the terminal station of the sea train that Yang Ming's group had taken in Water 7. At first, Frankie and Espago couldn't believe it, but they insisted on following Yang Ming and his group of 6 to the dock near Sylph Station. A group of journalists, like cats that smell fish, followed them all the way there. 10 fishermen remained at the dock, partly to monitor the human slaves imprisoned inside the containers, and partly to use the act of moving goods as a cover. The 10 fishmen crumbled at the first touch and were subsequently shackled. The group arrived in front of rows of shipping containers, lifted the curtains covering them, and immediately revealed the scene inside. Dozens of beautiful women stayed inside the container, some of them raising their arms to shield their eyes from the light. The beauties here cover a wide range, pure and lovely, alluring and seductive, mature and charming, demure and graceful, with a timeless charm. There are only those you haven't seen before, and those you can't even imagine. When people saw that the container was holding a large number of beautiful women, they couldn't help but gasp in astonishment. Frankie and Espago looked grim. "This dock is all owned by Tom Shipbuilding Company. These fishmen are utterly despicable for doing this." Page 24. What happened today left a very deep impression on Espago, so much so that when he later founded Carrera, he resolutely refused to hire fishermen as employees. Numerous journalists raised their cameras and snapped photos, their blinding flashes capturing the expressions of these 2 of Master Tom's last disciples, creating a stark contrast with the pitiful beauties in the shipping containers behind them. They were recording the scene before them with great interest, while already thinking about the news to be published on the front page the next day. Shocking. Master Tom's 2 close disciples were caught doing this with multiple beautiful women at the same time. Is this a sign of moral decay or a decline in ethics? Jonathan carefully observed the surroundings and quickly counted the number of beauties in the container. Jonathan has a good memory, and the number of beauties is vastly different from the number of slaves held in the basement of the Haba Hardware Store. If Haba's initial intelligence was correct, it means that someone had already been secretly taken away from here. "Captain, one of the ships that has recently come to this dock must be a pirate ship, carrying away a small number of people as slaves." "Impossible." Upon hearing this, before Yang Ming could speak, Espargo retorted to Jonathan. Yang Ming and the others all turned to look at him. Espago smiled wryly and quickly waved his hand, saying, "Don't look at me like that, like you would look at a suspect. The reason I denied it is because most of the containers at this dock contain resources needed for the recent major construction on an ice lobby. Only ships from an ice lobby dock here to retrieve these items. You can't say that an ice lobby is a den of iniquity, can you?" Quiet. Silence. When Espago finished speaking, everyone seemed to be frozen in time. The reporters' eyes lit up, as if they had heard some earth-shattering news. They forgot about taking pictures and quickly took out their notebooks to write it down. Whether these human slaves are being transported to an ice lobby or not, why not just ask these fishmen pirates? Yang Ming drew his sword, the tip almost touching the neck of a merman. The merman's panicked expression was reflected in the 2-finger-wide blade. "You agree, don't you?" Faced with Yang Minghe's kind smile, the fishman's legs went weak with fear. He had just witnessed firsthand how this young man had completely shattered their resistance with overwhelming force, so he dared not hide anything and immediately confessed everything. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I'll talk, I'll talk. I heard from Brother Makuro that the best-looking and best-figured human women among these goods were all taken by the officers of CP9. To avoid attracting outside attention, the CP9 commander deliberately announced that he was going to carry out a large-scale construction project on an ice lobby. He applied for a large sum of money to purchase a lot of building materials and stored them at this dock. Every time the ice lobby transport ship arrived, we would secretly hide several human women in one of the containers." The media reporters were in an uproar. Without hesitation, they threw their drafted front-page news articles to the back of their minds. Some reporters even eagerly asked the boy who appeared to be the leader of the group. "This action by an ice lobby is tantamount to defiling the word justice. Can the Navy uphold its consistent sense of justice and save the girl who has gone astray on an ice lobby?" The moment the reporter posed that question, Yang Ming immediately felt all eyes on him. Dozens of newly rescued women helped each other up, their eyes filled with eager anticipation. More than anyone, they hoped the Navy would step forward and rescue the poor girls from an ice lobby. Espago and Frankie seemed somewhat silent, but also filled with a certain expectation. They were, after all, just ordinary shipwrights, and they also had their own female relatives. None of them wanted to see their women become slaves or playthings of the privileged someday. Why do ordinary people still have such expectations of the Navy despite the corruption of world governments? Nothing else. There are only two words: justice. Although there are some scoundrels in the Navy, they ultimately protect the safety of the majority of ordinary people. The word justice may seem light and simple, but behind it lies the sacrifice of countless passionate individuals who forged it with their own bodies and blood. Yang Ming was well aware that his next answer would be crucial. If you just want to go with the flow and live an ordinary life as a Navy officer, you can easily pass the buck and pass the problem to others. However, if he wanted to change this already rotten world, Yang Ming knew that he couldn't do it alone. He needed a group of strong followers to build his own power. Loyalty gained by subduing others through force is merely false loyalty. Only lofty ideals and goals established with a shared vision can truly unite people's hearts. Yang Ming looked around and saw approval in the eyes of his 5 friends. No matter what decision he made next, they would stand firmly on the same side as Yang Ming. Yang Ming drew his sword and slashed the blade across the web of his left hand. He raised his blood-stained left hand, his face grim, and said, "No one can tarnish the word justice. Not me, not the Navy, and certainly not an ice lobby. Before dawn arrives, someone must light up the darkness. No matter who the other party is or how powerful their backing is, I will make them pay the price they deserve." Chapter 26, For Justice, Heading to an Ice Lobby. Before dawn arrives, someone must light up the darkness. Our justice and honor lie in protecting ordinary people. A fist slammed heavily into his chest, blood spurting from his hand and staining his clothes. The stern-faced young man solemnly swore an oath to the world. "We will storm an ice lobby and rescue the girls who have gone astray. We will defend our honor with our blood." Behind the boy, 5 male and female naval officers stood with their feet planted firmly on their feet and simultaneously pounded their fists into their chests. Sunlight cast its glow upon the 6 young naval personnel, as if gilding them with a thin layer of gold, making them appear sacred and solemn. A group of journalists, their eyes gleaming, snapped photos of the scene before them. Driven by a desire for justice, the new generation of naval officers are determined to storm an ice lobby and seek justice for the innocent civilians who have been enslaved. If these reporters had just used their brains, they would have known that this news would definitely become tomorrow's headline story that would amaze the world. Having obtained the news material they wanted, the reporters scattered like birds and beasts. While handing over the dozens of captured fishmen pirates to the local navy, Yang Ming took a moment to check the system notifications. Ding! Congratulations, host, for reciting a classic line from Genshin Impact. You have been awarded 1 chance to draw a prize. Would you like to activate the prize wheel? A lottery wheel that looked quite familiar to Yang Ming appeared. The prizes on the lottery wheel are divided into several categories: summoned characters, artifacts, items, talent skills, and skins. Summoned characters: Jean, Diluc, Klee, Venti, Mona. Relics: Flower of Life, Feather of Death, Sands of Time, Goblet of Emptiness, Crown of Reason. Items: Eye of God, Wind Catcher, Pocket Anchor. Innate skills: West Wind Swordsmanship, Wind Pressure Sword, Dandelion Wind, Traveling with the Wind. Skins: Sea Breeze Dream, Shining Concerto, Orchid in Gauze. The Witch's Everlasting Feather, one of the Witch's artifact sets. 1/4. Collect both pieces for the set bonus, gain 15% Pyro DMG bonus. Collect all 4 pieces for the following effects: increases damage dealt by overload, burning, and blazing reactions by 40%, increases the bonus coefficient of vaporize and melt reactions by 15%, and increases the effect of the 2-piece set bonus by 50% for 10 seconds after using an elemental skill. This effect can stack up to 3 times. A fiery red feather landed in Yang Ming's hand and then merged into his body. In the continent of Tivat, there are rumors about the ever-burning feather of a witch. The fiery red bird feathers, endlessly scorched and crumbling, will never be burned out, no matter how long they burn. Because she chose the path of hellfire, only ashes remain in the field she has traversed. Yang Ming's plan to risk his life to attack an ice lobby is no different from this rumor. An ice lobby is an institution directly under the world government. Even if Yang Ming has a high-sounding excuse, attacking an ice lobby would damage the world government's reputation. The cost and consequences of this are unimaginable, and it could even lead to Yang Ming losing his naval identity. But Yang Ming still chose to do so without hesitation, which was equivalent to choosing a path of hellfire, where an unpredictable darkness lay ahead. Someone must burn away all the pain before new hope can be brought forth. Yang Ming clenched his fists, thinking to himself. As the fishmen pirates, their hands shackled, were dejectedly handed over to the garrison marines, the marines bowed to Yang Ming and his 6 companions as they departed. Logically speaking, many of them held higher military ranks than Yang Ming and the other 6, so they had no need to do such a thing. However, they had already heard about Yang Ming's previous actions, and anyone with a sense of justice would have to respect this young naval officer. The major leading the group watched the 6 figures gradually disappear into the distance, thinking to himself, regardless of whether you can rescue the girl who has gone astray, I will use all my connections to protect you from the world government's scrutiny at Marine headquarters. It's not just you who are defending your honor with your blood. Yang Ming's words about justice and honor, like dandelion seeds, will continue to spread to the hearts of navies around the world over time. One day, this undercurrent will form a force that will amaze the world. Before Yang Ming and his group of 6 had gone far, Icebagu arrived with a group of his trusted followers. If it weren't for the fact that Esbag was holding a brocade box in both hands, Smoker and the others would have almost thought that the other party was deliberately trying to cause trouble. Esbag forced a smile. Despite some friction and unpleasantness between the two, Yang Ming's resolute decision to go to a nice lobby to save the fallen girl completely moved the future mayor of Water 7. He slowly opened the brocade box, inside which lay a devil fruit and a ship deed, and said, 6 naval officers, these 2 gifts are not only a small token of my apology for what happened before, but also to support your righteous cause. Look at the extravagance of this Ispaga. It's outrageously wealthy. On the black market, devil fruits are generally priced at least 100 million berries. Rare mythical Zoan or Logia-type devil fruits can fetch billions or even tens of billions of berries. The ship deed was for a 3-mast sailing ship. Although it was far less expensive than a devil fruit, it was still worth tens of millions of berries. Page 25. Yang Ming took the brocade box, looked at Acebag with a half-smile, and asked in return, you wouldn't have given such a precious gift for just these 2 reasons, would you? Ispago looked at the boy in front of him with great surprise, not expecting him to be so intelligent. He didn't seem to mind that his thoughts had been exposed, but instead leaned close to Yang Ming's ear and whispered, if possible, please be ruthless towards that CP9 officer. That guy is occupying our company's dock and hasn't been paying us. Upon hearing this, Yang Ming smiled. In reality, Esbag was probably afraid that the CP9 commander would take his anger out on Tom Shipbuilding after this incident. There are some things that are better left unsaid. After bidding farewell to Ispaga, Yang Ming and his 6 companions found the 3-mast sailing ship in the ship deed at the dock. After the 6 people boarded the ship, Yang Ming placed the devil fruit on the table, looked at his 5 companions, and said, I don't plan to take a devil fruit. Whoever needs it can take it. Smoker, having already consumed the smoke fruit, refused outright. The other 4 looked at each other, hesitated for a moment, and then Tina slowly said, Yang Ming, could you please give me this devil fruit? Yang Ming directly stuffed the devil fruit into Tina's hand, a generous gesture that deeply moved her. Unlike most women, Tina didn't say anything extra, she simply gave Yang Ming a grateful look. The Navy had always known that one could gain a devil fruit power with just 1 bite, and since the taste was so unpleasant, Tina naturally didn't want to eat much, so she took a small bite. Tina closed her eyes, calming her nauseous stomach acid, while also experiencing the power granted by the devil fruit. The next instant, Tina opened her beautiful eyes, and with a sudden flick of her hand, jet-black iron pillars shot out one after another, forming a prison. The power of the cage fruit. It's surprisingly suitable for me. Amidst the envious gazes of the other 5, Tina suddenly pulled Yang Ming into her arms. Immediately afterwards, Yang Ming felt a fleeting moist sensation on his lips, and at the same time, Tina's magnetic voice rang in his ears. Thank you, my little man. No wind, no waves, no root, no grass. As the 3-mast sailing ship carrying 6 righteous sailors sailed toward a nice lobby, newsbirds flew around the world, delivering the latest news. Judicial Island. This is an island located in the first half of the Grand Line. The island houses a court directly under the world government. Although it is called a court, it actually acts solely according to the will of the world government. Anyone who is brought to a nice lobby is automatically considered a criminal, and in its 800-year history, no innocent person has ever been acquitted. Prisoners are escorted through empty courthouses until they reach a cold, massive steel gate, the gate of justice. Those who pass through this gate never return, symbolizing the absolute justice of the world government. No prisoner ever sent to a nice lobby ever returns alive. Because after setting sail from the Gate of Justice, there are only two places you can reach. One is the Marine Headquarters, the direct subordinate organization of the world government's main fighting force, and the other is the deep-sea prison, Impel Down, which is full of torture chambers and execution tables and imprisons the world's most heinous criminals. Inside the Tower of Justice, in the CP9 commander's office, a soft, seductive melody drifted out. A nice lobby shows no mercy to any prisoner, but our CP9 commander is keen to bestow mercy upon beautiful women. A CP9 agent in a suit and tie stood awkwardly outside the office door, holding a newspaper. If I go in like this, I'll definitely be killed by the officer, right? With their lives at stake, the agents knocked on the door. Thump thump thump, thump thump thump, thump thump thump. The sounds in the office abruptly ceased, followed by the rustling of clothes being put on. Spandam burst through the door, his face dark with anger. He glared at the agent who seemed to realize he had done something wrong and said coldly, "You'd better give me a reason, or you don't need to come to work tomorrow." The agent glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw that the room was filled with the scent of spring. After a moment of difficulty swallowing, the agent handed over the newspaper. "Sir, something terrible has happened." "What's the big deal? Why are you so panicked?" Spandam pursed his lips, took the newspaper, quickly glanced through it, and then, startled, sat down on the ground with a thud. The newspaper slipped from his hand and landed on the ground, its face showing the 6 men, with the headline written in bold black font. "Justice is served, the Navy heads for a nice lobby." The article detailed the long history of misdeeds on a nice lobby and the series of derelictions of duty committed by Spandam, the incumbent CP9 commander. Spandam's face contorted, and after crumpling the newspaper into a ball, he exclaimed, "Quickly, call Rob Lucci over here. I order him to kill these 6 sailors." Chapter 27, 400 years later, ideas can still change the world. The distance from Water 7 to a nice lobby isn't too far. As night fell, the 3-mast sailing ship had already sailed into the vicinity of a nice lobby. What's amazing is that while the outside world is a scene of dazzling starlight, the area around a nice lobby is a scene of daylight. Because of its characteristic of having no night and being perpetually daylight, a nice lobby is also known as the island that never sleeps. Yang Ming and his 6 companions stood on the deck, gazing at the distant outline of the island. The outer layer of Judiciary Island is surrounded by an iron fence, each iron pillar as thick as 2 people can hug, deeply embedded in the soft sand of the seabed, with one end protruding at least 20 meters above the sea level, blocking outside ships and allowing entry only through the main gate. A nice lobby can be roughly divided into 4 parts: the front island, the main island, the Tower of Justice, and the Bridge of Hesitation, as well as the Gate of Justice located at the back of the island. Just then, the Den Den Mushi on the desk rang. This is the Den Den Mushi that Chief Instructor Zephyr gave them before they left. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat, thinking that Chief Instructor Zifa had come to dissuade them, and they all turned their gazes to Yang Ming. Yang Ming calmly took the Den Den Mushi. The moment the call connected, a loud shout came from the Den Den Mushi from Chief Instructor Zephyr. "You brats, you think you've grown wings, huh? You didn't even inform me before heading to a nice lobby." Immediately, an indescribable silence fell over them. After a while, Chief Instructor Zifa's slightly tired voice came. "You bunch of brats, don't forget how I taught you at the Naval Academy. When you believe this is a just and necessary thing to do, then go ahead and do it. If the world government blames me, I'm willing to take full responsibility. At worst, I'll just resign from my position as Chief Instructor and go home to retire. Remember that you are from the Navy, and you bear a heavy responsibility. Justice will prevail." Yang Ming and the other 6 were shocked. They didn't expect that Chief Instructor Zifa wasn't there to blame them, but rather to offer them support. Yang Ming and his 6 companions stood firmly on their feet, saluted the Den Den Mushi, and solemnly said, "Justice will prevail." After removing the Den Den Mushi, Chief Instructor Zephyr rubbed his temples and thought to himself, "This kind of daring and reckless nature, completely disregarding the consequences, is exactly the same as that old rascal Garp. That old bastard Garp is still shamelessly refusing to admit that Yang Ming is his illegitimate son. Shameless." Garp, far away at Marine Headquarters, suddenly jolted awake and sneezed. Garp looked around. Fleet Admiral Sengoku calmly sipped his tea. Admirals Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru were all present, along with a group of Marine Headquarters Vice Admirals who had been summoned back from various locations. The Warring States Marshal took a sip of tea and said, "Today, let's discuss the matter of officially including Jinbi, the Knight of the Sea, in the 7 Warlords of the Sea." This boring meeting was less interesting than senbei rice crackers, so Garp started eating senbei as if no one else was around. The main entrance to Judicial Island is the first gate, where a large number of guards are stationed. According to the organization of Judicial Island, there is a guard force of 10,000 people stationed here year-round, taking turns on duty in 2 shifts, morning and evening. However, most of the previous CP9 commanders have been corrupt officials who lined their own pockets during their tenure, and the current CP9 commander, Spandam, is an even more prominent example of this, with his practice of receiving salaries without working being commonplace. The guard, supposed to be a force of 10,000, would be lucky to have 3,000 on duty. Even if there were guards stationed there, these guards had been in peace for many years and had been neglecting their training. Their combat effectiveness was truly unknown. By the time the three-mast sailboat approached the front island, Yang Ming and his 6 companions had already disembarked before the guards reacted. A guard raised his gun and pointed it at Yang Ming, saying, "Who are you?" Yang Ming took out his naval identification from his pocket and said expressionlessly, "Naval business is being handled, bystanders please leave." The guard was somewhat confused when he saw the Navy headquarters seal on it. Why would the Navy suddenly come to visit? That's really strange. His companion suddenly slapped his forehead and exclaimed in surprise, "I remember now. We were told that if any Navy personnel came, they must be killed on the spot and absolutely not allowed to enter." Upon hearing this, the surrounding guards immediately became alert.
Hi guys. I made a paid service in Telegram where you will find a great collection of fanfiction audiobooks organized and regularly updated. What you get? An unlimited access to the full audiobook library. New fanfiction audiobooks added regularly. You can play audios directly from Telegram anytime. Joining our service is available through a monthly subscription of $5. You can pay using PayPal or Ko-fi. So what are you waiting for? Send me a message on Telegram or Discord. I will provide the payment details. After the payment is confirmed, you will receive access to the private Telegram channel containing all audiobooks. If you enjoy fanfiction and prefer listening instead of reading, this library is made for you. Message me anytime to join.